Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Hidden Hockey Podcast. If you don't know who I am, my name is Matt Gordon. There's going to be a bunch of new people tonight, so I'm excited to engage with a whole new fan base in the OHL. This is my first time ever doing an OHL Draft live stream, so if you want, leave your comments off to the side. I'll be doing a kind of a Q&A thing after and talking about my overall thoughts from the draft. I'm going to try and get the video feed in. If I can't, I'm going to go with this pick tracker that we got right now and talk about the order and what I have going on the screen here. So if you like the live stream tonight, please do yourself a favor. Please subscribe to the channel. Want to be engaged with different people that are interested in not only the OHL, but the Western Hockey League, QMJHL, the USHL, as well as the other fringe niches of hockey, not only in the junior circuit, but also across the globe. So without further ado, I'm going to get into what's going on my screen here. And then the draft obviously starts at 7 o'clock tonight. So I will try my best to get the video feed on here. If I can't do so, the link is also in the description of the video as well. So you can find that link. And if you want to find the link and then, watch the video on one end and, watch me on the other, feel free to do so. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and get into the rest of this here. So my thoughts here on the overall draft so far this year, the 09 class, to me, I felt like it was a pretty average berth here, not only in Ontario, but just across all of the OHL territories where people are drafted. I felt like a lot of top American talent were taken from the development program, and I feel like there's even more that are getting tendered in the USHL, as we've seen today with a few other people that were tendered. There's already been 8 or 9 tenders with the USHL, the latest one being Michael Tang a couple hours ago, going to, I believe, the Madison Capitals. I might be wrong on that. But it's been really interesting to see what the class is this year. If you look down below, I have the best available players listed for my personal opinion on the top 25 players that are in this draft. Not necessarily in the order of what I think teams will pick at. Some of them are, but some of them are just based on pure talent. Obviously, the cream of the crop this year, and the guy who's presumed to be number 1 overall, based on multiple journalists and multiple different people that are talking about it, is Caden McGregor out of the HEO, and playing for the Ottawa Valley Titans. Obviously, he had an unbelievable year, especially with a really strong OHL Cup in back half of the year. Didn't necessarily play the whole year, so he didn't really get a full season, but he still put up 120 points over the course of 40 games, if you include his tournaments as well as what's publicly available on Elite Prospects. I'm sure he put up more than that. But it should be interesting. I think he's far and away the number 1 overall pick in this year's draft. Peterborough will likely select him, and we'll see that tonight. And then going through the rest of the draft here, there's a bunch of different people I'm going to have listed. I'm going to talk about each one of them as they're picked tonight. But going through the order here, I have the order listed here with Peterborough going first, Guelph going second, Ottawa going third, Sarnia fourth, Owen Sound fifth, North Bay sixth, the Sioux at 7. Then we got Flint at 8, Kingston at 9, Niagara at 10, Sudbury at 11, the Erie Otters at 12, Saginaw Spirit at 13, Brampton at 14 and 15. And then the Oshawa Generals, the Kingston Frontenacs, the Barrie Colts, the Sioux, Brantford, Windsor, the Kitchener Rangers, and finally the dreaded London Knights. So should be interesting. Obviously, we're going to go through and probably have about 70 picks through the first 3 rounds here, including compensatory and different other picks. So really cool to see that everybody's on here. Very excited to talk more about these different prospects and my overall thoughts on them, as well as, get your guys' perspective as well. Maybe if we have any families that are also, of people that might get picked tonight, that'd be cool to have them in the chat, just to be able to share that moment with them, because it's a once in a lifetime opportunity. But that being said, again, if you really like the live stream tonight and, I give you really good analysis, please do yourself a favor. Please subscribe to the channel, not only on YouTube, I'm also on Twitch. I'm on Instagram as well as Twitter, or X now. So do yourself a favor and please, engage in the content as well. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them off on the side. I'll get to those as I can through the draft. I'll probably do more of those in the back half, but if I have, there's some lulls or some teams are picking a little bit slower, I might go ahead and, throw the questions up on the screen and we can talk, whether it's OHL, international hockey, whatever you guys want to talk about. I'm more than willing to talk and listen. So without further ado, I'm going to get more into, my thoughts on this class as well. We have, 20 minutes here before the draft starts. Obviously, the year that Peterborough had was pretty historically bad, especially for the franchise being as young as it is. They had a really, 4 of the top 15 picks, I believe, were a part of the Peterborough team this year. So, obviously they're going to want to come in here and get a guy in Caden McGregor that's going to go and really impact their offense. It should be really interesting to see what he's able to do and what his overall game ends up translating and how it translates to the OHL. I think he's going to be an instant first-line guy in the OHL and somebody who could easily put up 70 to 80 points in his rookie year. I know that's high expectations, but, looking at him, I don't see him as, the keyword generational. I don't see him as that, but I see him as a very good OHL player from the very beginning. And it should be really exciting to see what he's able to do going into his OHL career. As far as my thoughts with the overall class, I think the goalies in this class are actually a pretty good strength. I have a couple of them already ranked in, my top 25. Not necessarily that I think they'll go there. I just think they're really elite talents, and I felt like they deserve to be considered part of the top of the class. Defensively, you've had some guys that didn't necessarily make the national development team program that I think are going to have real opportunity here. One guy I didn't have ranked here, but probably closer to 30 for me would be Anthony Timmerman from Little Caesars. He obviously was a big omission from the national development program U17 team that was just released yesterday. I might do a video on that, at another time. And then obviously you look at the guys that are, from the Ontario class, you got Peter Green, who's a really impactful player, as well as Caden Bell, both of them playing for the Don Mills Flyers. Both of them were, have their own attributes that make them really elite. Peter Green obviously is a really shifty skater, somebody who's got a lot of potential, a lot of good ability. And then you look at Caden Bell, he's a bigger framed kid. I want to say he's at 6'2", 6'3", if I'm not mistaken, or he looks like he is at least. But it's good to watch, his play as well. He's a really good skater for his size. He's got a good stick as well. Feel like he plays a really mature game as well. So, and then the forwards in this class, obviously there's a lot of different style of forwards. You got some power forward types. You have the all-around skill guys. And then you have their truly dynamic players that have really come through in the class. I think there's a really nice spread of, a mix of talent, speed, physicality, everything in terms of the forward group in this class. I think it's an above average class, not only in Ontario, but across the border as well in the U.S. So, very excited to see what, different players will be drafted as well. If you guys have any questions, I don't know if I've seen any that have come through, but please do yourself a favor and, leave them off on the side. If you want, leave your turn this off. Sorry. Hit and mute this real quick. And then, please do yourself a favor, leave it off to the side here. And, I'm going to see if we can get the video up on here. I'm trying my best. We got 6 minutes left on the OHL feed before they decide to go live. And when they go live, I'll go ahead and put it up on here. And, I might not talk as much at the very beginning, but once the picks go, I will probably, go back and forth between the actual audio and my overall opinion on things. So, really great to see everybody that's on here. Greatly appreciate you guys, staying on here and wanting to learn more about not only the OHL draft, but also just see what the results of what your team's doing, right? It's cool to see that there's this much of a opportunity for people to engage, and really talk about these things as they happen. So, me being a draft geek like myself, I enjoy watching the OHL draft. I enjoy watching these opportunities and being able to be drafted. Obviously, for anybody that's played at any sort of level in hockey, I think it's, regardless whether it's the NA3 or, the USHL, the OHL, the WHL, the QMJHL, any opportunity to get drafted is an honor. And these are really cool moments. So, I try my best to provide as much expertise as I can for each kid and give an accurate representation of each kid's game. I've watched probably over the course of the year. I watch highlights on all these kids, but overall. I mean, when I can watch him, I've probably watched about 80 to 100 games. So, it's a decent amount. I would like to watch more, but obviously, life gets in the way. But excited to talk more about the class with you guys. And we got our first question here from T. Slots. Thanks for putting it in here. T. Slot says, who are some sleeper late round guys in your opinion? For the OHL class in general, I mean, every year there seems to be some American kids that go later than they probably should just because of the uncertainty with the USHL. I think, that being said, I think there's more opportunity for, the NTDP kids. If they don't really like the program, they have the opportunity to go and jump to the OHL and not have to worry about going to college anymore. So I think there's a new opportunity for teams to really get high-end talents at, not that much of a cost. So I think you're going to see a lot of sleeper guys like, maybe Kane Barch gets drafted maybe in the 4th or 5th round. Normally, if he would have come to the OHL, I think he would have been a first-round guy. But because of the commitment to the National Development Program, I think there's going to be some opportunity for certain teams to be able to, pluck him a lot later than he probably should. To me, I think I'm looking at my notes here. I really like Blake Munnings is a really good player as well. I like him. I would consider him probably closer to a 2nd or 3rd round guy. But some people have him in their first, depending on who's evaluating him and who's publicly put out their list. Some other guys that I would say that are interesting players to watch out for. There's a couple kids from Florida that are really interesting. I want to say Green's his last name. Let me give you his full name here. I saw it earlier in the draft guide, which if you haven't seen that either, the draft guide has all the prospects listed on the OHL website. I didn't link to that, but you guys can find that on your own as well. Let me go here. Sorry, I got my other laptop off to the side with some of my notes and different research I did as well. The player here offhand. Apologize. Some other sleepers too that might be, out there. Some of these late Russian kids that have come over to North America due to the war. There might be some kids that are drafted that you'll see that'll get some selections as well. And one other guy I'll mention is a late round guy would be Drew Roscoe, playing for the Shattuck St. Mary. I think he played for the under-16 team this year. Massive kid. He's from St. Louis. 6'6", 200 pounds, really good skater. I think he could fall a lot lower just due to the uncertainty of, whether or not he will go in the USHL draft or the OHL draft. Is there a lean in any particular way? I'm not sure. He obviously did not get picked for the National Development Program, which was a shock. But it should be really interesting to see what happens there. So thanks, T-Dot, for the question, and appreciate you being on here. Christian Morello Di Alicio. I'm an Italian, so I nailed that. Looking forward to this draft. Me too. I think it's an interesting draft in terms of, the different people that can be available. I'm very curious to see, hopefully London doesn't snipe too many of these guys. They always seem to have an opportunity to, get some guys lower than they probably should. And, they might work their magic in this draft with some different, market inefficiencies, but we'll see what happens through the draft. I'm really excited about everything going for it here. So Christian says here, definitely one of the deeper drafts we've had recently. I'm of the opinion, I've only been following the classes now for about 4 or 5 years, but to me, I think this is like right in the average zone for me. I like the high-end talent in this draft. Just my personal opinion, but I think there's, you look at guys like Murata, you look at guys like Wykisk, super skilled players. I think they're guys that will be, worth their price of admission and then some, just because of the dynamism they play with in their game and the hands they have. Another player that I think is somebody who, could be a really good late first round guy is Jeremy Freeman. I think I have him aggressively ranked here at 9, but there's a couple clips I've seen of him with just unbelievable hands, and him and Michael Tang were unbelievably clutch together as teammates for the Toronto Titans. So it should be interesting to see, what happens with them there. Christian here, another question. Do you think Peterborough goes for Warren or McGregor? Well, the journalists are saying McGregor right now. I personally like McGregor more than Warren. Not that I have any dislike towards Warren. I just think, Kane McGregor to me is somebody who has no flaws in his game whatsoever. And I think he's got more of a killer instinct than Cameron Warren does. That being said, Cameron Warren is a very skilled player in his own right. Somebody with a lot of skill, a lot more, more of a probably pro-ready frame than McGregor. McGregor still got some growth, I think, physically, but personally, I think McGregor is going to be the pick. And that's just due to, what I've heard as well as my own personal opinion. So thanks for the questions again, Christian. Really appreciate it. And if you want to be like Christian, please do yourself a favor. Throw the questions in the chat, and I'll answer as many questions as I can. Obviously, I want to show you guys the results too, so I don't want to take up too. Really excited to see what we're able to do here. It looks like the feed should be ready to go here. Let me see if I can go full screen and share this for you guys.
From people,
so I'm going to share it here.
Got me like, what is that? Where did you get it?
Audio.
And this one guy came up to me one time and said, "What year is that Jeep? Hold on a second. I'll give you my card. I want to do a show on it." And that would be you, right?
Really, you guys are hearing the audio at all. I might not be able to do the stream, guys. I apologize if I can't.
Approximately 200 miles. It isn't very much. This is a two-handed driver, so I keep both hands on the wheels there. Not
anybody hearing any audio? Let me
know
know in the comments
but
if you are. If you're not,
the type of vehicle it is,
let me try something here as well.
It needs to be driven. It's noisy, it's stinky, it's bumpy, it's a Jeep, and only Jeep people understand that.
And if not, maybe I'll just leave the video feed up too. Maybe that's the way to go. So we'll see what works and what doesn't. But those are interested in staying on, please do so, and I'll provide my feedback and
Jeep. But once you see
just let things happen as they are. But if you guys are hearing audio, just let me know in the comments.
I'm sure you'll agree it's going to turn some heads.
Got 105 people on here. Wow, this is awesome. Cool, thank you.
Hello.
Appreciate that.
My name is Paul Hammond. We're sitting in
I'm not going to be here,
museum
so
in Bracebridge, Ontario.
I won't step in as much as I need to. I'll probably be following with the pick tracker, so I'm going to be a little behind.
I've lived in Bracebridge all my life, 71 years. And our family has been in the transportation business for over 70 years, buses and trucks. I personally had Muskoka Transport for 47 years. Started
as always, you guys, thanks for letting me know that you guys can hear it. Feel free to leave any questions on the side, or reactions.
It all started several years ago. A man by the name of Bill Campbell.
Be willing to talk about anything you guys want to talk about.
And he wanted one of my pickup trucks. And so after a bit of negotiation, a little bit of boot towards me, I traded him a pickup truck for this 1940 International cab and chassis. Well, then I started to look for a tow truck.
Christian Follis, his favorite player in the draft.
There are 2 or 3 maybe different grants.
It's hard to say. I mean, there's quite a few players I like.
Miles all over Ontario.
To me, I think the guy who's the most
find a tow truck
upside is McGregor. I really like the skating of Charlie Murata. So I think he's got really plus skating, super high end in terms of his acceleration.
Took it to a local company.
Those are the 2 for me. Jacko Wykes is somebody who I've watched a lot of too, and I think he's a very talented player in his own right. If you're,
by gosh, you'll see today that did a wonderful job. Young fellow named John Stead,
dynamism and talent. I think anybody in the top,
he did a lot of the
4 or 5 that I have in my list.
I am so proud of it.
Fit that. In terms of Chitteroni fits it, Ryerson Edgar fits it.
The fog lights,
Wykes, Murata, and McGregor, they all are very explosive players. So it should be exciting to see what kind of players come out of that as well. Thanks for the question, Christian.
A 1940 of this size.
I'm not going to pronounce your name, but do you keep up with any of the goalies from last year's draft class?
Very, very unique.
I do my best. Let me pull up last year's draft class real quick just to kind of re-engage myself with this. I liked think is it Colin Ellsworth. Yeah, Colin Ellsworth, I think, was drafted last year. I think he's an interesting player in his own right.
I don't know if it's got a favorite feature.
You know, he
What
obviously
I
took some
really
time,
like
and you know
is
the
to
Gulf
put it
Storm
in a
weren't
parade or
as
have it
impressive.
show, and when the people come over and say, "My God,
You know, as they
that
normally
looks
are."
nice shoe,"
And so that was cool to see that, you know, he was able to have the opportunity
I was vaccinated with an
to
international
play,
needle, so I've had
you know, some
international
meaningful
trucks
minutes.
for over 40 years.
The
I did
statistics
have
here.
some other kinds,
You might hear my dogs in the
but
background, by the way. I
I
apologize
like
if they're
internationals, and they made me a lot of
any
money,
sort
I'll
of
be
loud.
honest. So that's why I collect internationals.
I'm
We
pulling
lived
up
in
the
Lake
OH
Muskoka
class
for
here.
years, and we sold
Jake
our home
Bubble's
up there.
another guy
Someone wanted
who's
to
an
buy it.
interesting player from
And so we
last
bought
year.
12
I
acres
think
here,
he's going to have
and
the
built this
opportunity now
3,000
that,
square
you know,
foot
Jackson
building, and
Parsons
we're
is
gonna add
gone. I
another
think he's
3,000
going to
square foot
find the
on it,
opportunity
either this
and
fall
be
or
able to
next
start in
spring,
Kitchener.
so I can get all my stuff inside.
Those are the
Gives me a
two I
sense
think
of
that stick out to me
pride
from
to have
last year's
something
class.
that
I haven't really
somebody
caught
else doesn't have
Humphreys
3
to
of or
know
4
his
of.
game that well, so I'm not going to make an assumption on him.
35 pickup
But
truck,
who's your
not
friend
many
actually
around.
offhand? If you want to leave that in the
1940
comments,
very few around.
I'll see if I've
Yeah,
even viewed him or
it's a
not.
good feeling
I don't
you
want to
get
make an opinion.
when you show something. If I
Thank you
go
for the
to a
question,
show,
though.
which I do
So I'm
quite
interested to see
regularly,
where Bennett
I
goes.
can
Kid's
back
real
it
good.
in line, and there's not 2 or 3
Yeah, I'm
sitting
excited to see
beside
where he
it.
goes too.
One of a
I
kind.
think
You
he's
might see the odd one,
probably going to
but
be a
very,
second
very
round
odd.
guy in my opinion. He might sneak into the first if somebody really likes
I
him,
just love it. I
but
love to show it off.
you know, the depth
Again,
in this class is really
I'm
interesting
71
as
years
well.
old. I
So,
want to do it till they carry
thanks
me
for the
out that
question,
door.
Jason. Yeah, I agree.
I love doing it.
James Gemmell now, who
And
do you
again,
think
it's
is
the
the best goalie
satisfaction
in
of
this
the
draft?
It's like a
Personally, I think
sickness.
it's Cruz
The only way to
Resnick.
get feeling
He's a
better,
big kid,
buy another
6'4", and closer to 200 pounds. Should be really interesting to see what kind of game he's able to play and what he's able to do. But you know, I think he's a guy that you really want to look at. Another guy that's really good too is Ian Kubelka. Played for the Huron Perth Lakers. Was their starter and was averaging like under a goal per game, at least due to the public stats that I'm seeing out there. Should be really exciting to see what they're able to do and you know, see where they're at the OHL level. So. And then Max Grobestein.
I'm John
drafted in the 10th round. I'll be honest, I'm not familiar with him, but
1936 Chevrolet
but you
pickup
gave me a
truck.
name to watch out for, so I'll see
The
you know,
truck
what
has
he's able to
been
do. I haven't caught a
modified
ton of
somewhat. The original truck
OJHL
was
games this year. I caught a few
half-ton
more last
Chevy,
year, but obviously he wasn't in the
short
league.
to a quarter ton, and
So
my original truck was
I apologize.
green
I
with
can't really
black
talk
fenders.
about him.
It's been
I'm not going to
repainted
speak on
to a
somebody I've
dark
never
blue
watched. So,
color.
but
And
I
I've been
mean,
proud owner
if you're willing to listen to
7
the
years
podcast, I'm
now,
rooting
and
for him, right?
we
So,
enjoy
thanks for
going
the
to car
questions
shows
again.
and just cruising on weekends. And
Again, if you guys have any
just
other
having a lot of
questions,
fun
feel
with
free
our
to leave them
friends
in
in
the
the
chat
country.
below as well.
Ever
I'm
since
going
I
to
was a
be back in a
teenager,
few
I
minutes.
always wanted
I
a
just have
little
to do
truck
something real quick, and
from
I'll
the
be right back.
30s, a little pointy nose pickup truck. And I said to my wife, I'll wait till the kids are grown up that we start enjoying ourselves with a toy that we don't have to mortgage ourselves for. And lo and behold, I came to a donut shop one morning, and there was a truck I've always wanted. And a few months later, it did come up for sale. And between trading a few motors and transmissions and whatnot, we made a deal. And I acquired that truck.
Sorry about that. Lost the cord there, peeps. So, you know, any other questions, again, feel free to leave them inside there. James puts on here, best defenseman that's available. You know, I'm in between Peter Green and, sorry, I'm blanking on the name here. Check real quick. And Caden Bell, sorry. Both of those are,
Chevrolet
you know,
truck.
very intriguing
First year
players.
Chevrolet went to
You know, both of them play for the
steel
Domino's
frame.
Flyers.
Before that,
You know, there's some other names that are out there.
that's why you don't see a lot of Chevrolet
Hosky
trucks at car
is a
shows
guy as
anymore.
well.
They
He's
bought it
more
out.
physical.
And,
Kind of plays like a Sean
even
Aitchison game.
the
For those that are
doors, the
OHL
door
familiar.
frames.
You know, kind of
1936, they went
throwback
to a
style
metal door frame. The
defenseman. So if you're
35s
looking
and
for
under
somebody
were
like
wood
that,
frames.
he
So
probably will likely
see that
go
if they sat out in the field,
thinking late first,
they would
really
corrode
second.
or rot out
Just
very
depends
quickly.
on, you know, what a team values. And
Some of the features
you know,
of the
should see, you know, we'll see what happens
this
there.
truck,
But thanks again
you
for the
notice
question, James. Yeah, and then again, if you guys are
Doors
new
are
to the
gonna
channel,
quick
please
lock.
do yourself a favor. Please subscribe.
The key
I'm
lock
doing
is
a
on
lot
the
more
passenger
content
side.
going
Back in
into
the
the draft
day, the
season
laws
with
were
not
kind
across
of
junior hockey, but as as well as
outdated,
talking about
but,
OHL prospects.
The idea was
I do a lot of Q and
when
A's
you
like
park your
this
car,
as well. Should be really
discharge on
interesting
the
to see
passenger
how
side,
these
on the
guys
curb
develop
side
over
of the
time,
street, so that
obviously.
you didn't
So,
spook the horses by opening the door.
but please do yourself a favor. If you really
interrupting
enjoy
the
junior
horses.
hockey,
So
you enjoy the
it's a bit of an
content, you
outdated
enjoy
law,
following
but they still
prospects,
had
do
it on the
yourself a favor.
books.
Please subscribe to the channel and let me know what you want for content. I greatly appreciate those that are tuned in. Next question here: who do you think the biggest steal in the draft will
Another
be?
feature with the 1936
Hard to say.
Chevrolet. When you wanted to fuel your vehicle,
I mean, I think
the gas
it
tank
depends
was
on where
under
these
the
guys
passenger
fall. I'm
seat.
probably gonna have to come back to that question.
You had to flip
I'll
the
probably
seat up,
give me an
pump the fuel.
hour, and once these picks are
Smoking
made,
at the
I'll be
gas
able to
pumps
tell
was
you a
still
little bit
allowed back
more.
in the day. Maybe that's
Really
why
just
you don't
depends
see
on
that
where they're
many
slotted.
36 Chev trucks on the road
I
either.
think Eamon Edgar is a guy
This
who
truck has
might
been
fall
modified.
in the
The fuel
third round,
tank
who I
has
think is
been
a really
brought to
good
the
player as
back.
well.
It had one light at the
Like I
back,
said
one
earlier, I
tail
think
light.
the American kids, depending on
Also
where they
was
fall,
your
and
brake
if they
light.
actually end up reporting
There was no
that
signal
those will be
lights.
steals too.
If you want to turn left,
Depends on
put
what
your
kind of
arm
players
out
you're
the
looking
window
at.
this
So,
way. Right
but
turn
thanks again for the
was
question
this
as well.
way. You may have noticed on the front, on the windshield, there's one
Looks
wiper
like we
blade.
got 4 minutes left
The second
before
wiper
the
blade was an
actual
extra. It was an option.
draft starts.
The warranty on this truck was 90
It's
days
obviously a really weird decision to
for
be playing
4,000
this
miles. Whichever
during
came first. It was not
the
transferable. This is a Canadian-built truck. It was
during the
built in
OHL
Oshawa,
priority
Ontario.
section. Not really sure what
Truck
this has to
number
do with
100 on the assembly line.
the OHL draft, but
206 cubic
should be
inch
interesting to see
with
nonetheless.
26.3 horsepower.
Again, for those that are
The
interested
truck
in
had a different
learning
engine
more
put in, a newer
about
engine. It's about
the draft order and everything like
10
that.
times more
If you
horsepower
haven't
than
checked the
that now.
description, I do have the pick by pick tracker. That's how I'm going to be following, since I can't hear the audio. I'll do my best to impart my info when I learn it. So.
My friend Mike Burton built that truck, and I was there for some of the build. Originally a 6-cylinder truck, 3 on the tree. Now it's a 396 big block with a 4-speed. I guess from beginning to end, I grew to love that truck, and I told him, anytime you're going to sell that, I want to buy it off you. I learned how to drive on a 66 Chevy pickup that my dad
and
had.
then if you guys are curious too, there's some more picks with some guys that are potentially eligible, that are guys who have NHL bloodlines. The big name that has NHL ties is Trevor Daly Jr. That is Trevor Daly's son.
Dusty and dirty, but
he
it was
did get
solid,
into the National Development Program, but I'm wondering if that is a ploy to get him to go to the Sioux Greyhounds. Sioux picks at 7, so I'm personally of the opinion that might still happen, which is why I have him ranked. He's the only National Development Program player I have ranked within the top 25 here.
When I started the 66
obviously, some
Russell
guys that are
truck
from the
now,
program are also going to be picked later
was,
on as well.
No game plan, just
so it should be interesting to
rebuild.
see what
At the time, the big
goes on
blocks
with
were
them and
all the
what they're
rage.
able to
Fuel
do as
economy
well.
wasn't
So.
a big deal. Transmission, and that was found in the field. We had it rebuilt and put that in, and it's just a good match. It's a good driving truck. It was supposed to have been a more of a rustic truck, but it ended up being like a show quality truck by the time it was done. So they call it a rusto mod now, where everything is new underneath. All the modern conveniences with air conditioning and overdrive transmissions, fuel injection. No more carburetors, no more set the choke to get it to run. Just turn the key and it goes. They give 25, 30 miles to the gallon.
Sorry about that. My video feed cut
Where
off
do you
a little
find a
bit.
70 or a 50-year-old vehicle kicking around anymore and bring it back to life?
But
They're easier
wow,
to
99
drive.
people.
You don't have to
This is
get a
awesome, guys.
scratch
Thank
or
you again
scuffing
for
it or
subscribing.
bang it or stone chip. It just adds
Engaging in the
character to
content
it.
as well.
It's
I'm
just
going to
like
be,
driving a brand
like I
new
said
truck,
earlier, I'm going to
but
be leaving
with
the
the
feed
old rustic
as much
look.
as I can.
It's just cool.
That's all
You know,
the
I'm not
tips
going
we
to
have
have,
for you
you guys
on
might
this
be able to hear the
episode.
audio a little bit,
Have
but I'm going to
fun
talk a
out
little
there
bit through
on
it as
the
well.
roads. Thanks for watching.
Do yourself a favor, and if you like the content, please subscribe. We really appreciate you guys being on here and being able to engage in the content, and excited to have you guys involved. So going into, some other players too that I think are going to be, interesting players that also have NHL bloodlines. Landon Jackman is another player that, Barrett Jackman is his dad, playing for the Little Caesars program. He's originally from St. Louis. He's big, like his dad, obviously, as well. He's 6'3" and
find videos,
he's like
our broadcast schedule, community events, and how you can get involved in your local
should be
channel.
interesting to see where he goes in this draft. I think he's somebody who, there's gonna be a lot of appeal for him in terms of what he's able to bring to the table, and I'm just excited to see what he's able to do going into the rest of this process here. Some other guys that are eligible. Noah Laus is another guy. Paul Laus was his, I believe his dad or his uncle. I have to look real quick. But played for Florida back in the early 2000s. Should be interesting to see what he's able to do as well. I think he's a very intriguing player. Somebody who will definitely go in the top 15.
On the go. Cogeco customers
and
now enjoy local
as far as I know, there's
online.
no other draft
log into your Cogeco account
bloodlines that I know between prospects or anything like that. But
your TV
it should be interesting to see
local,
what kind of players come out from
My name's Josh Bloom.
I'm Colby
the rest of these
I'm David Goyette.
picks here.
My name's Sam
We got
Dickinson.
video of some of the prospects
Sam
as they're talking.
I'm Brent Hoffman. I play on the Dominus Flyers.
Hi, my name is
I
Porter
think
Martone.
probably should be starting in a minute. So
I'm Travis
excited to see where some of these guys will go. Obviously, the presumptive number one right now is
Danny Shulkin. My name's Jordan Donovan. Hi, my name's Henry Muse.
Kane McGregor. We'll see if that actually happens.
Hi, my name is Cole Bodwin.
It's a funny video of Brant Clark there.
Jason Dickinson. Hi, I'm Ben Godger.
Funny to see these guys so young now. They're all in the NHL, and that's the beauty of the OHL, right? Being able to see these guys when they're really young and be able to watch them before they really get discovered.
Jessica Pinelli.
My name is Aaron Ekblad.
That's the whole point of the draft, right? Find these opportunities, find these talents. They're eventually going to play in the national hockey.
My name is Quentin Mostier.
My name is Michael Misa. I play for the Mississauga Senators.
Hi, my name is Connor McDavid. Play for the Toronto Marlies. I'm centerman, and I'm from Newmarket, Ontario.
It's a big night for the Ontario Hockey League, and we are live at Cogeco headquarters as it's the 2025 OHL Priority Selection presented by Real Canadian Superstore. Hi again, everyone. I'm Terry Doyle. Thank you so much for joining us. We are live across the network, whether you're joining us on your TV, Rogers TV, Cable 14 in Hamilton, Eastlink, CHL TV, and across the OHL social channels to bring you this 2025 OHL Priority Selection presented by Real Canadian
audio. I
Superstore.
got
Over in the
the
next
clip
3 or
here
so
off
hours,
to my
we're going to
right.
bring you rounds
So I'm gonna
1 through 3 this evening.
be as quick
and
as
then
I can
4 to
once
15
they're
comes
announced.
up on Saturday beginning at 9 a.m. across the network, as it's an exciting time bringing you the newest players coming into the Ontario Hockey League. It's been referred to as graduation day from minor hockey for so many players. A huge time for their families, the coaches, you name it. And we're very excited to see the names that you will see over the next few hours, the OHL teams, their minor hockey clubs, and so much more. We'll bring you those names and those stories over the course of our broadcast. But before we get the 2025 OHL Priority Selection underway, we of course have some rules we need to go through. Let's bring you those now.
But before we get the 2025
Players eligible for selection are those North American players from territorial jurisdiction born between January 1st, 2006 and December 31st, 2009, including those.
Again, if you guys have any questions, feel free to leave them in the chat on the side. We greatly appreciate you guys being able to
priority selection is 15 rounds, with the completed first-round order of selection having been determined
and even if they're not
through the
OHL
OHL
related,
Draft lottery process held on March 26th.
Beyond
Beyond the opening 4 picks, the order of selection is structured in inverse order of the 2024-25 OHL regular season standings. The 2025 OHL priority selection will span 2 days, with rounds 1 through 3 held Friday, followed by rounds 4 through 15 on Saturday beginning at 9 a.m. OHL clubs can utilize a maximum of 5 minutes to select a player in the first 3 rounds and will have a span of 3 minutes to make a selection in the remaining 12 rounds. Each team may utilize 2 timeouts, 1 in the first 5 rounds for a maximum of 2 minutes, and 1 timeout in the remaining rounds for a maximum of 1 minute. There will be short breaks following Friday's first and second rounds, and a 15-minute break at the conclusion of Saturday's 9th round. Teams will make their selection by way of the internet through a specially designed interactive draft day screen. The league will then approve each selection before they appear publicly. Teams will participate in a conference call through Friday's opening 3 rounds and will make their selections audibly before selections will be made digitally during rounds 4 through 15 throughout Saturday's draft show. In addition to following broadcast coverage, fans can track each selection as they appear with
you got a question here. Do you follow W with a Q? Yeah, I try to follow all of the leagues. So I'll be doing probably a WHL version of this, as well as a QMJHL draft version of this too. So
with that, we're just about set to get the 2025 OHL priority selection presented by Real Canadian Superstore underway. Before we do that, we are joined in studio by OHL Commissioner Brian Crawford. And Brian, good to see you. Welcome inside our studio here. And how excited are you to get this 2025 OHL draft underway?
Oh, fantastic. You know, it's obviously really exciting to welcome
a
new
boom like they do with the
class
OHL,
of
the
players
NHL
and their
draft.
families into our league. And you know, it's been such a fantastic year this year, and we're headed for great places, and excited to see the new picks tonight.
You saw a little bit of the OHL Cup, of course, and those players now waiting to hear their names called. I'm sure it's nice to see those fresh faces and be so excited to join the OHL family.
Yeah, you know, I think that for so many, this is a kind of a moment that they've been thinking about for a long time. It's the next stop in their hockey journey, and you know, we're so proud to be able to welcome new families into the league and just continue to build from strength to strength with this league. And we're headed in such great place towards such great places, and you know, it's just an exciting night for so many folks.
Here we are in the playoffs, and you've gone through you know, every city in the Ontario Hockey League, done a tour, stopped in, not only talking to the people around the teams, but the people around the community. What have you learned even more over this tour over the course of the 9 months you were on the road?
I mean, it's just, you know, so apparent to me, being in all of the communities, how deeply rooted we are in all the communities that we're in, and just how important these franchises are to those.
Let me know if you guys, is it annoying?
You know, the reality
you guys hear my audio at all? I hope
representative
not.
of what it means to be from all of these communities, what the shared
If you do, let me
experience of
know
growing
if
up in
it's
those
ambient.
communities
I'll
are
turn
going to
it
a
off.
game on Friday night, and you know, that's really special. And you know, I think that's a bit of the superpower of this league, and what makes it as special of a league as it is.
And I know as part of the tour, as we said, not only talking to people with the teams, but mayors and Chamber of Commerce and those type of people. Is that where you really even more saw? I'm sure there were stories by the mayors about going to games, and they were season ticket holders and all those types of things.
Yeah, I mean, it's that exact thing that you've got mayors, community members, you know, members of council, all those sorts of folks that are just season ticket holders.
I just moved it, John. Is that better?
You know, maybe a couple
That
generations.
way it's not like
they grew up
too
going
much.
with their parents. Now they take their kids, and it's just part of kind of that family history. And so that's what's really neat. You know, these individuals aren't out at the game because, you know, I was visiting or something like that. This is just part of their, you know, their week, and that's really special, and it just shows the connection that we have, and as I said, just how important we are to these communities. And that's ultimately, you know, one of our kind of core missions. It's developing young people, and it is supporting and developing the communities that we're in.
As a lot of the players watching us right now are a little nervous for the draft to get underway. You were drafted as a football player. I'm sure you got a little nervous that day.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, there's all sorts of emotions that you know, are of course running through your veins during, you know, a draft day. And you know, I think the kind of the best you know, kind of advice that I can provide is, you know, enjoy the process, right? Really, life in hockey, it's all about process, and you got to go through the process, and you got to enjoy it along the way. You know, it's not about the destination as much.
Cool.
And
Thanks much.
you know, really try to take it all in, and know that it's, you know, just
all
the
right,
next
Brian
step
Crawford,
on the journey.
We're going to let you get ready. You're going to be announcing the first round
if
picks.
you guys
We'll
want,
let you
feel
get
free
all
to
set, but appreciate you joining us here in studio. And let's enjoy the 2025 OHL Draft.
Looking forward to it.
There's Brian Crawford, OHL Commissioner, joining us here in studio. The first overall choice receives
again, those that have
special
stayed on,
recognition
thank you
in
so
the
much for
Ontario
staying
Hockey
on.
League.
You know,
Let's get
cool to
more
see
on
that I'm, you know, we got 80 people here.
The Jack
which is
Ferguson
awesome.
Award is presented each year to the first overall pick in the OHL priority selection, a player chosen not just for talent, but for their potential to shape the future of the game. Named in honor of longtime OHL Central Scouting Director Jack Ferguson, the award has been a first step for many who have gone on to do great things in the hockey world. Among the most legendary names on the list, Eric Lindros was a force of nature with the Oshawa Generals,
like I
who
said,
went
I
on
didn't
to
want
a
to be
dominant
the
NHL
sound. I
career
just want to
defined
make
by
sure I heard the
power,
picks. So,
skill, and leadership.
if it's good, thank
Another
you.
Generals standout, John Tavares, currently
All right,
captains
they're
the
going to hand out
Toronto
now the
Maple
Jack
Leafs.
Ferguson
He
Award
broke records in the OHL, including
every year the first
215
overall pick
career
gets
goals,
the Jack
showcasing
Ferguson
a goal-scoring
Award.
touch that set him apart from the start. Steven Stamkos, the 2006 recipient, was electric with the Sarnia Sting and brought that same scoring flair to the NHL, becoming a two-time Stanley Cup champion with the Tampa Bay Lightning. In 2014, the Sarnia Sting selected Jacob Chychrun first overall, a dynamic defenseman whose skating and offensive instincts were on display from day one. Chychrun quickly rose to NHL prominence and continues to be a key presence on the Washington Capitals blue line. No list is complete without Connor McDavid, selected by the Erie Otters in 2012. With unmatched speed and vision, he's become the face of the NHL and continues to amaze night after night with the Edmonton Oilers. Quinton Byfield, chosen first in 2018 by the Sudbury Wolves, brought size, speed, and skill to the OHL. Since then, he's carved out a growing role with the Los Angeles Kings as one of the league's rising young stars. Michael Misa, granted exceptional status in 2022, went first overall to the Saginaw Spirit. He's become a central figure in the team's success, helping power them to a Memorial Cup, and continues to impress as a top prospect for this year's NHL Draft. In 2023, the Erie Otters used the top pick to select Matthew Schaefer.
I'll refresh this 1 second, peeps.
Into the 2025 NHL Draft.
Get back here to the feed.
Elches became the latest Jack Ferguson Award recipient, taken first overall by the Windsor Spitfires in 2024.
Sorry, 1 second here. Let me get the feedback. See what's going on. Not sure why it's not working the way it should. All right, I got it back here. Let me go back here and throw it back on. Apologize for that.
OHL priority selection presented by Real Canadian Superstore underway. Commissioner Brian.
All right, is that back for everybody?
Getting set to
I didn't realize
the
that it was shutting off. It looked like it was still playing on my
There's a little bit of suspense, but I'm sure a lot of people are waiting to hear that. So I believe the commissioner is all ready to go. So let's turn it over to OHL Commissioner Brian Crawford.
Welcome to the 2025 OHL Priority Selection Draft, presented by Real Canadian Superstore. What an exciting time for so many players and their families, our teams and fans across our great league. It is my pleasure to announce tonight's first round picks. With the first overall pick in the 2025 OHL Priority Selection, the Peterborough Petes select forward Caden McGregor from the Ottawa Valley Titans.
Caden McGregor from the Ottawa Valley Titans, the selection there. 38 goals on the season in 29 games, and now a member of the Peterborough Petes. And with that in mind,
there you go. There's the first overall pick. Like I said earlier, Caden McGregor gets the first overall pick here for the Peterborough Petes. In talking about Caden McGregor, you got an all-around skill set, unbelievable ability, really good skater.
Thank you. All right, well,
super smart. He's going to impact the OHL immediately.
Taking a moment just to take it all in.
I think there's 70 to 80 point upside with him.
How special does it feel to
should be
hear
really
your name
interesting to see what
announced by
he's
the
able to do
commissioner
in
as the first overall pick?
especially with the young weight class they have there.
This has been a dream of mine
They're
ever
working
since I
on
was a
building a
little
really
kid.
young core
To hear it finally get called,
should work for a long
it's a
time.
surreal moment for me and my
So that's
family.
great selection
here today
for
with
them.
your parents. You mentioned you came with your parents. You have 3 other siblings. This moment has to be huge for your family. What was that conversation like in the car ride? Yeah, my parents obviously have been the biggest supporters for me growing up. The amount of hours they spent waiting in rinks, driving me in the car. I just want to thank them, and then my siblings as well. My brother pushing me from an early age, and just my sisters always being there for me whenever I needed them. So you had an incredible season, and it's capped off by being selected first overall by the Peterborough Petes. We'll talk about Peterborough in just a second, but at what point during the course of this season, or was it at all on your radar, #1 overall? Was that something you were gunning for? I had it. Obviously, I kind of tried to block out that noise. For me, this year was just about kind of having fun with my friends and
doing anything I could to win. That was the biggest thing for our team this year.
Well, we talked about your team before we came on camera and what a big weekend it is. Expecting a lot of players from that Ottawa Valley squad to be selected. How's the group feeling?
Yeah, well, I think everyone's pretty excited. I just want to wish everyone good luck in the rest of the draft, and I hope all goes well.
Well, you're wearing that jersey, the Peterborough Pete's, a historic franchise in the OHL. What can Pete's fans expect from Caden McGregor?
They can expect a tenacious forward, someone who plays both ends of the game. I prioritize compete level.
All right, so my second player that's available
as hard as I can.
Is Charlie Murata.
I have him
use my potentially here at 2. I think Jacko Whitekiss is very possible to go at 2 as well.
We saw that video package a moment ago talking about the players that have been selected first overall and they've received the Jack Ferguson Award. You see that list, you see the company that you're joining. What goes through your mind?
But I'm leaning
it's definitely crazy,
Murata, but
in this 2009 age group, there are so many guys that could have went first overall. And I'm humbled and honored to accept that. And I just want to thank the Peterborough Petes for putting their faith in me.
Well, I'm glad that you mentioned that because it's a great group of players.
Again, if you guys have any questions, feel free to leave them on the
side.
You'll
be in Peterborough tomorrow. Congratulations and welcome to the OHL.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, Caden McGregor, the first overall pick in the 2025 OHL Priority Selection. Round number 1 continues when we come back. Congratulations.
Parking your moving truck is hard. Moving your internet? That's easy. With Cogeco's super reliable, super fast, fiber-powered internet.
Wow, already going to commercial for the first pick. Interesting. So yeah, if you guys want here, like I said, I think Guelph is going to look at either Charlie Murata or Jacko Whitekiss. Both guys that are incredibly dynamic players. Somebody that, Guelph could really use in their lineup. Obviously,
my time in the OHL allowed me to prepare
any sort of offense
for
that
life
Guelph
as a
can get
professional hockey player at a young age.
I think
the development opportunity players are provided by playing in the OHL is unrivaled. Support systems teams have in place help players immensely.
Ottawa is
once
probably
they
going to get one of the 2 remaining
coaching,
guys. There's
skill development,
they go for
facilities, and attention the OHL
I think
provides.
Cameron Warren does fit kind of an Ottawa 67's play style as well.
Lunch or dinner is
like
served at Tim's.
Any of those picks for either Guelph or Ottawa.
No, that's
so it just depends on what kind of
Make a
players
meal
they
of
want
it.
and,
Order the new hat-trick flatbread pizza and garlic bread on the Tim's app.
Across the nation, the Canadian Hockey League is known
and
for
then,
investing in moments like this.
Again, if you guys have any
Did you know
questions
we're also
or
investing
want
in
to
this?
chat about anything, it doesn't even have to be OHL related. It could be anything hockey related.
$10 million
As long as
each year.
it's within the
The
prospect world, that would be
CHL,
nice.
developing tomorrow's leaders.
Be really
Watch your
appreciated.
TV on the go. Cogeco customers can now enjoy local programming online. Simply
talk more
log into
about,
your Cogeco account on
different teams in the
cogeco.ca.
OHL
Click on
or
Your
any
TV
league
and
whatsoever.
start
So.
streaming. Your TV is truly local, exclusively on Cogeco.
Welcome back to the 2025 OHL Priority Selection presented by Real Canadian Superstore. As we are getting set now for the second overall choice to be made here, as Daryl Woodley joins me in studio, and the Commissioner Brian Crawford is standing by to make the announcement as the Guelph Storm are on the clock, but we're just waiting for the Commissioner. So wanted to ask you, Daryl, very quickly, Caden McGregor.
Peterborough Pete's fans are going to love him. He explained himself to a T of what kind of hockey player he is. He's got great hockey IQ, he's got great skill, but the compete and the work ethic on both sides of the puck is what makes him, that much different than some of the other players. He's a kid that you're going to win with because he does take care of both ends. He's got a high IQ and he understands the little things he has to do to win. And the other things that really impressed me were, as I watched him this year, is how well he sees the ice.
Just excited to see where we go from here.
Than I thought at the beginning of the year, especially in the OHL Cup.
What people are predicting,
that were like,
different
wow,
things.
I'm sitting up in the stands and I didn't even see that play happen, and he's on the ice and made it happen. So he's definitely a gifted player.
Still got 58 on the stream, so much appreciated for those that are on here. Really appreciate you guys tuning in, and don't be shy.
With the second overall pick in the 2025 OHL Priority Selection, the Guelph Storm select forward Jacko Whisick from the Sun County Panthers.
Jaco Wisik, the choice there out of Sun County, and Daryl, a player that Guelph Storm fans are going to be excited to see in the lineup.
Yeah, a big body,
Wisik,
a big centerman that can beat you in a number of ways. He's got the reach and the skill,
in his own right too, really dynamic player,
ability, and
great
he's
speed.
one of those players you watch him, and the game seems to come easy.
I also
for
like
him.
his acceleration quite a bit.
He's
a bit taller than you think.
Sorry, and he really seems, like he's not really having to work hard out there. He is, but
he's actually 6'1".
There through the
I think I remember
and he makes the game seem so easy. He's such a big kid, and he's got soft hands and great understanding for the game.
Hell of a player. This kid
That Sun County team was a fun team to watch this year. They had a lot of skill. They were very they played a very open game and generated a lot of offense.
Another guy
he was obviously the
really
catalyst
elusive,
in driving their
offense. For those not familiar, Sun County is Windsor, surrounding area around Windsor, and Daryl showing the maturity or how he's ready to move up. He's already playing Junior B hockey, playing for the provincial Junior A hockey for Leamington in the playoffs, deep in the playoffs here. They're playing tonight against Milton.
And I'm also updating the bottom
regular minutes
as well, so
to be able to jump right out of playing U16 into that league right away to get ready to jump to the OHL next year. I'm sure it's impressive.
It's very impressive. He's not just playing regular minutes. I hear he's playing power play and penalty. That's the reason why he's there playing and probably not at a draft party with the rest of his buddies. But that's what you want. You want these kids to keep developing and keep playing and in the big
if you guys want
chances
to,
and the big moments like they're
feel free
getting.
to leave where you guys are
for him
in the chat.
Continue after his minor
I'd like to know where
hockey,
my audience comes from.
Keep developing and
so just do yourself a favor, leave.
So certainly
a very
important
your
time for
at,
his family. Congratulations to Jaco Wisik, the choice there, and still playing hockey, playing for Leamington. So we have 2 picks in. Up next, the Ottawa 67s are on the clock. We'll get the announcement of their selection
should be fun to watch.
And with that,
what other people are involved here in the chat here. But thanks for those that have tuned in. Really appreciate you guys.
The 2025 OHL priority selection. The Ottawa 67s select forward Brock Chitteroni from the Barrie Junior Colts.
Brock Chitteroni from the Barrie Junior Colts to
another guy who's been really highly hyped.
Daryl, a player who's
really
well traveled, played Northern Ontario, but playing for Barrie, and going to be very excited, I'm sure, to go to Ottawa.
Be able
to, kid that I've seen a lot
watch
of,
him
living
play.
Just north of Barrie. I see a lot of the Barrie.
I think he's somebody who's played now at the
U16
level for 2 years.
So I've seen him now for 2 solid years.
He's been very impactful in both years too.
He's continued his progression throughout the year.
About a year and a half ago.
He wears 51.
But another guy who's going to be day one in OHL.
But there's a lot of
shouldn't have any trouble adjusting to the OHL, and I think that's a really great pick there for the Ottawa 67s.
This is one kid that does
totally makes
things
sense
quick.
for
You
them
watch him,
to
he's got
have
the quick
him. I'm
twitch
sure the
muscles, he's
Sioux
got
would
great
have liked to
vision.
draft a
And I
player
don't know
like
if there's a better skater in the draft than him because the way
nonetheless,
he uses his
great
edges and the
selection
way he
there,
can generate power off his stride
pretty in line with where I had
How
him.
impressive it too, the fact that obviously, as you said, played a year up last year, and then to play once again that U16. And of course, when you're going to that second year, I'm sure you want to see you really dominating or really a factor there on the ice.
Yeah, and you do get from time to time the kid that plays up in U16 as an underage, and it takes him a while to adjust or get used to playing up at 16 again. I think that may be because they think it's going to be easy. I played there once already. I can do it again next year, no problem. But with Brock, he came in right away, and right from the get-go, he's a hard-working kid, so his feet are always moving. So he was always generating and moving his feet and generating
plenty
offense
of players
for his team.
that
So he picked up right off the bat at the beginning of the year.
Do a lot of really good
So
things.
the choice there, Brock Chitteroni, goes to the Ottawa 67s
I
with
think
the third
any of
overall
the group
choice.
of
Sarnia
the
Sting
first 8
are on the
players I
clock.
had
They're
ranked,
picking up
any of
fourth
them can go
overall
top 5.
in this 2025 OHL priority selection presented by
pretty
Real
good
Canadian
top end
Superstore.
depth in this
Thanks for
year's
joining us
draft.
here on this Friday night. We'll take you through the opening 3 rounds this evening and rounds 4 through 12.
Sarnia's going to go now.
Beginning Saturday morning at 9 o'clock Eastern time, and a very exciting time around the Ontario Hockey League. Exciting time for the players. We heard from Caden McGregor a few moments ago, and the smile on his face was certainly all lit up the room when he came in, as he was certainly excited to have that Peterborough Pete's jersey and go to Peterborough. And then, of course, we've seen
Sorry, everybody had to move. I had the
and
sun hit
Ottawa.
my face.
Up next, the commissioner has the choice for the Sarnia Sting.
61 people on here again. Thank you guys so much for getting on here. I'm excited to see what the 4th pick is here.
With the 4th overall pick in the 2025 OHL priority selection, the Sarnia Sting select forward Brenner Leemans from the Toronto Red Wings.
Brenner Lehman's out of the
Brenner
Toronto Red
Lehman's,
Wings, a player not afraid
to me, I think
use
I don't really
his size,
love
get involved,
this selection,
mix
to
it
be
up,
honest.
and
I think Brenner Lehman's
think
is a
Sarnia
guy
Sting
who
fans are going to be pretty excited to have as
is
a
a
fan
late
favorite
first round guy. He shouldn't have been four, in my opinion.
This kid, Brenner, plays the game
that being
the
said,
right
he's a
way.
good
No
player.
shortcuts
I
taken
just
all
think
on
he
the
was a
ice.
little
He
high to
sometimes
take
would almost rather go
Lehman's.
through
I didn't even
around
have
you.
him
He's one of
in
those
my
kind
top
of players.
25, to be
And,
honest.
big part of his team. They lost in the
obviously
finals of the
player
Silver
Sarnia
Stick.
wanted.
They
He
upset
probably
the
did
Junior
want to
Canadians in the
report
first
somewhere
round of the
close to
playoffs in
Sarnia.
GTHL. And he's a driving
That was,
force
there
for
was some
them.
rumors going around
he's
too
always moving his
within
feet,
journalists
getting in
and
on the
different people that
forecheck.
said that
And one thing that
he'd be a guy that would be
really
available.
good skill too. It's kind of
for
goes
them.
underrated a little bit because of how hard he plays the game and because of how hard he works. But he's got good hands and a good touch around the net. And he's able to make those plays coming off the rush as well.
That being said, though, he's a very good player. Very
his style of play,
very tenacious. Very somebody who
he's
not willing
to just stand out.
The
style he plays, as you said, going through guys.
Very good in the forecheck, very good in the corners.
He was a player that
really goes about his business.
I love these old school guys.
He's a rough and tumble customer. So
don't necessarily try and do the cute.
Obviously they're looking for that in Sarnia. So it's an interesting pick. I think there was some skill that was left on the board, but
you get a lot of this.
Obviously it's just a matter of preference. So,
but with Brenner, he plays the game.
That's their selection,
old school
and
he's
good
not
for
afraid
the
to go to
Lehman's
the dirty
family.
areas, and as you know, that's where a lot of guys make a living, especially in our league, and then moving forward in the NHL. If you're willing to go to those dirty areas, you can get rewarded.
The captain of that Red Wings team as well. And we'll talk about this throughout the night, but I'm sure when we see these players that have been recognized to be
again,
the
if you guys have stayed on as long as you have, please do yourself a favor.
Exactly.
Please subscribe to the channel.
He missed a little bit of time this year with some injury.
Really appreciate you guys being able to
recognize when he wasn't on the ice.
as well as watch the content
his
with me
team felt it a little bit. They had a good team as well, but when he
do yourself a
wasn't
favor.
there, it
Please
was almost
subscribe.
like he
That'd
led
be
the
much
way both on the
appreciated.
ice and off the ice for
You'll
that
be able to
team.
get more of my
So
content.
definitely a good player.
The Owen Sound Attack are on the clock, getting set to make the next choice. OHL Commissioner Brian Crawford is standing by and ready to make the announcement.
On the picks on the side, aren't they?
With the 5th overall pick in the 2025 OHL Priority Selection, the Owen Sound Attack select forward Max DeLille from the Toronto Titans.
Max DeLille out of the Toronto Titans, the choice here, and Daryl, and certainly a familiar name, the DeLille last name, joining Tristan in Owen Sound.
Max DeLille gets selected. A lot of people did have him closer to 5, 5 or 6. I had him a little bit lower. I had him at 13.
Guy that was the leader.
That being said, a good player as well. Not necessarily the flashiest player, not the most skilled, but somebody who's
he was definitely
really smart.
And another kid,
always knows where to be.
Brenner, that as you see
I think he's
that hit, not afraid
pretty
to take
average
the body
skater.
all over the ice. One of my favorite players, just because of how hard he plays the game. Shift in, shift out. If he's not scoring
good
goals,
development
he's getting in on the forecheck. He's
doing
all the other little things that coaches at our level and minor hockey
he has that type of upside and opportunity in his game.
He was used in every situation by his coach.
If I had to give a player comparable, I
think
somebody like Lardis with a little bit more physicality is where Max DeLille
with that great snapshot that he has.
And so certainly
it's an Owen Sound style player.
To be able to
that makes sense for him to go there.
As you've gone through your team looking at these players, I'm sure you're looking at them and just how they've progressed throughout the year as well. From September and October into March, for example.
Yeah, that's why we start. That's why we start the process in September. And even I'll go further than that. I've got a U15 scout as well that gets out the year before and starts to get a book on these guys because you want to see those kids that are continually progressing. Whether it's through their 15-year into the 16-year-old year, and then throughout the 16-year-old year, you want to see kids that are going the right way on the curve and that are continuously getting better and improving and improving their game and improving their stock.
Updated the best available here.
We've had 5 picks in. Now we're up to number 6 as the North Bay
obviously so far we got
clock.
3 of the top 5 still left on my ranking personally, but I think one of those guys would probably go here with Brampton.
With the 6th overall pick in the 2025 OHL Priority Selection, the North Bay Battalion select forward Cameron Warren from the Toronto Junior Canadians.
Cameron Warren of the Toronto Junior Canadians, and you see that almost 2 points a game.
Cameron Warren, again, like I said,
and a player that certainly stood out at
very
the OHL
tough
Cup
player,
tournament.
somebody who likes to get their nose dirty and they like to get in front of the net.
Every time I saw him play that week,
pretty OHL ready already.
He scored the
had a very good OHL
Cup. Ottawa Valley, I believe. He scored
I think he's done a lot of good things. I'm just excited to see what he's able to do. I think his shot is very pro ready already.
He's just a dynamic
you see there with that clip they just showed.
You talk to him and you talk to people around him. him.
He's
he's
pretty
always
quick
moving his
as well.
feet. He's,
I find
5'9",
that he's
he's
a little
good
bit faster
size,
than
but
you
he's
would
hard to
expect.
knock off the puck because he's got that good
Also has a
center
really
of
good
gravity.
elusive ability.
And also
to
go
just
along with the skill.
Get away
He's
from
one of the
people and
most
really just
skilled players in the
understand where he is on the ice.
Another kid that played
a lot to like with Cameron
U16
Warren,
last
very
year with
pro
North York,
projectable player.
and made the progression and the step this
Fits
year.
really well.
Has been one of the go-to guys, one of the top guys in the draft all year.
Sorry, not
and someone I'm sure as you go through and look at it from that standpoint, where
very good selection there.
It's one thing to show up in November. It's one thing to show up in December. But to show up at the OHL Cup tournament, all eyes are on you, or so many eyes are on you. It's the championship tournament for your age group, and I'm sure to be able to excel at that level, it's like, to excel now when the lights are on in the OHL is going to be a big factor.
Yeah, and that's what us as scouts we're looking for.
We got two more of the top 5 still left on my board.
Because at the end of the day,
7
that's
here.
what all the OHL teams are trying
I'll
to do.
be very
They're
curious to see
trying
who's
to win the OHL championship and move on to the Memorial Cup. He came in, and I'm sure his whole team came in with the mindset of, we got knocked out in the first round of the playoffs, so we got a little chip, or we got something to prove here.
I would be
get in as a wild card and
not
end up running
surprised
the
if
table.
it wasn't, but I
good
just
on him and the rest of those junior Canadian players.
I don't know.
So congratulations to Cameron Warren, chosen there by the North Bay Battalion with pick number 6 in this 2025 OHL Priority Selection presented by Real Canadian Superstore. Thanks for joining us across the network this evening, whether you're watching us on your TV, Rogers TV, Eastland, Cable 14, you name it, across CHL TV, the OHL social channels as well.
Obviously,
bringing you this special night here. It's an annual event and certainly a very special event here in the Ontario Hockey League. And now we're getting set for the next choice, and we go to Commissioner Brian Crawford.
Not that this should overwhelm the pick, but
with the 7th overall pick in the 2025 OHL Priority Selection, the Sioux Greyhounds select forward Noah Louse from the Toronto Junior Canadiens. With the 7th overall pick.
Toronto Junior Canadiens right back again, Daryl. This time it's a player you see 25 goals in 33 league games, and now Noah Louse chosen there by the Sioux Greyhounds.
Yeah, and we talk about players stepping their game up at the right time.
Old school style player,
not anybody. He almost led the tournament and scored the OHL Cup in goals anyway.
Also had a really good
OHL Cup as well.
Should be fun to see what he's
able
to go
plays the game the right way. And just was him and Cameron Warren there and Roberts were probably one of the best lines in minor hockey when they were on the ice. They were creating every time, and I think the opposition just tried to hold them at bay as best they could. But he's a player that scores a lot of his goals from there. He goes to that dirty area where Cameron Warren would give him the puck, and he generated a lot there from inside the slot area.
Where their growth is,
as we've seen there, and so many players.
A really good player.
When you watch this, and you've seen this over the years, you've been around Central Scouting, you've been around working with Barry before. I'm sure it's nice to see the players, as I said, they make that progression. But then, what are you looking for now over the next few months, and how they make that jump? I'm sure into training.
I think we're officially hitting.
So these boys.
If he drops below 10 here, I think
I'm sure you'll ask every one of them.
Charlie Marotta is
a guy this summer. A lot of them will be just getting stronger.
Definitely somebody who I
because you're going from playing against 15 and 16-year-olds to 16, 17, 18, and 19 and 20 year olds next year. So it's a big step. And these years too, the U15, U16 years, I always find are some of the biggest developmental years for these kids. You can get a kid that might grow 2-3 inches
let's say
put on 10 pounds. That makes a big difference when you make that step up.
London, I don't know.
It's certainly very interesting to see the progression of the players, and even coming into the Ontario Hockey League as 16-year-olds, and then grow up, and next thing you know, they're 19, 20-year-olds, and see the maturity factor, and it's certainly very interesting to see.
I hear my dogs
in
the background.
Right now tonight is congratulations to the minor hockey coaches, the families that have helped these players and their journey through minor hockey and working their way to being chosen in the Ontario Hockey League. And we'll talk about this tonight. We'll talk about this tomorrow as well. That whether you're chosen in the first round, 15th round, anywhere in between, or maybe your name isn't called tonight, there's still lots happening in their hockey journey. The Flint Firebirds have the 8th overall choice, and let's go to Commissioner Brian Crawford.
With the 8th overall pick in the 2025 OHL Priority Selection, the Flint Firebirds select forward Charlie Marotta from the Don Mills Flyers.
The Don Mills Flyers checking in here, and once again, we've got ourselves forward Charlie Marotta.
That's an interesting pick there. Being a guy from Michigan, obviously,
to the Flint Firebirds,
I'm excited.
Fans are looking to see you go up and down the wing.
I think this is a perfect fit. Honestly, I'm surprised that they were able to get a talent like Charlie
you watch this kid go through the neutral zone, and
this is a franchise-changing player
in the background, and behind him, he's got great speed.
Really
he's probably one of the smoothest skaters in the draft.
Super dynamic. I think he's the best skater in this draft.
His lineman's better. He was more of a disher, more of a playmaker than a scorer. He did score this year, obviously, as well. But it was fun to watch him come off the rush and hit guys, in full stride, or whether he turns back and makes nice plays. Just a pure, gifted, skilled player that has a lot to bring to our
that kind of skill level. And did you find
with some of these players, well, as much as they may be listed as a winger, listed as a center,
but I think he's even more dynamic.
Looking to see can they play,
so this is
all over the ice. When I say all over, of course, very structured, but at the same time, be willing to play wherever necessary and do whatever's necessary.
Yeah, because moving forward, there's only
is my early favorite
right
now.
Players in minor hockey play center.
Not
that's
due to
that's
how
the
I
way
rank
it is.
them,
You
but
put your
just
best
in
kid at
terms of
center
the
ice. But
fit
moving
style,
forward, there's only 4
really
spots
hits
on a team
home
next year that are centermen.
He'll be
A lot
loved
of those guys
he'll
are
be loved there.
18, 19-year-olds, and so some of these younger guys are going to have to learn to play the wing. And that being said, some guys will move to the wing, and coaches will find out, well, this kid makes a better winger actually than does a centerman. Sometimes it's a blessing in disguise. But yeah, definitely look for that when we're evaluating these players to see how versatile these kids are. Can they play their off wing? Can they play the middle? Because be able to play your off wing does take a lot of skill. Not a lot of kids can do that.
And do you find indeed that sort of jumps out to you when you're at some of those games, seeing that left shot playing the right wing or vice versa, that you kind of make a little extra note or check a little extra box on that?
Oh yeah, for sure.
So the
and then
on
some of
is
these forwards that
updated.
play
We got
the
Rice and Edgar.
That's another thing they look for. You got to have the composure back there, because I know as a forward when I played and I never got put back on the fence, I panicked because on the last line of defense. But these kids nowadays are so cool, calm, and collective with the skill set they have that they make those plays look easy at times.
And certainly, and that's the thing we see coming out of minor hockey. I always think of the OHL as like an all-star team of minor hockey. The best players coming from minor hockey and being able to be flexible. You were that power play, penalty kill
Rice and
guy,
Edgar here,
wherever, maybe you were the number one offensive guy in your team, but coming into the O, you might be asked to do more penalty killing. You might be able to be in a shutdown role, play a physical role, and I'm sure if you show that early on in your game and learn those skills, and showing you're also willing to learn, I'm sure that goes.
I don't think they really have the dynamism they're
looking
for, though, and I think Rice and Edgar fits really well here in Kingston.
As a kid coming in, you got to prove to your coach that I'm willing to kill penalties, I'm willing to block shots, I'm willing to do whatever it takes really to get in the lineup and play on a consistent basis. Because like you say, these kids are coming from their minor hockey team where they're the star. Now they're going to have to probably take a less of a role in their first year. It's just the way the progression goes. And how mentally strong are you to be able to do that? To go from playing every opportunity to playing 4 or 5 shifts a period compared to what you're used to playing.
We're up to the number 9 pick in the OHL priority selection. Commissioner Crawford has the choice of the Kingston Frontenacs.
Looks like the pick's going to go here. We'll see where.
With the 9th overall pick in the 2025 OHL priority selection, the Kingston Frontenacs select forward Alex Kuhlman from the Don Mills Flyers.
Once again, Don Mills, we're hearing
Alex Kuhlman.
Alex Kuhlman is the
interesting. Okay, another guy I forgot about with bloodlines. Nikolai Kuhlman.
Yeah, big,
plays for the
at 6'2", 171 pounds. He's a big boy and hard to contain.
Plays for the Don Mills Flyers.
Not just
there was some
get picked here. He's got the hockey
thought
talent,
that this kid might go
skills,
higher than
the hockey bloodlines. He comes from a good hockey family as well. But he's a kid that did all the little things right. This Don Mills team was very well coached.
You're telling me that they wouldn't want Rice and Edgar over.
I don't want to say, I say
Alex
structured, but
Kuhlman.
they did all the little things.
Alex
chipping pucks in, chipping pucks out, taking care of the puck in the right situation.
Big frame, that's great,
and he was one of those guys that was definitely a leader by example. We're going to hear a lot of Don Mills guys
GTHL stats weren't
over the next
overly
day and a half
impressive
here,
based on what I
but
read
he was
today.
definitely one of the go-to guys for that hockey team.
If the name
Very
Kuhlman sounds familiar,
pick
indeed,
there. A lot
Nikolai
of better
Kuhlman, his father,
talent,
played 10 seasons in the National Hockey League, almost
this is an
upwards of
opportunity here.
700 games
Niagara,
in the OHL.
another
We talk about the
elite
bloodlines, and
talent could fall in their
sometimes it's
laps
how
here.
they
They
learn
already
to
have
be,
guys
and it's
like
too
Ryan
young to
Rubrick.
say this, but
They
they
got
learn how to be a pro. They learn how to be a hockey player, of how to approach leading into the game, and how to carry yourself even around the rink and around your teammates.
Yeah, all that stuff, preparation for events, preparation for game, knowing how to handle, controversy, there's going to be, or things when things aren't going well, you've got dad to lean on that has been there, done that, not everything, he played in the NHL, I'm sure
maybe they go off the board a little bit.
for him
Another guy who I didn't mention earlier, who I think is a really good sleeper pick, is Johnny McLaughlin.
In
terms of ability,
Played for the New York Islanders, played for the Toronto Maple Leafs as well.
Draft,
and now we're moving on. We've got the next choice coming in here, and let's
had
go
a lot
to
of
OHL Commissioner
injury
Brian
history
Crawford.
already for being such a young player. So we'll see what happens here, but Niagara's about to go on the clock.
With the 10th overall pick in the 2025 OHL Priority Selection, the Niagara Ice Dogs select forward Ryerson Edgar from the York Simcoe Express.
First time tonight, we hear from the York Simcoe Express. Ryerson Edgar, the choice here, a centerman. You see 33 goals in 32 games on the season as well, and a player that I'm sure the Niagara Ice Dogs and their fans excited to have in the lineup.
Just love this kid's game, his tenacity. I think
he's got skill, and
he's kind of a secret.
And a lot of these kids nowadays
I don't want to
play
say
the game and they make it look easy. You know, he was a leader on his team on the ice.
He can take a lot of damage.
Obviously, was the captain as
well.
well.
He's got a great skating ability.
He does a lot of good things for his team.
Really capable.
He's got that change of gears that he just showed there.
Hard to get off the puck.
He was able to walk around defensemen at the times when they looked like they're standing still. He was just
really good selection.
Everything he did was effortless. These kids spend so much time nowadays on their skating and on their skill development that the game comes to them very easy and looks very easy to them at times.
I think Niagara is
he's one player that
come out here in the next couple years.
He went. So the York Simcoe,
despite their ownership, they might be very
successful. He was one leading the way for sure.
And I'm sure you said sometimes it looks like things come easy, but you realize that's not easy to do.
No, some of the things that they pull off, I know if I would have tried those when I was 17 or 18 years old, I would have fumbled my way through it and not had a chance to make those plays. But yeah, they definitely work hard at their craft. These kids put in a lot of time nowadays at the skill development, at the skating, at edge work, all this stuff that they realize is going to make them better hockey players. And then full marks.
Back towards where picks I think should fit. Kingston Harris is my best available right now. I've talked a lot about
him. Probably a real good chance, probably 100%.
At least on the live stream here, but
if I tried doing some of the
Kingston Harris is a guy who
the Sudbury Wolves have the 11th overall choice. Here is Commissioner Brian Crawford.
In the OHL area.
With the 11th overall pick in the 2025 OHL Priority Selection, the Sudbury Wolves select forward Braden Bennett from the Toronto Titans.
Braden Bennett from the Toronto Titans, the choice here. Another centerman.
There's a guy in here in the chat. I don't know if he's still in here, but he was really excited for Braden Bennett.
Than some of the other guys
coming here at 11
this season, but now we're seeing Braden
good
Bennett
pick there, I think.
chosen by the
fits really well. Got a very Sudbury
mindset. Braden had a great start
they like
to the
guys
season.
that are
I
tenacious
felt
and
bad
got
for
some
Braden.
intensity.
I don't think he played another game after January.
I mean, I
would
have considered him. This would have probably been the high end.
This kid's a competitor and a gamer and plays the game hard and heavy and does a lot of good things. His team definitely missed him in the second half of the season.
He brings a lot to the table. That Toronto Titans
he's one of those players that has the skill.
He's a very impactful
when
player.
Playoff time gets going, they really could have used him because he does everything the right way. He goes hard. He'll take the body. He really stood out and he works. So yeah, it was a tough break for him in the second half of the season.
In a world that's lacking very
Sudbury saw enough in him
a few guys that are getting drafted really early in this draft just because of the lack of certainty with
how much hockey is it where it's obviously you like to see players, you want them to stay healthy, but knowing that hard work they've put in, where players they're probably disappointed, they're frustrated, but knowing that hard work you put in is still going to pay off.
Good opportunity for him to develop.
It was obviously recognized. A lot of teams would have loved to see him in the second half.
Got a comment here, Sharon says at least one Michigan team can draft.
To definitely cement his spot in the draft, and he was one of those kids that I love. I keep saying that I love the kids that play the game hard and kind of an old school type of player, and that's what Braden definitely was.
The Erie Otters have choice number 12 at the 2025 OHL Priority Selection. Here is OHL Commissioner Brian Crawford.
With the 12th overall pick in the 2025 OHL Priority Selection, the Erie Otters select forward Jake Murray from the Huron-Perth Lakers.
First time we're hearing from Huron-Perth this evening. There is Jake Murray over the course of the season. It's 28 games, 14 goals.
Jake Murray's a guy who I think could have been in the second round. Good player. I don't know that I saw him this high personally,
as we see as 15 and 16-year-olds.
Everybody has their own development opportunities and where they're going. I think he had a very good year.
He's going to be at 18 years old.
Big kid, 6'2", 180 pounds.
He's got the skating and the size now, but
I think his skating
as he fills out and moving forward, he's going to be
a handful. He's got a lot of frame to still build on.
that Huron-Perth team that
definitely a project pick there.
Ended up winning the silver stick.
I don't think he impacts the OHL immediately, but I think he's somebody.
And he was one of their go-to guys. They were a fun team to watch. They were
some
very
weight room
well coached,
opportunities.
and they played.
He might be somebody that grows.
Is out by Stratford, so probably had a lot of guys. That,
interesting play there. I wonder if
small
they're going to maybe angle for
farm type areas
going into the second or third round, depending on what they're able to do and what Americans go.
They played and they showed up and competed and battled, and it was
my overall
probably
thoughts on it.
Not a lot of people would have thought that they would have won the silver stick at the beginning of the year, but when they did, and actually after
we got 2 rounds after this, so we might be going for a full 3 hours or so.
How hard they played the game. They were
again, for those that have stayed on, really appreciate it, guys.
Canadians.
This is awesome.
In that, so obviously having success, and I'm sure it's interesting to see tournaments when you have that crossover. Huron-Perth against junior Canadians, and how the players, really step up their game, for example, in some of those big matchups.
Really appreciate it.
It is interesting. That's why we love going to tournaments, because you get to see, the top GTHL team against the top.
Again, if you guys have any questions, feel free to leave them on the side chat.
An Ottawa team.
It's
good because during league
draft.
play, you get used to watching them play all the time against the same team. So when you get to see them play another strong team against another strong team, those are always matchups that, and the 2 top teams in the province were playing from different leagues. Those were always games that were the stands were filled with scouts. That's for sure.
We are at choice number 13 in this OHL priority selection. The Saginaw Spirit are on the clock. Here's the commissioner.
With the 13th overall pick in the 2025 OHL priority selection, the Saginaw Spirit select
Saginaw's going to select
forward
here.
Ryan Hanrahan from the Mississauga Reps.
The Saginaw Spirit
Ryan
choosing
Hanrahan.
Ryan Hanrahan here, as you see,
Very
coming
odd
on
pick
and representing the Mississauga Reps this past season. And Daryl, what can you tell us?
I've watched him.
Ryan's a
I don't know that I saw
every time he's on the ice, you notice him. He's
personally.
always moving his feet. He's always generating,
see him
putting
as a good
pressure on the
player.
opposition.
I think he's somebody who probably
Struggled
will
a
play in
little
the
bit, as
OHL
you see,
someday.
with injuries this year. He had a couple. He didn't play a lot of games. He was only 23 on the stats there, but
I
a
honestly
kid
thought
that
first
a lot
year,
of teams really liked, and because of the way he played the game, he was a driving force on that Reps team.
Interesting player there.
So yeah, he was one of those players that you knew. Same thing, he competed. He worked. He moved his feet all the time, and I think teams are really intrigued with him because he's 5'11", but he's only 133 pounds. So imagine where this kid's going to go when he starts to get a little stronger, when he starts to fill out.
Not a bad player by any means.
I really liked as well, and because I think his ceiling is.
Other guys could have been.
And that's the thing. We're dealing with 15-year-olds into 16-year-olds, and they grow. There's some that have the growth spurt at 12, it seems like, and some have the growth spurt at 16 and 17. And sure, that's the unpredictability factor in these players knowing that they're still such young players.
Well, that's it exactly. He's 135, 140 pounds now, and probably doing everything in his power to put on weight. But when you get to be 45, you're doing everything in your power to take off weight. And I was in the same situation he was when I was 15, 16. I couldn't put it on, no matter how hard I worked out or how much you try to eat and try and build. Some kids just do it later in life. So I think with Ryan, it's going to happen. It's going to come. But he's got the game. He's got the skill. He's got the compete. He's got the hockey sense. He's got a lot of things going for him. So yeah, it's a good pick there by Dave Trinkle and his staff.
And when you talk about guys who compete, and I'm sure you're looking late in those games as well, and down by 1, and that guy doing everything to tie the hockey game up.
Yeah, and he was on the ice. He played a lot for that Reps team. So he was on the ice, whether they were up a goal, down a goal. He was trying to protect leads. He was trying to get that tying goal or that winning goal. So definitely a player that the Reps team relied on, and he was a real good player for them this year.
We're up to the 14th choice. The
Brampton
Steelheads
people can hear me better now
with that one. Brampton will have back-to-back choices here in this opening round of the OHL priority selection, their own plus a league-issued compensatory pick as
38,
well.
You're still in here, man. That's awesome.
Brampton
Good to see that.
For the 14th
men or women,
and 15th choices. You see the graphics there. That's why you're seeing the fact that the Steelheads are on the clock now and are also the next one. So for the first choice of the back-to-back for the Steelheads, here is Commissioner Brian Crawford.
I think you're starting to get into the territory where Kingston
With the
Harris
14th overall
is
pick in the
to fall.
2025 OHL priority selection, the Brampton Steelheads select defenseman Peter Green from the Don Mills Flyers. The 14th overall pick in the
Back to Don
Peter
Mills
Green.
and Daryl, I believe the first
defenseman
off
chosen
here.
Like I said, Peter Green going for.
This is definitely the first defenseman, and
his opportunity to watch him play. He's a pretty skilled player.
Defenseman.
Definitely somebody I thought was going to be a first rounder. I think I actually had him at 14.
Doesn't panic with the puck. You love to see those defensemen.
Yeah, I did.
The puck.
14.
There's no panic point in their game. He sees the ice so well. Moves it up the ice well.
But
so his team missed him.
Very talented player in his own right. Great skater.
OHL Cup. He didn't play into the quarterfinals and the semifinals and the finals. So I think possibly a different story if he plays in that
just
final.
said it, but he's got a very low panic threshold. He's very calm.
He ran their power play all year.
Really handles his business really well, and he's got a very mature game.
When they needed offense and when they needed defense as well.
Good selection there by
definitely an intriguing prospect
by the Steelheads.
For the
I think there's a lot to like there.
Steelhead.
Absolutely, it just seems like a guy just looking there. Just sees the ice well.
And they got back-to-back picks here, so they'll probably go forward.
Make that first pass out of his own zone. And
likely.
Those guys obviously get involved in the offense,
likely going to be
make his teammates better as well.
Yeah, a right shot defenseman as well. We all know how teams covet right shot defensemen. But yeah, he was the ability to pick the right spots to join. He
should be curious to see what happens here. I really would like Jeremy Friedman as well here, or Keith Nardahl, either one.
Get up to my forwards and I follow behind, and I'll pick up some of the secondary stuff maybe. But he could his decision making on the offensive blue line when it came to power play,
play on a good team, play with guys like Porter Martone eventually.
His decision making was really good as well. So he's going to be
find an opportunity for him there. I think he fits really well with what they're trying to build in Brampton. So,
for sure.
wouldn't mind that
for Brampton
selection
Steelheads fans. For that, the Steelheads are on the clock as well with the 15th overall choice, so we'll hear from them in a moment as well. You're watching the 2025 OHL Priority Selection presented by Real Canadian Superstore. Thanks for joining us across the network. I'm Terry Doyle alongside Daryl Woodley in our Cogeco headquarters here, bringing you the exciting times. And we say it's like graduation day for minor hockey into the OHL for so many of these players, and great times for them, their families, coaches, teammates, you name it. We'll see video surfacing over the next 24 to 48 hours of players hearing their names called and their teammates
44,
celebrating with them.
Really
we saw
appreciate
last
it.
year
Again,
was
if you haven't done
the
so
London
already,
Knights players were celebrating because the billet was chosen, and they were all cheering him
really
on.
appreciate you guys being on here. And
Again,
if you're watching on recording,
supporting each other, and I know
if you miss out on the chat, it's fine. Feel free to leave a comment below with your reactions
in the opening
and thoughts.
Round, maybe one of the
who
top
you thought the early winners of this draft are.
He's just as excited to see his teammates, and it's like, okay, doing an interview,
free to leave
here
them
on the show, for example.
Excited to hear from you guys.
Supporting my teammates, and that's what you love to see, and just how they bring everything together, and that's what's happening here.
Surprised it's taking so long
2025 OHL Priority Selection continues here right across the network on this Friday evening. Thanks for making this a part of your Friday evening. Of course, for a lot of people, it's been circled on the calendar for an extended period of time. The Brampton Steelheads are on the clock. They will make the next choice in a moment. They do have back-to-back choices here in this opening round. As I said, their own plus a league-issued compensatory pick. So that's why they have the two choices. We have three of those compensatory picks over the course of this opening round. So we'll be bringing those as they come in over the course of time. As you notice, we continued right along, and the Brampton Steelheads are on the clock with the 15th pick. And here is Commissioner Brian Crawford.
The second
with the 15th overall pick in the 2025 OHL Priority Selection, the Brampton Steelheads select forward Keaton Ardaugh from the Toronto Junior Canadiens.
Selection there.
Keaton Ardaugh, the choice here out of the Toronto Junior Canadiens, and coming to Hampton, Ontario, you see 24 goals, 21 assists on the season in his 28 games played, and now Daryl, another choice here by the Steelheads.
Another one of those junior Canadian forwards that was
another good player.
They were
stabby picks here. I mean, obviously Brampton seems to be
you look at the OHL
really
Cup
smart about their selections. Both really solid picks.
Depth up front, you could shut down Warren on one night,
but then
you had
good for them to really reap the opportunity to have both those picks.
And
I think we're reaching a territory here where
he might be one of the best goal scorers.
There's some slippage here for
Mr. When he gets that puck on his stick in the slot area in the scoring area, not many times.
Watching him play, I don't see him being outside of this first round at all. I think he's kind of one of the last few guys I have on the list here that
some players would probably love to be that guy
I think it's very hard to see them
on a deeper team
be anything other than a first rounder
as you'd like because of the depth. And I'm sure that's the key to watch guys work with each other, not be selfish, for lack of a better term, and be
maybe not as valued
maybe you're
as he
seeing
should
second
be.
power
I
play a
think
couple times
to
because
me,
you've
has
got
a
3
lot
other
of high
guys in
end
front of
skill.
you tonight, but maybe tomorrow you're getting that first power play.
Watched a couple
I've got to
shifts
think
in
it's
his
nice to see
man where
those
he's
guys
just
willing to play whatever
flat
role
out dominant in
necessary.
the offensive zone with stick handling, getting out of situations you would just never expect him
watching
to.
body language.
And he's not the biggest guy in the world, but he's super smart, great hands, super elusive.
We're always watching these kids.
Both of those guys to me scream high end, so I think they're going to go before the end of this first year. After this, the top 10, I thought for sure would go in the first round.
Yes, definitely. But they had
the rest here, I'm looking at Cooper Okaiwa and Landon Jackman. Both guys, I think, had their own reasons for being as high as they do on my board, but
congratulations to Keaton Yard,
some
the
may
choice there of the
see their
Brampton
flaws and
Steelheads.
think that they
At
may
number
go in the
15,
second
the
round.
Oshawa
So
Generals are
it just
on the
depends
clock
on
with
what
the 16th
you're framing,
overall
what you're
choice. Let's go
looking
to
at.
the
But we're going to see the next pick here with the Oshawa Generals.
With the 16th
so let's see
overall
what they
pick
select.
in the 2025 OHL Priority Selection, the Oshawa Generals select forward Sam Roberts from the Toronto Junior Canadiens.
Junior Canadians right back at it again. Sam Roberts, the choice here. Another forward.
Sam Roberts. Another guy with bloodlines. Gary Roberts' son.
The Toronto area might remember
Gary Roberts obviously played a long career in the National Hockey League. Clear bloodline pick here for Oshawa.
Similar to his dad.
Able to stay close to home too, which is it's not too bad for him.
Sam's no different. Sam's got a great hockey IQ.
So good for him. A really smart, safe player. I think one of the safer floors in this draft. Obviously, I think at a bare minimum, he's going to be a very effective PKer.
What are we at? 16 picks.
At his best, I think he could be a really high-end player. It just depends on
the better he played, and that's
what kind of player, what kind of work he does in the weight room. Obviously, his dad's going to be on him religiously to be a pretty fit guy, considering he was one of the fittest in the National Hockey League when he played. I would expect Sam to have the same kind of work ethic and mentality.
When they really elevate their game in championships.
Somebody who I think could, obviously coming to the OHL, he's probably
it's one thing you think, okay, it's Gary Roberts' son.
Somebody who makes an impact, but over time, I think, give him time in his 18, 19-year-old years.
Exactly, and he does cover.
He'll be a force. And just physically, I think he'll be one of the stronger players coming out of the draft.
Know that he's going to come in good shape because his dad runs all kind of
it should be interesting there. But Sam's selection there, I think he was somebody who could have snuck into the first round just because of pedigree and bloodlines. But in terms of talent,
a player that I really loved watching because he went up and down his wing and did all the little things.
I think he could have been anywhere from
we talked about
15
bloodlines.
to
We talked
35.
about being the son of a pro. You've seen
in watching him play, I think he's super smart. He's a safe player. He's good all around. I think he's one of the more defensively aware prospects in this draft.
And how key is it too when a player like that, not only obviously the bloodlines, but because of some of the things his father involved in, he's seen so many of these other players come through, probably
just has a ton of ability and good skill.
And got a chance to see how they carry themselves. And it's one thing to see the age gap, when your father, not knowing, obviously, you weren't around when he played, but seeing a Stamkos come through the program and things like that, I'm sure that's a big factor as well. It's not the bloodlines, but it's similar idea.
Yeah, it's the knowledge of what it takes, right? So his dad would be able to pass that on. He had, all the conditioning skates, and his dad was big in the Toronto area with training. So like you say, I'm sure a lot of the top kids in Toronto over the last, I think it's been probably 10 years, would have been through there. So Sam probably has seen and met a lot of these kids from the Toronto area that have been through the program.
As well.
Probably his whole life that program's been going on. I mean, you go back to the Stamkoses and players like that, and seeing that. So it's very interesting to see, and just being around the game, being around so many people who have success in the game, and of course, many players that have come through the Ontario Hockey League. And now Sam Roberts out of the Junior Canadians will get a chance with the Oshawa Generals. He was the 16th choice overall in this 2025 OHL
They're kind of the
selection.
perplexing
Kingston
thing here. So they got a real opportunity here to get some guys
opening round. They are on the clock as we continue on. I want to make a quick note here, Daryl, before we get to Kingston. Of course, it's a bittersweet time for the Frontenacs with, of course, Dick Cherry, who traditionally always made the first round choice for the Kingston Frontenacs. We lost Dick Cherry a little while ago. You saw him around the rinks, I'm sure, over the years, was a very familiar face.
Yeah, Dick had been around for a long time and been a face of that franchise and that scouting staff. It's as you know, the scouting community is a small community. Everyone knows everyone, and Dick was one that could always tell stories, and it doesn't matter where you were, he was one that could always make you laugh and make you smile. Talking to some of the scouts that worked with him, some of the stories that he had that I can't probably repeat on air. That some of the stuff that they went through and some of the stories he used to tell were comical.
Yeah, certainly we pass along our thoughts to the Frontenacs organization, obviously losing Dick Cherry over the last couple months, and now, of course, the first OHL priority selection without him, as he does traditionally make the first round choice. So we send our thoughts out to the team there in Kingston, and the Frontenacs are all set to go with the 17th overall choice. Back to OHL Commissioner Brian Crawford.
With the 17th overall pick in the 2025 OHL priority selection, the Kingston Frontenacs select defenseman Matthew Henderson from the Huron-Perth Lakers.
Yeah, Matthew
Henderson. We hear from the Huron-Perth Lakers, Matthew Henderson, as they go to the blue line here, and the choice of the Kingston Frontenacs.
They obviously won the Alliance this year.
Smooth is kind of the best way to describe Matthew. He's a smooth skating defenseman back there.
I didn't have him in my top 25. I had him probably going in the second or third round again.
Simple is better.
Some questionable decisions, I think, from your drafting in Kingston. Don't know if I love what they've done so far. That being said, I think Henderson is somebody who might have a little bit more of an impact than Alex Kuhlman.
He was the anchor on that back end, and they had a good back end.
Somebody who's a little bit more physical
from that back end called this.
He's got some overall game too. I think he's more of a bottom pairing guy.
So
a top pairing guy, in the OHL, he might find himself in maybe the second pairing somewhere.
But round, and now Matthew Henderson, the choice here.
It's hard to say where he's going to be as a pro. I don't know if he's got an NHL upside.
OHL priority selection. The
very
very
has to be done. He's got years to do it. So
there on the clock.
I'm looking at him in his current package and what he has.
Continue on. Terry Doyle, Daryl Woodley
here right now.
In our Cogeco headquarters here, bringing you the OHL priority selection. A little bit of a change of venue, a little bit of a different look for us here this year, but we're glad to have you along with us here. The
good player nonetheless, somebody who definitely be effective at the OHL level
as well. And
hence why I think he got picked so early.
At Cogeco headquarters to bring you the priority selection.
There's some growth to be done here. He's definitely another project player that you need to look at and really trust your development staff.
With the 18th overall pick in the 2025 OHL priority selection,
the
Barrie Colts select forward Alexander Sementsov from the Halton Hurricanes.
They take Alexander Sementsov,
so up the highway from
Russian kid, younger player in this draft.
Not very long trip, depending on traffic.
Incredibly elusive,
Sementsov.
Great skater, typical kind of Russian player that you would see. Somebody who's always going to have quality skating, very creative.
In spots and put it in areas.
This is a great pick. I mean, this is like got shades of Edward Chalet. It's got shades of some of the other explosive players that Barrie's had over the years. Sementsov is going to be somebody
this kid's got that
very quickly
and he made
adjusts to the OHL from an offensive perspective. The defensive game has a little bit, to be desired, which is why he's not super high end. But you see the moves there. I mean, just an unbelievable quality player. Somebody who is not afraid to score goals and not afraid to be creative.
Just simple. Like he moves the puck.
He just makes his opportunities when he can. Obviously, having 90+ points this year. I had him at 17, and he goes at 18. So
score as well, but is definitely his strength.
But again, player that
fans are
going to really
the way he dishes the puck.
Yeah, huge numbers over the course of your 39 goals, 50 plus assists. We saw maybe not immediately, but coming on the screen just after he was chosen there.
There's going to be a lot of excitement around him.
You can put up those numbers.
I think it's going to be a really
unless you're playing like pickup hockey against you and I right now, if you're putting up those numbers in
North
AAA
America
hockey,
in 2
there's
years,
something going on that's in the right way.
Yeah, I played some.
Speaks a lot to what he's able to do
and
his motivations and what he's able to do in his professional career. And I think he's got the opportunity to light the world on fire if he puts his mind to it.
Understands how to
so really savvy pick there by Barrie, really smart selection.
Yeah, he was a fun player to watch, and those fans up in Barrie are going to really enjoy his creativity with the puck.
You mentioned the creativity, you mentioned dishing it, and sure, that's a case where making his teammates better, and then at some point probably knowing,
the best available here. We got Kingston Harris still sitting.
the opposition
Jeremy
figures it out.
Freeman's still
You're gonna
sitting,
pass, pass,
Cooper Pye was
pass,
still
and,
sitting, and Landon Jackman.
I think he had 37 goals as well.
All
So
of
he's
these
obviously got
guys, I
that
think,
in
are
his
guys
game
that,
as well. So
as of right now, are
like
good
I said,
value
he's a smart
picks.
kid that understands.
I don't know how Kingston Harris is going to fall out of the first round here. I really don't think he should. I don't think Freeman should either.
We'll continue with the
That being
opening round of
said,
this
though, if
OHL
they do
Priority
this
Selection presented by Real
starting to
Canadian
become skill
Superstore.
territory
Across
for
the
both of
network
them,
here on this Thursday evening, the Sioux Greyhounds have the 19th
should be fun to
overall
watch
pick,
and see what
and
happens here,
they're
though.
just
The
getting
Sioux
set to
have a
submit
lot
that
of
when they
good
do. The OHL
opportunities here
Commissioner
to
Brian
pick some
Crawford
really solid
will
players.
officially make the announcement.
The
Commissioner
guy
Crawford
I
making the first round
could be
announcements
picked
over
here
the course
is
of the
Braden
proceedings here, and then we'll
Lappalainen.
change it up. We'll hear from the teams
I think
directly
he fits a
in
lot
rounds
for what
2
they
and
want in
3
school.
in our proceedings here
we'll
this
see what they
evening. We
select
have
here, but I
the
think he's a guy
Greyhounds
they
at
might look at
19,
as
the
well.
Brantford Bulldogs at 20, Windsor at 21, Kitchener at 22, and London at 23. We mentioned there are some league-issued compensatory picks. That's why, of course, 20 teams in the OHL, 23 picks in the opening round. So that's why the numbers, if you're wondering, a little different from that standpoint. Commissioner Brian Crawford has the Sioux Greyhounds choice.
With the 19th overall pick and the 2025 OHL Priority Selection, the Sioux Greyhounds select forward Ryan Kaczynski from the Mid-Fairfield Junior Rangers.
Daryl, the Mid-Fairfield Junior Rangers. I need the geography lesson, please.
I believe the team is based out of Connecticut. Actually.
Brian Kaczynski. Okay.
There's a New York
interesting
kid
here.
that played in Connecticut, so with the residency rules, where it's where
not
he lives,
anybody I had
right?
really on the
So
radar. Obviously, this kid's
they're a
clearly going
solid
to commit.
program year after year down in the States.
I don't have notes on
he
him,
was,
if I'm being honest.
He was definitely the driving
I
force.
don't know much about him.
You know, he's got good size, he's got good skill.
Very shocking kind of pick there.
It's not a shot that he didn't have that he didn't like. He was shooting the puck from everywhere.
So that's a very off-the-board selection.
So he's just one of those players that the Sioux obviously really saw something that they loved him, and not
obviously the Mid-Fairfield Rangers are, they're a very good program. The kid's from New York.
He does a lot of really good things.
Listed at 6 foot and a half, 175-ish pounds.
I don't really have mentioned
coming into the OHL Priority Selection. And you mentioned just before we get to the next pick, just to clarify, of course, he lives in New York. Sayo set up New York, I believe, is what I saw. So New York is OHL versus, you said, the team's based in Connecticut, which would be Q territory.
Q territory, yeah. So that's the thing with some of these American teams is level the playing.
Another player that came from New York who obviously played in the OHL is Quentin Muskie. Obviously, known for his issues that he had with Sudbury this year.
And if they're territory area, then we've really got.
It's a long distance from Sioux to New York.
If an Ontario kid decided to go play in
long drive
for example,
they come to visit him. So
they're eligible, of course. For
but that being said, happy for the kid.
The Brantford Bulldogs are going to check in here in a moment with the 20th overall choice in this opening round. After round 19, we've got the Brantford Club coming up next. Of course, the Brantford Bulldogs among the teams remaining in the Ontario Hockey League playoffs. And
first American
the Barnes been rocking there, and Brantford expecting much more of that as the playoffs continue on. But now let's go to the Commissioner.
Next pick here for Brantford is going right now.
With the 20th overall pick and the 2025 OHL Priority Selection here, the Brantford Bulldogs select defenseman David Buckman from the Ottawa Valley Titans.
Yeah, David Buckman was playing along with
David Buckman, the selection here
with Caden McGregor, the first overall pick here.
So says a lot about David.
Interesting, he's from Vancouver, BC. Obviously,
quarterback back there on the power play.
The Ontario region for a couple of years in order to be eligible. Not common you see somebody from Vancouver that gets selected to the OHL.
The neutral zone, the offensive
zone,
the
Western League.
Aren't able to
as far as what David's got in his game,
he's
super
a
safe
skater. He does a lot of good things. Very
standard
good offensive instincts. It's one thing
there's nothing wrong with him. Obviously, he's a meat and potatoes kind of guy. Got some skill, obviously, too, though. Averaging over a point per game in the AHL, which is nothing to shake your head at.
Smart, heady
I don't know that I see like a power play one guy out of him. I think he's somebody who takes some time to adjust to the OHL,
but now resides in the families in Stittsville,
which is, of course,
the Ottawa area as well. The original board had BC, so I wanted to clarify that the hometown is Stittsville, Ontario. Looking at my notes that I have here, so indeed, for the factors, I'm sure somebody looking at the board that came on screen probably said, "Hold on a second, weren't you guys talking about residency a moment ago?" But Stittsville,
okay, they just
Ontario,
clarified
is his
Terry Doyle
hometown residency from that standpoint. So that's
residing in
just to
Stittsville,
clarify that.
Ontario,
I'm
which
thinking
apparently
somebody at
is near
home probably
Ottawa.
heard us talking a moment ago, and then wanted to
And
objection here. Hold on a
obviously must
second.
have
Was he
come
born
and
there?
moved there. And
I'm not sure. It did
that's
say
why he's open.
they originally said Vancouver. Just to
interesting pick
clarify,
there.
no matter what, it is Stittsville. Is where he's living.
Now I got Windsor here.
Based,
Windsor's
like
got.
We may have to get
they're picking at a lot of different players. I think there's a small opportunity here for Johnny McLaughlin to go off the board, being that he's from Sarnia Lambton, which isn't too far from Windsor. I think there's some interesting opportunities here for them to get some really solid players. Maybe they go the Little Caesars route, they go Landon Jack. They like their big frame players. They obviously have Ethan Belchetz there already. They've got Jack Nesbitt's another guy at 6'4" and 200 pounds. You add in a guy like Landon Jackson, that would make a lot of sense as well.
Went back to U16 hockey, so they're
I'll be curious to see who gets selected here. I think my early favorites right now are
London, all these tournaments that we get to see them in down here.
And Johnny McLaughlin, with a small chance that it could
probably
be
the 8-9 years before that they went back to U18. They didn't have a U16 program, so it's really nice now to be able to see them come down and compete against the best Toronto teams. And that the Ottawa Valley team had a great year. They ended up winning their league, came down, lost in the quarterfinals, I think, of the OHL Cup to JRC. I can't remember if it was the quarterfinals or semifinals. It all blends together after a while.
You've seen a lot of games this season.
I know when they lost to JRC and Warren won the game in overtime, but that was one of the better games I've seen all year. Was that JRC and Ottawa Valley game?
So certainly very exciting to see. And you're right, the Ottawa teams, they were in U18, 18U league before, and so you had players really not playing with their own age groups, and now playing at the U16 levels. Very important. Up next are the Windsor Spitfires with the 21st pick. They're on the clock. Commissioner Brian Crawford has the information.
With the 21st overall pick in the 2025 OHL priority selection, the Windsor Spitfires select forward John McLaughlin from the Lambton Junior Sting.
So John McLaughlin out of the Lambton
John
Junior
McLaughlin.
Sting.
Yeah, I was just talking about.
I'm sure we see a
again, you look here,
goals,
2 games, 2
Daryl, I'm sure
goals.
there's a story here.
Caught one of those games actually.
Here, yeah. John was
already playing at he played at the junior B level already this year, which is really impressive.
Had surgery, had it all fixed up, and hopefully is ready to go next year. But is also a player that played U16 last year and was arguably the best player on the U16 team last year. So I was really excited to watch this kid play and dominate against his own age group this year.
Daryl Woodley.
And then
wasn't really public info before Woodley just announced it. So I was curious to see what kind of player we were getting here. And
obviously, again,
John McLaughlin, in terms of skill and his upside, from the viewings I've gotten of him, he's a top 5 player.
What they saw of him,
big player, got a lot of injury issues. Gets to land in a wonderful development environment in Windsor Spitfires. Another savvy pick here, somebody who obviously look at him and what he's been able to bring.
The Lambton Junior Sting is Sarnia and the surrounding area.
Corona
is about 20
Add him
minutes
at 20,
south of
goes 21.
So you get an idea. We always bring a geography lesson over the draft as well.
I think he's somebody who
bring people in.
I have a lot of time for, and hopefully he heals up. And I think he'll be kind of the unknown quantity that will shock
we help you with some hockey knowledge and a little bit of
shock
geography
the rest of the
mixed in over the
OHL
course
in terms
of
of
the
where
OHL priority selection. So of course, out of the Sarnia area, going down the road,
really like that pick there.
The Windsor
I really
Spitfires
think
comes from that
that's a
Sarnia area as well. So
savvy pick
maybe a
there
little
by
familiarity from that standpoint as well. So Bill Bowler looking a little bit up the road to the Sarnia region for that pick.
Yeah, and I'm sure Bill's done his homework, and his staff always does.
The
homework
Kitchen
on
Rangers
stuff,
going here now.
What they saw at the beginning of the year, and
a lot of players that are really right at their grasp
over the course of the year. Well, his
if they want to go defenseman, Caden Bell is a really good value pick here.
Bill and his staff are
obviously you got Cameron Reed.
I really like what I saw last year too. He's a player that drives the offense for his team. He's a good sized kid.
Got a lot of time for him. I think goaltending wise are set with Mr. Ellsworth that they drafted last year.
I was looking forward to watching this year, but I'm going to look forward to watching him play in Windsor next year.
Somebody like Drew Roscoe could be somebody who would be selected here as well.
U15 scout. I've got to think some notes there.
I do think they're going defenseman
seeing that age
group. A weird feeling.
Not for this reason normally, but those reports probably
not any sort of like inclination as to why, but
he played U16 last year.
True, you're right.
I saw him play.
If they were to be selected, I think it's either Caden Bell or Stu Roscoe, and that would be another American select.
The same amount as well.
We'll see.
So yeah, no, you're right. If it's a kid that's playing U15 and has an injury at the beginning beginning of the year and you've only seen him for a couple of games. And so I know a lot of teams now also do have U15 scouts, and it's so kind of the way we're leaning as a hockey world.
It worked out well, obviously with the U16, playing U16 last year. We saw the video of McLaughlin, and of course that would have come from last season with his limited time this year. Congratulations, and certainly pass along the fact that obviously the hard work and the rehab and the recuperation is hopefully going to pay off as now a member of the Windsor Spitfires, and showing that I'm sure in your draft year you get down, something like that happens, but here's a story where someone who, while you think, oh, my draft year shot, here's an opportunity still right there.
Yeah, it's got feel-good story written all over it, doesn't it? I'm sure the kid's has put in the work throughout the course of this year after the surgery, and is rehabbing and is doing all the things that it's going to take. Hopefully, again, I don't know how long the surgery, how long he's going to be out, but I'm sure he'll do everything in his power if he can to get back into fine shape for training camp in September.
We have 2 picks remaining in the opening round of the 2025 OHL Priority Selection presented by Real Canadian Superstore. Thanks for joining us here. I'm Terry Doyle alongside Daryl Woodley. We've got our team working behind the scenes, both the OHL brass, the Your TV brass, bringing you the action
Still
here across the Cogeco
here.
Network, Ron Rogers TV, Eastlink, Cable 14 in Hamilton, CHL TV, social media throughout the OHL social channels, you name it. If you haven't been able to find us here on the OHL Priority Selection, we've given you lots of chances for people to join us here, whether you're joining us across Ontario, across the nation, into the United States, or
been on here the whole time.
I think you can pick us up
gotta do me
pretty
a
much
favor
everywhere
here.
now. We've given you the platform to be able to show us.
We come in here the last 20 minutes or so. Please welcome to the channel, and feel free to leave any comments in the chat on the right. Really excited to talk more about the different players after this draft and my overall thoughts. And if you guys stick around to the end, I'll be answering some more Q&A
in the
as well.
2025 OHL Priority Selection. The Kitchener Rangers
select
forward Kane Barch from the Huron-Perth Lakers.
Huron-Perth,
Kane
Barch, the selection here, of course, spent some time in Texas. There's a family
connection. So Kitchener has a history of taking guys out of the National Development Program. Yeah, I'm wondering here if Kane Barch is purposely gone to the development program to land here in Kitchener.
Birthplace maybe comes from.
But fascinating. I thought this would happen to Trevor Daly, but it's going to happen here to Kane Barch. I originally had Kane Barch ranked. I'm going to look right now, actually. I took him off my ranking, but I had
I'm a Boston Bruin fan, so he's got a little bit of Brad Marchand in him that he'll do whatever it takes to win. He's a competitor. He's fierce. He'll finish on the forecheck. He'll do whatever it takes on the back check, whether it's blocking shots, doing everything like that. But he's also got the skill that help his team make.
No, I actually had Kane Barch at 20. Okay, so I had Kane Barch pretty close here.
All year, he was just one of those players.
He's got bloodlines as well as Chris Barch played for the Dallas Stars.
Plays an honest game
for a couple years. Kane is somebody with a lot of offensive ability, very tough physical player. I think he's the most physically menacing player that's been drafted so far in terms of he allows his body and his frame to really dictate what he's able to do on the ice. Super offensively gifted. He's got a total package that really screams, I want to be a pro and I want to impact the program in a physical way.
The National Hockey League can pass on some of that wisdom.
It's a really stabby pick. If they can find a way to pull him and defect him from the National Development Program, I think it's a perfect landing spot for him.
2000. So a player who had a chance
definitely
to
a fan favorite
know the Ontario Hockey League as a member of the London Knights, and the London Knights are on the clock with the final choice of the opening round of this OHL Priority Selection. So
now we go to the penultimate organization, the peak of the Hunter
Commissioner Brian
dynasty,
Crawford standing by to make that choice in just a moment. Once the
London Knights going to do here?
Go in there and wrap up the opening round, and of course,
a lot of good
as we
picks
have this
here.
OHL priority selection going on, the Ontario Hockey League playoffs round 2 continuing on as well. The league goes quiet when it comes to on ice this evening with the draft going on, but right back at it with games tomorrow night. So you can certainly check them out at the rink, check them out on TV, check them out online. Certainly ways to check out the Ontario Hockey League playoffs as the race for the J. Ross Robertson Cup is well underway, and a chance to go to the Memorial Cup being hosted in Rimouski, Quebec this season. Who will come away as the Ontario Hockey League champions? We've got the final 8 in place right now in the Ontario Hockey League, and it's certainly going to be very interesting to see how it plays plays out over the next little while. The London Knights do have the 23rd overall choice. They will put a wrap on this first round. Been an interesting first round. We've seen a few defensemen. We've seen, of course, lots of forwards, lots of centers, which we normally see, especially through the opening round of the OHL priority selection. We see that most years, that it's dominated by players
the next pick
that are
after this
listed
goes
at
to
center
Kitchener.
or can play center,
They get
it seems.
picked from
And then as they
Peterborough,
get
so,
into training camp and get into the
another
Ontario
opportunity
Hockey
here
League,
for
look
them
to see
to
can they
swing
play
and get a
center,
really
can they play
talented player.
wing,
Maybe
and we'll
this
see
is
how
where
that
they
plays out.
go
Commissioner
ahead
Brian
and take a
Crawford
guy,
is standing by.
like a Kingston Harris, like a Cooper
With the
Okaiwa,
23rd
things like
overall and final pick of the first round of the 2025 OHL priority selection, the London Knights select forward Alex Campo from the Eastern Ontario Wild.
Alex Campo from the Eastern Ontario Wild, the choice here by the London Knights. The listings we have.
Surprised by this one, actually. I think they like him because he's big. He's 6'4", 170 pounds.
Player, a centerman.
Obviously, a big frame you got to work with.
Dominated center.
I don't know, though. I didn't think he was a first-round pick.
You could probably play anywhere in forward positions.
Sorry to the Campo family if they're listening,
he's
but
all
like,
of 6'4".
It's gonna be interesting to see what.
When you're 6'4" at 170,
That's a very odd pick for them in London. I'll be honest. I'm shocked here that Kingston Harris and Jeremy
gets
Freeman
6'4",
both outside the
210,
first round.
215 pounds. He's going to be a handful
Cooper
because
he's got the skill. Both guys, I think, are really capable players as well.
He's one of his best qualities would be his hockey sense and kind of the way he moves the puck and distributes the puck to his wingers and his teammates.
Are likely going to be gone by the second round outside of the last two.
Just a player that
Roscoe and
we
Kubelka
talk
could
about
be
ceiling
guys
and
that
potential
maybe
and stuff
fall
like
into
that.
day two.
I think this kid's
Potentially.
ceiling is the limit for this kid.
As far as day two, I'm not going to do a big stream for day two.
2025 OHL priority selection presented by Real Canadian Superstore right across the network. We're going to step aside, take a break. When we come back, we'll get set for round number 2 in a few moments. As you're watching it right across
11
the
rounds,
it's the 2025 OHL priority selection presented by Real Canadian Superstore.
Stream of that for another 7-8 hours isn't going to be something really interested in doing, to be honest. So, if you have any comments about any later round draft picks, anything like that, feel free to leave them in the chat here, and I'll talk about them. I'll reply back to any of the comments that you guys have with that. So, up to 49 people, which is awesome. Really appreciate you guys that have been on here. I think it's awesome that everybody's come in and been able to engage in the content. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them on the side, the chat on the side, or if you're watching a recording, feel free to leave them on the
And we have a coach that's in every one of our branches that supports an OHL team. And in years to come, these individuals
really appreciate you guys
that
that have stayed on and been on the whole time. Really appreciate everything you guys have done from a supportive perspective. And if you like the content, please subscribe. Looking forward to talking with more of you guys and we'll see what opportunities are out there to talk more about hockey. So we got 40 strong, which is awesome. I really appreciate you guys being on here and staying engaged in the content.
The place where the internet truly
gets
gets
you.
you.
That announced down to 38.
Like how sometimes you just have to search down every
round 2 is about to start
that
here
you
in
want
the
to stream
next
your
10 minutes or
shows,
so.
not pesky loading
Give
symbols.
me a couple minutes here. I'll be right
Or
back.
scroll to your
I'm
heart's
just going to get
content,
myself
because culture now
a
runs
snack,
at the
and
speed of
we'll
your
talk
feed.
about round 2 in a few minutes.
Our
Feel free to
internet
leave
was
your
made
questions
to
on the
flex,
side, okay?
to fit your online world. So if you're ready for an internet provider that finally feels like home, swing on by. We'll keep the door open. Oxio, born to be online.
It's the OHL priority selection presented by Real Canadian Superstore. There's the OHL Hockey Ops getting set to kick off round number 2 in a moment as we've got round 1 in the books. And let's send it over to Mark McKelvey.
Thank you very much, Terry. I'm pleased to be joined by Brock Chitteroni, selected 3rd overall by the Ottawa 67s. Brock, congratulations.
Thank you.
Tell me, how's this day gone for you so far?
It's absolutely unreal. It's the best experience I've had in my life so far. Growing up in a small town, never really thought it would come to being 3rd overall at the Ottawa 67s, but it's awesome.
Before we started this interview, you told me that after the interview, after a couple photos, it'll maybe hit you and start to feel real, but this is something you've been working towards for a long time. Tell us about the journey and specifically this season, how it went and how excited you were for the draft and everything that was leading up with it.
Yeah, the journey's been unreal. A lot of brothers I've made with along the way. I think just having fun and loving the game is the best part about it, and that's what I've been trying to do my whole life.
We always talk about family on a night like tonight, and your family, they know the OHL very well. Your brother Hudson currently plays for the Sudbury Wolves. You have another brother that has played some games with them, and your father, he spent 4 seasons there in Sudbury. That's not a Sudbury Wolves jersey. That's an Ottawa 67s jersey. What's that going to be like, kind of breaking the family tradition here?
Yeah, it's going to be nice. Going to be some nice games with Sudbury this year, playing against my brother, so it'll be fun.
What kind of advice have you got from your family along the way?
Just trying to have fun, keep the confidence high. It's a mental game, so just keep the mental game high. Make sure you're always focused and work hard.
You're going to a great spot, the nation's capital in Ottawa. They got a great fan base. What can fans expect from Brock Chitteroni?
I think fans can expect me to give 110% every day. Offensive zone.
All right, buddy, I'm back.
Back check
just had to get some pistachios in my system, and we're back at it again.
With a really elite speed, and always there producing for the team.
Well,
got an interview here with Brock Chitteroni.
I know that this has been a whirlwind of an experience, and you're going to hear from a lot of people, but on a day like today,
really
you're reflecting on the minor hockey journey and playing with so many great teammates.
Really well in our system.
How does that feel to
Definitely
see
somebody
of,
who
the
I can see going
against,
into next year being a pretty impactful player for them.
What's that like?
It's awesome. Seeing guys I've played with in summer hockey, played with a long time ago. It's been great to see them.
Again,
I'm hoping for my team.
Feel free to leave any comments on the side here.
Really rooting for them, so yeah.
Right, Brock,
any questions? I got time to answer
you
them.
know all
about the
OHL,
here for
part of the OHL.
Kitchener to make their first selection,
Brock
second round.
Heading to the Ottawa 67.
OHL related,
coming up.
Could be NHL prospect related. Anything you guys want to talk about, feel free to leave them on the side now. I'll talk about it.
Parking your moving truck is hard. Moving your internet? That's easy. With Cogeco's super reliable, super fast, fiber-powered internet.
Lunch or dinner is served at Tim's. It's meaty, cheesy, and quenchy.
Now that's a meal.
Exactly. Make a meal of it. Order the new Hat Trick Flatbread Pizza and Garlic Bread on the Tim's app.
Time for Tim's. Across the nation, the Canadian Hockey League is known for investing in moments like this. But did you know we're also investing in this? Through the CHL Scholarship Program, clubs award nearly $10 million each year. The CHL, developing tomorrow's leaders.
Being a volunteer at Your TV is a really unique experience. In a way, it's a community serving the community. You have people from all different backgrounds coming together, create community programming, and I think that's really amazing.
My OHL is where people can speak up because it's all about communication. And at the end of the day, it's just so important that lines of communication are open. An environment is fostered and one that players and staff feel as though, they're supported and that should they have any concerns, there's a very clear process in terms of, how to bring them forward.
For 50 years, we've been helping Canadians turn dreams into lasting.
If anybody else, again, if you guys are just joining, feel free to leave any comments in the chat below. I know the OHL just dismantled their chat.
Behind them.
So if you're in it, feel free to you want to chat. Feel free to comment on our.
The 2025 OHL Priority Selection continues here across the network. Presented by Real Canadian Superstore. I'm Terry Doyle. Daryl Woodley from OHL Central Scouting, Director of OHL Central Scouting, joining me here in studio. You and I have been doing this for a while, and it never gets old because we see these young faces and becoming part of the Ontario Hockey League family.
Oh, the excitement you see on the kids when they're getting interviewed, and the nervousness that probably being interviewed maybe for the first or second time in their life. But yeah, it's a fun day. It's a fun day. I remember back in the way back when I went through it, not to this magnitude, but it's a great day. And to move through this venue, and I've got a lot more room on the stage now, and I can extend my arms a little bit.
We got a bigger desk this year.
We do. I know, right? So it's a little more comfortable for us this year, and the temperature in here is beautiful.
Yeah, we set it up all right for you. It's custom made for Daryl Woodley.
I got my best available down below.
Is now getting set to be underway. The Kitchener Rangers have the #1 choice in round number 2.
Looks like they're going to start here. Should be interesting to see who goes here.
The first selection in the second round of the 2025 OHL Priority Selection.
Gives you a little idea what things are going to look like in round number 2 and round number 3. You're the voice of Barclay Branch,
another guy
VP
who's
of the
really
OHL, and then there was Ray Hollowell from the Kitchener Rangers making the selection there. Alexander Forrest out of the Oakville Rangers, the choice here. Daryl, what can you tell us about him?
Just a complete
overall,
defenseman.
in terms of
Can play the game any way you want. He's got the skill to play an elite skilled game, but don't let his size and stature fool you, because he's arguably one of the hardest hitting open ice defensemen that we saw this year. He loves
he was relatively smart. I just didn't think the offensive upside was there for him.
The scary thing about him, as he fills out and gets bigger and
he's
stronger,
able to do,
he's going to be even more of a force, and you can see why the Kitchener Rangers
the rest of this
selected him where they did.
Rest of his career here, I think there's some middle pairing upside for him in the OHL. Just
familiar with
to see more from him.
Maybe, I don't know.
I don't know if he's somebody who I would say
Rangers. Come on, Ranger. Yeah,
you definitely could have him on your second power play. He wouldn't do any damage. It's just a matter of
defensemen that
what you think is really impactful.
He can play the game any which way, and that's a big asset, because as you get into playoff hockey and when hockey gets a little heavier,
an important factor. So Alex Forrest goes there for Kitchener,
seeing some of these players in October and November, the games may not be as heavy because it's early on in the season, and maybe late in a tournament, for example, but then you get playoffs, you get into an OHL Cup or whatever, the later type of events. Do you find the games get a little bit heavier, and therefore you want to see, can the players adapt to that style of game?
Oh, 100%. That's why, when with myself, I like to try and get out and see every playoff series, at least one of the games in each series if I can, because it tells a story of how these kids are going to try and win a championship for your OHL team, and what kind of character they have in the big games. And as I said earlier, we love to see kids step their games up in the big game.
Kitchener Rangers had the top choice in round number 2. The Guelph Storm are on the clock, getting set to make what will be the 25th overall choice, as we showed you changing the format up a little bit here, where Commissioner Brian Crawford made the announcements of the opening round players, and then you are going to hear from someone representing each of the teams, whether it's general manager, whether it's the head scout, you name it. So now let's go to the announcement of the Guelph Storm.
With the 25th overall selection in the 2025 OHL priority selection, the Guelph Storm.
The Guelph Storm are proud to select Mark Pape from the Pittsburgh Pens Elite.
Mark Pape.
So we're going to Pittsburgh.
Another American
player
kid
who is well-traveled. Mark Pape, player coming out of the Pittsburgh
Penguins program.
Development
camp,
and you see, Daryl, certainly some pretty
had a really good development camp
when it comes to the offensive upside.
Talking about the National Development Program in the U.S.
Coming out of the States anyway, for sure.
He's
this kid,
obviously got an opportunity now here in Guelph
to watch. Every time he's on the ice, he knew he was going to
be able to show,
do something to wow you. He was fearless with the
wrong and not
puck.
selecting
He would
them.
try things that a lot of kids wouldn't.
I think this is a good pick.
The skill and
definitely
the shot
somebody
this kid
who
had
I would consider to be a pretty high-end player in the class. And
we're seeing some action there.
Good for him. He's definitely somebody who I have a lot of time for, and he'll develop well under George
Don Mills, which was a really good game. As you can see, the arena was packed there, and he was one of the better players on the ice there and scored a big goal. But that's one thing he did. He scored every time I saw him play, and I was down in the States to watch him play a couple of times, and he scored goal after goal after goal. It seems like every time I saw him play, he scored a goal. So I'm sure the Guelph Storm saw similar, or maybe they were watching the same games that I did. They liked what they saw him in as well and made the selection.
Player who was born in the Chicago area, spent some time in Ohio as well. That's why I said well-traveled, but has played the last few seasons with the Pittsburgh Penguins program. And going over his last 3 seasons, going back 2 years, 53 points in 56 games at 13U, 81 points in 60 games at 14U, 94 points in 62 games at 15U. And according to the numbers I have here, not afraid to mix it up a little bit as well, around 80 penalty minutes.
Yeah, he's one of those skilled guys that isn't afraid to get his nose dirty, and that's one of the things that you love to see, those skilled guys that will go to those dirty areas, because I can guarantee that's why he's got numbers like that, because you score goals in that slot area, and if you're not willing to go there like he is relentlessly, then you're not going to get those points and totals that he had.
And so, sticking up for yourself in those cases where you've got a defenseman trying to get you out of there and say, I'm not going to leave, and sometimes things get a little
Brian goes,
in front of the net from that standpoint, but that's where that really helps moving on to the next level and willing to mix things up. The Sarnia Sting are on the clock.
We got Sarnia Sting coming up now.
The 26th
we'll see what
choice.
What kind of pick we got going here.
With the 26th overall selection in the 2025 OHL priority selection, the Sarnia Sting.
Making our selection will be Director of Scouting Operations, Kyle Craner.
With the 26th overall selection of the 2025 OHL Priority Selection, the Sarnia Sting are proud to select Caden Coyne from the Chicago Mission.
Another American goes early.
Nice job there, Scott.
Caden Coyne,
selection there. Caden Coyne,
related to
choice,
Adrian
coming
Coyne,
out of
who's
Chicago
playing in the
Mission
National Hockey League.
Yeah, a big, right
big
shot
kid,
defenseman
6'3", 175 pounds.
Is a smooth skater.
You
know,
the Coyne family, everybody in the Coyne family knows how to skate. They all got great stamina. They're all going to play a lot of minutes for you. So,
third of his sons
personally,
to play for
not
the Mission
really
and play at
sold
an
on
elite
him
level.
as a
So not surprising
high-end
when,
player in the
when
OHL. I think he's a
Dylan Seek
decent
and his
player.
staff there saw what they liked, and you know, just he's
but
a complete
I think
player.
he could definitely
You know,
develop
he's
playing in the
real
USHL
good
a little bit
skater,
better than the
moves the
OHL.
puck
There's
well,
definitely
shoots
a
the puck
growth
well,
period that he's going to have to go through.
You know,
but
and thinks the game. You know, understands the game. You know, he's got a real good hockey sense.
Again, another
Coyne,
interesting
of course, his
selection
father
there.
played a long time in
by
the National Hockey
Sarnia
League,
Sting.
18 seasons,
Really like their first,
1,100 games
I really
in
like
the
the move we
NHL.
get,
And you mentioned certainly the the siblings certainly
their
very
first round
involved in the
pick here,
program
but
as well.
I don't know.
Brother Kyle,
It was a
Cameron,
very
and
odd
sister
selection
Alicia,
for them
also
here.
strong hockey players. So certainly
you look
talk
at
about
Sarnia,
hockey,
what
the
they did
bloodlines,
earlier
and we
with
talk about these
Brennan
players that have the
Lemmons, and then they
experience.
go and get
Born in
Caden
Scottsdale,
Coyne.
Arizona, of course, you know,
Just,
well traveled.
very odd
I'm sure it's
selections
very
from
interesting
Sarnia
to
so
see
far. I would say
as
Sarnia
these players
and,
move around the country, and that's a life skill in itself. New teammates,
Sarnia and,
getting a chance to learn new areas, new schools, new teammates, and being able to work in and be
Sioux
part of a
had
team.
some odd
Well,
selections
any
as
of
well.
these kids that are drafted today and going to play in our league next year are probably moving away from home. Moving away from their
Still
friends,
early,
moving away from
obviously,
their parents,
but
moving into billet homes. So it's all part of the process. And you know, if you've been a kid that's moved around a little bit and played for a couple of teams, then yeah, you've got to step up on some of your other teammates. But yeah, this is a kid that I'm excited to have in the league, and I'm excited for Sarnia to bring him on board because he's a big right shot defenseman that does a lot of really good things.
So Sarnia is certainly adding on the blue line, added a forward in the opening round,
Look at the Peterborough
and now
Pete's
on
now
the blue
again.
line, the choice there by the Sarnia Sting. Good to see the Sting making the choice
talent,
there.
man.
Is now the Peterborough
Still
Petes are
available.
set
Both in the
to be
defensive zone.
27th
Both
overall
defensively,
choice.
goaltenders are still available. Definitely can get some
With
forwards.
the 27th overall selection in the 2025 OHL Priority Selection, the Peterborough Petes.
Peterborough Petes are proud to select from the Niagara North Stars, Kieran Rayner.
General Manager Michael
Kieran
Oak making
Rayner
the
is a
choice.
solid
Kieran
pick.
Rayner coming out of the Niagara North Stars.
Again, who
around
played
the horseshoe
model
there
for 2
down
years
into
now.
the Niagara region, and
Very
now
solidly
a player
built
that,
kid. I think he's
Peterborough
bigger
can
than
add
175.
alongside Caden McGregor, the first overall pick.
I was just
like a muscle-bound guy
playing together. The
for being 15 years
I guess
old.
you
I
could
think
call
he's
him,
a
but,
really
and
impressive
again,
player in
another
terms of what he
electric
brings
kid.
in
This
his
kid,
overall
a
game.
goal a
Definitely a
game,
north-south guy.
for his team this year.
Fits
He was
really well. I
definitely
like
driving
the
force
move
for
for
his
Peterborough. I
offense.
think it's a
You know,
solid pickup.
when he was on his game and creating and using his speed.
There's a
probably
lot to
one
like
of the
with him.
skaters
I think he's
dynamically
definitely
in the
going to
draft.
be
When I say that, I
a
mean,
well-liked
quick starts,
player.
jumps in and out of holes real well. Just did everything for that team. I don't usually throw comparisons out, but drafting Brian Little 2 decades ago and watching Kieran play, there is some similarities that they both have.
I almost had Kieran Rayner actually. I had him probably about 32.
But does a lot of good things, and all he does.
So I had
is
him pretty
score
close
goals.
here,
So
but
that's, one thing I'm sure that the Petes
it should be
and the Petes
should be
fans
watching the game. I think he's somebody who
this kid is going to
got a lot of time for. Definitely going to be an OHL.
I know sometimes you say
player,
it's not fair to make comparisons, but I guess when you just see so many players over the years, probably it's hard not to. There were just some player just reminds you of a player you've seen over the years, and then you're hopeful they, of course, take the same strides.
Yeah, especially comparing.
Again, as always, feel free to leave any questions in the chat as well.
Junior hockey player and a great pro as well. But yeah, you see similarities that it's like,
different players
he was successful because he does this and you do the same thing. So
but it should be fun to watch, see what kind of players
give those comparisons from time to time. I don't think it's I don't do it all the time because there's a lot of really good hockey players out there that are their own players as well.
But I'm sure we also hear when you get a chance to talk to the players, they model their game after someone. They see someone on TV.
Again, if you are watching still
no
and you have not subscribed,
like
please do yourself a favor and please subscribe to the channel.
For example, and they want to model themselves after that. And so many players like that. So it is
in
natural.
regards
Sometimes
to
because the players are kind of looking
drafts
seeing
and
who
following
their style
prospects as
sort of
well.
mixes
So
in
please
with
do
as
yourself
well.
a favor. Please
The Owen
subscribe
Sound
to the
Attack have
channel
the
and
28th
really appreciate you
overall
guys.
choice. We'll get to them in a moment as they are on the clock for the next choice here. But yeah, it is interesting when I talk to players, even when they're in the OHL, they'll always say, yeah, I kind of try to pattern my game after this person. And if they're a goalie, it's always somebody, for a while it was Carey Price, for example, when you were a goaltender. And, no matter what, there's always someone they have from that standpoint. Hey, when I was growing up, it was Ray Bourque. Didn't work out too well for me. Worked out all right for him. Didn't work out as well for me. A team that's worked out pretty well, growing a new group coming in. They made the playoffs. That's
37 of you on here.
And they have
really
the
appreciate you guys
28th
being
overall
on
choice.
here. Let's see what Owen Sound does.
With the 28th overall selection in the 2025 OHL priority selection, the Owen Sound Attack.
With the 28th selection of the 2025 OHL priority selection, the Owen Sound Attack are proud to select Blake Munnings from the Quinte Red Devils.
Back to the blue line here. Blake
talked
Munnings
about
out of
Blake
Quinte.
Munnings earlier.
Of course, Quinte being Belleville and the
the
surrounding
only real
region.
super
And a team that's
impressive attribute of his, I think he's one of the more
OHL
fluid
priority
skaters in the
selection.
draft. He looks very natural skating.
And a lot, if you go back over the last 3-4
limited
years, a lot
offensive
of
upside.
I don't know
I
what's in
don't
the
see
water
a
out
lot
there, but
of
they produce
high-end
a lot
attributes
of
to
really
him
good
other than the
defensemen,
skating. But if you have the
Quinte
skating, that's
in
the
that
hardest
area.
thing to
And here's a
develop.
defenseman that
You
plays
can
a
see him here.
simple
Very good
game,
upright
moves the
stride,
puck well,
really good
defends
skating
really
ability,
well.
very explosive on both legs.
He's one of those guys
really
that
mobile,
you're
as you
definitely
can
going to
see
want to
there.
have on your team because he defends so
I just
well.
don't
And
see
he does a lot.
high-end
He does
game
so many
from him
things
other
well.
than
He's
the
a leader of
skating.
that
So
team.
you
Played
can
a
develop
ton
some
of
stick
minutes for
skills, work really hard with a
Quinte Red
development
Devils
coach.
team, but
Or skills coach. I think there's some
simple
real growth in
sometimes
this
is
game.
really good, and
Just
that's what
need
he
to
was.
see
He
what
plays a
he's able
simple
to
game,
do in
moves
terms
the
of
puck,
his
followed up
overall
the ice,
game
and he
and
defends so
mindset. I
well.
think
So
defensively he's pretty
a lot of
responsible.
real good things to like in
There's
Blake's
some work
game,
still to
and
be
these
done
are the
even
kind of
that
defensemen
way
too
as
that
well. But
teams are always looking to add.
a good
come
project
trade
pick as
deadline
well
time because
for
they are guys
the
that help you go over the
attack
top,
and
guys that can shut down those top
yeah,
kind
we'll
of
see what
lines, and
happens out of this.
that's
But
one thing that
a guy
Blake
who
has
was
in
pretty
his game.
highly thought
Attack
of.
General Manager Dale DeGray made the choice there
makes sense
of Blake Munnings, the defenseman coming out of the Quinte program. And, Quinte, a lot, it's that surrounding area, it's a rural area, a lot of hard work, brought up a lot of hard work and effort, and it really shows. And it's a very strong defenseman have come out of that region, and we'll see more to come. And congratulations to Blake Munnings, chosen there. The North Bay Battalion are up next with the 29th overall choice.
Got North Bay up now.
With the 29th overall selection in the 2025 OHL priority selection, the North Bay Battalion.
The North Bay Battalion is pleased to select from the Ottawa Valley Titans defenseman Carter Kunopaski.
Carter Kunopaski goes down. Another physical player as well. I compared him earlier to Sean Aitchison.
Once again, now we're seeing some
who plays in
defensemen being
OHL right
selected.
now. Very physical player, already big, already
is an
6'1"
old
and
school
204
type
pounds. He's building
defenseman.
a
I don't
man
think there's a
already.
defenseman that plays as hard physically.
It's really his
in
physical
the
game
corners,
is going to win him over in the OHL. And
kind of the old
he's
school
going
where
to
he used to cross-check guys in front of the net, he used to whack and hack as
you're
much
looking
as
at
you
a guy
could.
that could be like a Luke
But Carter
Shed
was so
style
hard to play
player.
against, and you knew
Not
guys knew when they
anybody's
were on
going
the
to
ice
put a ton of
against him
points
because
for
they
you,
knew
but
if you were going into the
going to
corner
eat up a
with
lot of
him, they
minutes.
were going
He's
to pay
going to
the
be very
price.
physical.
And
He's going
he's one of the defensemen
will you
that
on the
I
boards
really liked watching this
make
year
sure
because
he's
of how
able
he
to get
looked,
pucks from
how
you.
hard he played. Look at the hit he throws there, and I
Yeah,
probably
he's
saw him
a
throw
fun watch.
15
I
or
think
20
he's
of
somebody
those
who
where the guy is like,
a bit of a
"What just hit
throwback,
me?"
but
and that's just the
can
way
bring
he
it.
played. But he also,
And,
outside of that, he's not just a defenseman
not
that's
necessarily
gonna throw
always
his body around and do that
identifiable
kind
at
of
the youth
stuff.
level,
He's got
but
the skill
he has
level
shown
to
it.
move the puck and play the
obviously
game
you've
as
seen
well.
the clips
But
here, but
at one point during
in
the
watching
OHL
him
Cup,
too,
I
I think
remember looking up the
there's a lot
stats,
to like.
and Carter was leading the tournament in penalties. I wasn't surprised, but that's just the kind of player he is. He's going to take some of those penalties because he is so aggressive. And I've always been a fan.
I can't believe that two of my guys in the
to
top
pull
10 are
kid
still
back a
on the
little
board.
bit rather
That's
than
pretty
trying to
unbelievable.
instill that competitive
Heading into
that
30
fierceness in him. And Carter's definitely got it.
Yeah, it's one thing to
I would
try
argue
to
the
fire
two
under a player that
in
can
the
be
top
a
10
little
there
more
are going to be
difficult.
guys
They've
who
got the
should be
fire, and then you kind of say, all right, here's where I give you some leash, and then here's
immediately I
reel you
think
back
too.
in a little bit,
just
but
very
you'd rather have
shocking
that
to see
than
that they're
get a
still
player going. I'm sure you've seen that
available.
over the years, where you see that player,
but,
and then they get to that opportunity where it's like, you know what? Okay,
Yeah.
great, but I need you
We'll
just
see
to
what
dial
else
back
is
a little
going
bit
on
versus
here.
you've
You know,
probably seen
obviously,
players
Windsor's on the
who
board
are on the
here.
bench even helping coach where it's like, I wish I could get that guy going a
I
little
don't
bit
know
more.
who they're going to go for.
Yeah, it's 100%. You see that no matter what level you play
maybe
at,
Landon
if you're a
Jackson
coach at,
falls here
you want,
as well.
You want those kids in.
Lapalainen seems like a guy who would
make
fit.
them do it. You can't make them compete
Even
harder. It's either
Lachlan
in them or it's
Larmond
not.
as well is the guy who
Carter,
I think, out of my list, I think those are all guys who could
competitor,
definitely
and
fit.
one of those kids that
within
every time I watch
the
Ottawa Valley, you want to make sure
the roster
when he's
here,
on the ice when that next big hit is coming.
and they're all
So the
making
Windsor
sense for
Spitfires
Windsor.
have the
So
30th
I'd be
overall
curious to see where
choice.
they're
We'll get to
going
them in a
here.
moment
And
as they
Pete's
are on the
pick
clock
after
here
that at
to continue
31.
the opening
So,
round of the OHL Priority
should be
Selection
fun to see
presented by
where
Real Canadian
this goes,
Superstore. Pleased to
going
have you with
into
us
the
here.
rest of this year,
Across the
but-
network, we have rounds 1 through 3 here on this Friday evening. We're back with you Saturday morning, 9 a.m. Eastern Time for rounds 4 through 15. The Windsor Spitfires getting set to make the 30th overall choice.
Windsor's going to pick here. See what they
With
pick.
the 7th selection in the second round of the 2025 OHL Priority Selection, the Windsor Spitfires.
The Windsor Spitfires are proud to select from the Mississauga Reps, Ian Inskip.
Okay, Ian
Another
Inskip
center
selected.
on the board here, 6'1". He's 6 foot there.
Kid, he's very
I think
raw.
He's now even 6 foot 1
you
and
can see there,
change.
6'1"
Out of the
and
Mississauga
about
Reps
50.
program. What can you tell us about Ian?
Yeah, Ian's
a lot of
game
growth
is
there.
is
Obviously,
complete.
from a
He's
frame
an
perspective
offensive
as well
threat.
as
Plays
what
for the
he
Reps
can
team,
do
and he
in
was
terms of
the
strength.
leader on that team for sure. He was
there's some time still to be had with
and he
them.
would have
I
been
think
whatever
there's
the height you had at 6'1", that
some
would have been
growth that
what he
still
had
needs to
because he
happen
was
with him as
at
well.
the
I
OHL
just-
combines as well. And we updated all
I
the
don't know
heights
if I
and weights
love
there,
him here
but
at the
a kid that, you know,
selection. I
excels.
think
You
he's a
watch him
good
skating
player. I
through
don't
the
know
cones
that
here.
he's
He's
a second round
he's a
pick.
kid that's got real good size, real good skill, and
But
I
they
think-
see
I think
something
we
obviously in
haven't
him
seen
that
the best of him yet
warrants
because
the
I think
selection. So
he's going to fill out, get stronger, get a little
I think
quicker off the
Windsor
mark too, and
obviously
stuff like
now
that. But
has
he's
two
he's
different
definitely got a lot of
guys.
upside.
You
You
know,
can see why
John
Frank
McLaughlin
and
isn't the
the
biggest
staff
guy in the
there at
world. He's
Windsor,
super uber skilled, and
picked him here at
now you got a
30th
guy like
overall.
Ian
And that's
Inskip
the
who's
thing,
got
we
more of a
talked
pro
about,
frame, and
these are players,
might
the
be a
one
good
graphic
fit
has
down
them
there
6
outline
foot.
for
That's the
them,
growth.
either on the
Some
second
of
or
these
third
players
line.
where sometimes, some of the numbers were listed a little bit earlier on in the season and then updated, as you mentioned, at the OHL Combine, and there's a player right there, inch and 3/4 growth from 6 to 6'1" and 3/4, and they say, no, give me that 3/4. I want that for sure. And it just shows that at 15, 16, there's that growth, and you just never know, and players grow at different times.
Yeah, and that's
Peter
it. You know, I
Brown now
remember
has got this
seeing
pick.
there's some
Originally
players
was
that,
Flint's
come into the minor
and,
or the
got traded to
16
them, and then
age
go
group,
Ottawa
and they're
and Flint after
5'7",
that.
and maybe they don't get drafted 2 years later.
36 you still on
and
here.
they're-
Really
they're
appreciate you
playing our
guys being
league,
on
so
here. If you
it's-
just joined,
everyone
do
grows
yourself
at
a
a
favor.
different
Please,
time, and it grows at
subscribe
different
to the
speeds
channel, but
during
also
their- during their
comment.
course
I'd
of
love
being
to talk to you
15,
guys.
16 years old.
I don't want to hear
Peterborough
myself
Pete's
talk
are
all
on
the
the
time,
clock,
but
all set to make the next choice.
don't mind talking if it's different topics, and it's not just about what I think. It's about what you think too.
With
So,
the
do
8th
yourself a favor,
selection
please.
in the second round
Engage
of the
and
2025
be involved.
OHL
I'd like to
Priority
have a talk.
Selection, the Peterborough Petes.
Peterborough Petes are excited to select Matthew Perreault from the Toronto Titans.
So back to the Toronto Titans. We've had a couple players from that organization chosen. And
Another odd pick here.
Matthew Perreault, a defenseman, the selection
Matt
here of the Peterborough
Perreault.
Petes.
Yeah, smooth skating. Smooth skating defenseman.
Again, I don't know if I love this one either.
Heady game, plays under control.
Another kid who's probably would have been
not
fourth,
overly,
fifth
I don't
round
want to say
guy.
overly
I think it's
physical,
a little
but
bit of a
always on the
swing.
right side of the puck. Did a lot of real good things for his team.
Man.
Titans team was
Nobody's
was
really.
a
I
real
think nobody out of
powerhouse
this
team in that
draft that
GTHL,
I've
and he
seen
was
so far
their
has
top
really
guy in the
blown
back
me
end.
away. In
For
terms
sure.
of
So he's
what they've been able to
number
do.
4 was
Obviously,
drafted
early.
already from that Titans team. I believe
But
he's the
they're
first
just
defenseman
some
from that
interesting
Titans team.
selections
And
being made
he did it all
draft
for them,
so
whether
far.
it was
You know,
play
obviously we
defense,
did the
kill
first
penalties,
10 or so where they're
defend
gonna
in
be,
the last minute, or he's usually on
some
the ice too when
interesting
they were down
picks,
a
but,
goal at the end of the game too. So
yeah,
he's a kid that was really relied
I think
on by
Brampton
the
has
Titans.
done the best job
Titans
so
coaching
far
staff
in
to play
terms
big
of what
minutes
they've
for
been
him.
able to
And a
select
player who's
and what
originally
they've been
from
able
the
to get.
Ottawa area and then
Later on
playing in the Greater Toronto
they went
region as well.
back-to-back picks and
So,
got Peter Green,
players
and
that,
they got
the dedication, the families making the adjustments, and once again, we
Peter
talk
Green,
about
and
getting
they
a chance
got
to meet new teammates and getting into
Ardahl,
a new organization.
two high-end
and,
players that I
just
think
shows
are going to be really
played out
impactful
of that
players in the
Ottawa
OHL
Myers
level
program,
within 18
and
months.
then goes to the Titans and 42
they don't
points in
pick here for a
56
little bit,
games
but
over the
they're my early
season
favorite, I
as
think,
well.
in terms
And
of the class
I
they
think Peterborough
assembled
fans
and
are
what they
seeing
brought into the
already
table,
with
and,
3 players chosen
obviously,
here.
I think
The
Niagara's
folks
done
in
a
the
good
Lift
job
Lock City
too.
have a lot to be excited about.
They do three
over the last
pretty
couple
entertaining
drafts,
kids that are
getting
going to be able
Rubric,
to step
getting
in and make an
Brady
impact
Wasson,
with
getting
that team there. So yeah,
we're going to step aside, take a quick break. You are watching the 2025 OHL Priority Selection presented by Real
they got Ryerson Edgar as well. They're going to be a team that is going to be very offensively gifted. They're going to score at will at you, and they're going to be really
Across the nation, the Canadian Hockey League is known
again, we
for
got a commercial
investing
break
in
here,
moments
so
like
feel free to
this.
put any
Did
questions
you know
in
we're
here,
also
and
investing in this?
you know,
Through the
willing to
CHL
answer anybody's
Scholarship
questions
Program,
they have,
clubs award
whether it's
nearly
OHL
$10 million
related or not.
each year. The
If you
CHL,
guys want to talk NHL
developing
prospects,
tomorrow's
we'll talk
leaders.
NHL prospects. You want to
Hi,
talk
I'm
about the
Brian
OHL
Crawford,
season
Commissioner
next
of the
year, we'll
Ontario
talk about
Hockey
the
League.
OHL
Thanks for
season next
joining the
year.
game today. If you've
You know,
consumed
my thoughts on the
alcohol while
OHL
at the
playoffs.
game,
You
make
feel
sure to
free
make
to
the
put
right
those in as
choice.
well.
Get a ride with a sober driver.
With that being
use a
said, I really
rideshare app,
appreciate
or
you guys
take
being
public
on here. You know, I think
Make
we
the
got
right
probably
choice.
another
Never
hour and
drive
change
impaired.
How big
left.
is a fat bastard burrito?
But
Let's start with the
you know, I
massive
really appreciate you
flavor
guys
you
being
get
on
with
here
the
and being
huge
able to
selection of fresh
engage with
toppings
me
that
on the
keep you coming
content.
back.
And
Don't forget the other things
yeah,
either.
looking forward
like
to talking
big
more about these
balls,
prospects here. We're about halfway through the
towering
draft,
Dorito
and
tacos, loaded
you
waffle
know, we'll see what
fries
other
topped
guys
with
are
piles
going to be
of
selected
flavor
here.
and tons of other stuff you won't want to miss. Go big or go home. And don't forget to download the app. Fat Bastard Burrito, the official burrito of the OHL.
Yeah,
The
67's
OHL Priority
up
Selection
now.
continues. 2025 edition presented by Real Canadian Superstar. I'm Terry Doyle alongside Daryl Woodley. We continue on with round number 2, and the Ottawa 67s are on the clock.
With the 9th selection in the second round of the 2025 OHL Priority Selection, the Ottawa 67s.
The Ottawa 67s are pleased to select Jack Johnson from the Toronto Marlboros.
The voice of James Boyd, the general manager of the 67s,
Jack
making
Johnson.
that choice. And Toronto Marlboros, I believe our first pick.
This is another one. I think probably a third or fourth round guy.
For sure this year.
I don't know that there's a lot of defensemen going early.
6'2", 180
surprising.
pounds.
I think there was more
had
depth
some
in
offense
the
to his
forward
game
core
as
than there
well,
was in the
but
defensive
more
core,
known
but
as a
maybe
probably
that
two-way
speaks to the weak
versatile defenseman that
depth
will
within
chip
the
in with some
OHL in
offense
terms
here and there,
of
but
guys
he's
that are
really
really good
solid
defensively.
defensively, and
You know, obviously there's
a
some
right
real
shot
value
kid,
in
and, you know,
terms
at
of what
6'2", he moves
people want to see in
exceptionally
their
well
players.
for his size.
And,
so, you know, they had a
the
they
Marlboros,
had a big decor
it's a
there
really good
for the
program. They've done a
Marlies,
lot
but
to
he
develop
was
some good
definitely the
players.
anchor
And,
of that
you know, they
staff
have
for
them
sure.
listed
So
there at
you
6'2",
can see
pretty big
the
for a
video
15-year-old
here from
kid.
the OHL
So,
Combine, getting a chance to show off his skills.
nice
And
mobility in
obviously
that
not,
clip.
in-game action, but you can still just see from that
So
video
we'll see
a
what
big
kind of
body,
player
a big
develops out of
frame,
here. But
and a guy that can
another
certainly,
pick where I'm
help out
surprised.
when it comes to the
some
blue line
really
of the
good
Ottawa
draft
67s over
eligible
the next couple of
prospects
years.
that are still there.
It seems like, you know, these defensemen keep getting
I'm
bigger
shocked
and
about
bigger,
Kingston
but they're
Harris
also
and Jeremy
their
Freeman.
skating
I
and their agility
think
and their
both these
footwork and
guys
their
are
edge
going to
control
be.
all keeps getting
They'll
better.
be playing the
overall. So
OHL
that
next year. There's no
that just
question.
shows, you
I
know,
would be very
these
shocked to
big
see
kids,
that they are.
it takes a lot for them to get
you know,
to
I don't
that
know if
level.
there's
So they're
behavioral
putting a lot of
issues or
work,
what there is.
whether it's
I
through
don't want
power
to
skating
speculate because
coaches
it's
or
not my
edge
place.
coaches or all these special coaches that they have
But
nowadays to
it's
help them
pretty
to help
perplexing
them,
to see them
you know,
still
improve their
on the
skating,
board.
because skating is such a big part of the game. If you can't skate at an elite level now, it's hard to keep up.
It's not like your days where you could just have a big bruiser on the back end and you know, just a big guy that was tall and wide and you know, knock guys down in front of the net even if he couldn't keep up.
Yeah, I remember I played with Brad Brown. Brad Brown would have been one of the best ones back in the day that, you know, he had a wingspan, I think, that went all the way across the rink, so it was hard to get around him, but he would clutch and grab and cross-check. But that's not the way the game is now. These kids are big and agile and skilled, and they can move the puck, and, you know, it's fun to watch. It's fun to watch. It's got to be tough on these forwards, though, because there's less room now, and these defensemen close faster and faster on you. So, you know, both sides of the puck, you got to be quicker and better.
So as you're watching the 2025 OHL Priority Selection, we heard from Caden McGregor, the first overall choice. We heard from Brock Chitteroni, the third. People are probably wondering, what about the second? Jaakko Wisek, chosen by the Guelph Storm. He is playing tonight for Leamington in the OJHL playoffs against Milton, but we had a chance to have our cameras catch up with him just after he was chosen by the Guelph Storm. Just before the game started, we were able to catch up with him to get a few thoughts.
Thanks, Terry. I'm here with Jaakko Wisek. Jaakko, how does it feel to be chosen by the Guelph Storm in the OHL Draft?
Yeah, it's an honor. It's a super special moment. I'd like to thank the Guelph organization, Mr. George Burnett, for putting his trust in me. And yeah, I'm super excited to get started.
And what kind of player can Guelph Storm fans expect to see from you?
Yeah, I'm a super smart, skilled centerman. In the offensive zone, I like to create plays using my hockey sense. I'm also very reliable in the defensive end, and I focus strongly on the little details of the game, like winning those 50-50 battles.
Thank you so much, Jaakko. Congratulations again. And now we'll send it right back up to the studio.
Thank you very much. We want to thank the Leamington Flyers as they were helping us out there, as well as, of course, they were getting ready for a game. Their game started at 7:30. Jaakko was chosen at about 7:20-ish, I believe, 7:15. Yeah. So that was squeezed in very quickly before the game, but everyone, we thought that may have been a possibility. So Leamington, very cooperative, getting ready for their game. We thank head coach Dale Mitchell, an OHL alumnus himself, for helping us out to coordinate that. And congratulations to Jaakko. And you can see he's excited to be a member of the Guelph Storm, the second overall choice. The pick is in yes, it is in for the Flint Firebirds here in the second round.
With the 10th selection in the second round of the 2025 OHL priority selection, the Flint Firebirds.
With the 33rd selection of the 2025 OHL priority selection, Flint Firebirds are proud to select Lucas Nutting.
Lucas Nutting of the Elgin Middlesex Canucks program. You see a player that now looking to jump into the Flint Firebirds lineup.
Yeah, you see those numbers. Not many defensemen at this
Hi, everyone.
age
Sorry about
have
that.
22 goals.
I thought I had my audio on, but Lucas Nutting going here now with Flint.
Back there for his team.
This kid is really skilled.
Jump into the rush, lead the rush.
I thought this kid would have gone earlier, to be honest.
He had the instincts and the skating ability.
I expected him to
do it at the right time.
He was kind of under my list
if he
here.
also gets
like
caught in at a bad time, he's such a good skater that he recovered.
Like the pick
recovered
a lot.
so well.
I think Flint's done a really good job getting Murata, and now they get Nutting.
One thing that really
it's a very good draft so far for the Firebirds.
From everyone else.
Nutting to me has a little bit more upside, and he's one of the few guys in this draft who I saw top pairing upside with.
He can do basically everything that you want.
At least at the OHL level.
He was definitely their catalyst on the hockey team.
Everything about him is really skilled. He's kind of he's very mobile. I think he all around has a decently solid game. He doesn't have any warts
maybe at a very young
in his
age.
game, but I don't think there's any
for
super
Elgin
big
Middlesex
strengths
over the last few years, and now a pick there
a little bit
by
immature, I
the
think, in terms
Firebirds.
of
We continue on
in
round number 2.
Got some growing still to do, but
are just about to make their selection.
Not bad way,
just, they're ready to go
a young
to
kid,
officially
but
announce it. They are, so let's go to the honors.
Lots of like there with Lucas Nutting. I think that's a really solid selection.
With the 11th selection in the second round of the 2025 OHL priority selection,
another American
the
goes
Erie
here.
Otters.
Tyler Cooper
With
here
this
for the
selection
Chicago
here,
Reapers.
Erie Otters would like to honor and pay tribute to our late owner, Jim Waters. The Erie Otters are proud to select with our second round selection, Tyler Cooper from the Chicago Reapers.
The
young kid
choice
too.
there coming out of Illinois.
The
Illinois midget teams played for as well. And once again, you see Daryl some big.
A lot of time for him. It's a really solid selection. I didn't have him
really
highly ranked,
everyone's
but
head this year when we saw him at the Silver Stick, because
I understand why somebody would take him.
Silver Stick. Some guys got to see him.
I mean, look at the production here. He's got 106 points in 63 games.
49 goals.
That's something to shake your head at. So
58 assists or whatever it was.
Good solid play there by Erie, and not a bad selection.
Driver for that team. There's a couple other good players on that team as well, but he was definitely the one night in, night out that made things happen for them.
We'll let people in. The way it works, the teams submit their choice and is approved by the Ontario Hockey League, and then the team, like Dave Brown just did, the general manager of the Erie Otters, make the choice. So that's where it was a case there. You saw Cooper's name come up just a moment before Brown made the announcement. That's because they had made the submission already, and then Dave Brown just officially announcing it for everyone. So that's how it all plays out. Just lots of things going on behind the scenes, and of course the teams in their headquarters to submit the choices. But it's nice to see the general managers, and once again, of course, our thoughts. It's been a rough season for the Erie Otters. Obviously, success on the ice right now, but it's certainly been a lot of adversity for the Otters, and we credit them the way they've been able to battle through. Up next are the Barrie Colts as we continue round number 2.
With the 12th selection in the second round of the 2025 OHL priority selection, the Barrie Colts.
With the 35th selection of the 2025 OHL priority selection, the Barrie Colts are proud to select Eamon Edgar, Sun County Panthers.
The Sun County Panthers out of the
Eamon
Windsor
Edgar, it's a
region.
really
Of course,
solid
we saw
pickup.
Yako Wisik chosen out of Sun County.
Had
Now
him just
Eamon
outside
Edgar.
of my list as
Yeah,
well.
Eamon is a.
I actually thought about ranking him.
It was an exciting 1-2 punch there, certainly this year.
Honestly,
in
he's
Sun
probably
County.
he was probably
Barry
my
fans are going to
26.
be really excited about
Yeah,
this
he was
player
my
as Dylan
26 actually.
Smoskowicz making
He would have been the next guy I would have
announcement
added
there,
on.
and Eamon might have a
Lots
little
of
bit more
like here.
skill than
Good
Dylan
player.
did when he played. Dylan's
Another
Dylan's a
good
really
pick
good
by
guy,
the
but
Barry
this
Colts.
kid has a dynamic
He's a
one-on-one
kid who works
skill.
hard. He's an absolute
He
force in the
makes
offensive zone.
plays happen that
You see there
don't see
good
coming,
moves
and then
there.
all of a sudden the defenseman's going one
Good
way and he's
skater.
going the other.
He's very
Had the
impactful.
ability
Every
to finish,
viewing I
scored a lot
watched of
big
him,
goals
he's been
for them
very
as well.
impactful.
They won the
Not
the
afraid to
Alliance
score
Championship
goals.
this
Not
year,
afraid
and
to
he
be
was
clutch.
a
Like,
big part of
lots
that.
of like here.
You see some
good,
of the skill on
all
display,
around
the
solid
hard work on
player.
display.
Brings
here
it
as
every
well.
game.
Just, you saw,
Finds an
made a
opportunity.
defenseman look
And,
a little silly as he made a
lots of
move,
like
and
here
then
with
willing to mix it up.
Mr.
Not afraid to
Edgar
get it,
here.
whether it's through the middle or
not the
along
only
the boards
Edgar,
as
not
well.
the highest
Eamon Edgar, the
ranked
choice there
Edgar,
of
not
the
the highest
Barry
drafted
Colts. We
Edgar,
continue
but
on in round
an
number
Edgar
2. The Guelph
that
Storm
got selected
are
to
on
the
the
OHL
clock
draft
to make the
nonetheless.
next choice.
So,
And
good
Daryl, I'm sure
selection
it's an
by the
interesting
Barry
time for
Colts
all of
and
the
somebody who I
teams.
think
They're
will
going
impact
through.
their lineup
They have
in,
their list, just like you with your central
not
scouting
too long
team
a time.
have your list. And I'm sure you're just kind of waiting to see now. Round 1, it's one thing to see how things are going to play out. Now, we're further along. We're 35 choices in, and I'm sure teams are seeing how their lists are playing out and just going right down the list and see who's the next player up.
Yeah, the draft's an exciting day because like you say, you have your lists, everything's set out, and most teams will always stay to their list. But you're also, if I'm picking here in 3 picks, and I've got one kid that I really am excited about, you're watching. One team doesn't take him, the next team doesn't take him. I know when we were in Barrie, we had times where we get to certain points in the draft where we all basically stood up and cheered because we get a player that we really wanted to get
out of the Americans. I'm wondering if
it's an exciting day. We talk about this day for all the players and,
he will
their
go
families
to the
and the coaches and everything. But this is a big day for
it
scouts.
seems to
we
be
spend
the
a lot
reason
of
why
time
he's not
in scouts and
selected so far.
GMs and all hockey operations side. We spend a lot of time
very
on the road.
surprising to see that he hasn't been at least looked at.
Putting in the long,
that probably could be the reason.
Long,
Roscoe, I
hard days
think,
at the
could
arena.
fall.
My wife always says,
but I
come home after watching a tournament
a team that
for
really
10
likes
hours
him
and I
should
say,
take
I'm tired.
him
And she
pretty
goes,
soon.
"Don't be tired. You watch hockey all day." But it is.
But I
It's
also thought the
mentally
same thing
draining,
about
and,
Kingston
we put a
Harris
lot
and
of
Jeremy
miles on our
Freeman.
cars.
So
So yeah, it's
obviously
it's
there's
a
a
big day
difference
for the
in
player, and
opinion
it's
in
also a
terms
big
of
day
what I
for
thought
these
the
teams as
talent
well.
was.
I know what happens, and I've seen
compared
this
to what
before,
the
even
actual
going back
scouting
many
community
years.
thought,
It's
but
when a team thinks, as you said,
that being
a
said, the
couple picks around, they
production's
think
been
they're
there
going to
for
get,
both players,
and then right before,
even for
the
Okaiwa
team
and
gets that player, and next
with
thing you know,
Tyler
it's
Lee.
back in here
Tyler
and
Lee
digging
played
through
with
it.
that,
Who's the next one on our list?
wagon
And you're
of a
just
team
thinking
that's already had
that's going to
4
play out.
selected and
I'm
they
sure
got
that
him no
happened to you a
Flyers,
time or
so.
3.
Well, it was an embarrassing
I'd be
time.
curious to
Me,
see
it
what other
happened in
players
Barrie.
are
It was the
available.
15th round.
Do the goalies start
We're sitting
going
there.
now?
We have our player that we were going to pick.
Would be
We're
really
2
curious to
picks
see what
away,
happens here,
and
but
we're thinking, we're going to get this kid
I'm very
for free, no
shocked that a
problem. So
goalie
we all
hasn't
close
gone
our
yet.
books, and we've got him in the computer ready to send him
God,
in.
I think it's pretty soon.
And he gets taken
At
right
the very
before
least,
us.
if it's not the
Now
second
we've
round,
got
it's got to be in
nothing
the
to
third.
go on here, so we go back, and embarrassingly enough, we had to call a timeout in the 15th round. Needless to say, I heard it from my peers for years and years after that. But yeah, it happens.
This is your penance, having to tell this story over the years.
Right? Yeah, so it does. It happens, and it happens both ways. It happens when you don't expect a player to get to you,
We're about
but it
halfway
also
through
happens
the
when
second round here, so
I
we're
wanted that kid to go
getting
right
halfway
before
through
you.
the draft.
How
here.
important is it as well to stick to your list? It's one
63
thing that
picks
maybe
here.
you see something that there's
on
a few
pick
players that have
36,
gone. We had in a different
so.
position, but the hard work went in. You don't
We're
want to
getting
take
there,
5
but,
months of work and try to blow it up in
down
15
it.
minutes
Still got
because maybe
26 strong.
things went a little differently than you expected.
Thanks for those that have stayed on.
Especially
I really
early in the draft.
appreciate
So
it.
early in the
I'm
draft,
sure there's
you're looking at your list and you're sticking by your list. But as you get later in the list, you may look at your list and
if you are,
I
I
got a centerman
apologize.
that's next on my list up, but we've already taken 3. So now it's like, okay, well, now
thanks
we
for
start
tuning
looking at
in.
our depth
I
chart.
really
Oh, we've got
appreciate
no
you guys
right
being on here,
defenseman.
and,
You know, in 2 years when some of these kids will step
yeah,
in,
we're,
who's the best right defenseman out there?
plugging
Who's the
along
best
here as we're
defenseman
trying
out
to
there
see
that
what
we can take?
what
So
comes
as you get
next
later
year in
on,
the
not
OHL
today
draft.
necessarily, but as teams get into tomorrow,
we're 2.5
they'll
hours
start to
in,
look at
so
holes in
we're
the depth chart and say, okay, yeah,
we're digging and
we've got
grinding.
no one in this
but
area, so
we're
we've got to add someone.
you know,
And
it
that's
should
where they
speed
go,
up here pretty
okay,
soon.
who's the best defenseman?
I'm thinking in the third round it'll
Yeah, it's certainly
speed up
very
a little bit
interesting to
more
see, and I'm
once
sure
teams have
as
more
they go through
definitive
their
picks
list. We are
and
continuing
not
on
as much
with round
space.
number 2. The Guelph Storm are on the clock as they have the 36th overall choice. It'll be pick number 13
Guelph is going
in
to
the
pick
second
here,
round of this OHL
waiting on
priority
them to make
selection.
their
The Storm
selection.
are standing by. I think they're just about ready to make the choice. We're seeing that I believe the pick has been submitted to the Ontario Hockey League, so once it has been approved, they will have the opportunity to officially announce the choice here, as we have Guelph, Sudbury, 2 from Sudbury, Brampton, Saginaw, Owen Sound, Sarnia, London to wrap up the round here in round number 2. And let's go to the Guelph Storm.
With the 13th selection in the second round of the 2025 OHL Priority Selection, the Guelph Storm.
The Guelph Storm are proud to select Carter Lewandowski from the Vaughan Kings.
Carter Lewandowski,
We got Carter Lewandowski on our list here.
You
He
see
had
the
him
numbers
ranked
on the
23.
screen there. 18 goals in 33 games. 6'2", so I think it's one of those players.
But,
as an 18-year-old, don't
good
be
player,
surprised to see
like
that
his skills.
166 become something in the 180s area, I would think.
You know,
probably
he's
by the spring it'll be 180.
huge at 6'2". I didn't realize he was that big. 166 pounds.
He's a game that he's a kid that plays a heavy game. You know, goes to those
middle of the
dirty
birth year,
areas.
which
He's
is
an
nice
up
to
and down
see.
winger
Averaging a point per game. The
that
Vaughan
can shoot and
Kings
score. You know,
system
and
is
just didn't take any
done a very good
shortcuts. He's a
development
kid
system.
that'll forecheck hard, does a good job on the wall.
You know, I like his overall pedigree. I like what
just
he
a
brings to the
complete,
table.
complete defenseman. You know, a good skater. You know, probably will work
you know,
on
I think
getting a
he
little more
just has
explosive
everything
off the
you could
mark.
want. You know,
all these kids have something that they've got to work on.
You know, Woodley
over
just
the
said
course
he's
of
a
the
very
summer.
complete player, and I would
see the
totally
touch
agree
around
with
the
that
net that he
analysis.
had
I think
was
he's somebody
really
who,
good. He was one of
you know, is not
one of the
afraid
forwards there
to
that,
produce. He's not
that
afraid
was
to go
contributed on or
and make
counted
his
on
name
heavily by
known.
his
And
team.
Whether it's Carter or anyone
you know,
else,
for
I always
Guelph,
like to when I hear a player say, I know I need to work on this. Now, the next step is showing that you are working on it and then achieving that you've made steps in it. But I always enjoy seeing that and hearing that when a player recognizes, you know, I need to shoot more. I know I need to work on my first step when I'm skating or things like that.
Junior A already,
it's a form of maturity and maybe knowing, okay, I'm doing pretty well in my game, but I know I need to improve because I'm not plateauing at 15 and 16 years old. There's still a lot more growth, and I always appreciate being able to, you know, see players that recognize that and have that maturity factor and knowing that that's something they have to work on. The
we got
Wolves
Sudbury up
are
next
on the
year. They got
clock with the
back-to-back
next
picks.
choice, and they are
Pretty
all
interesting
ready
see
to
what
make
kind
the
of
announcement.
Players are coming up here. Hockey 729 said, "Yo, boss."
With the
who went 10th
14th
overall?
selection in the second round
I will
of
tell
the
you right now,
2025
their 10th
OHL Priority
overall
Selection, the Sudbury
was
Wolves.
Ryerson Edgar.
Sudbury
10th
selects
overall for
the New
Niagara.
Jersey Rockets,
So,
Vladimir Provorov.
Vladimir
hope you heard
Provorov,
that.
the
So it's
selection
Ryerson
there
Edgar
for
with
the
10th overall,
Sudbury
Hockey
Wolves coming out
729.
of the New Jersey
Appreciate
area,
you
and now
joining
the
in
Sudbury
on
Wolves
Twitch.
making that
Feel free
choice.
to subscribe on
first
there.
2008 that we've seen.
And then he said, "Oh yeah, that's great to hear." Yeah, I agree. I think it's a
offensive abilities.
super.
I think he put up
That's your
huge numbers.
bud.
I don't
Hey,
have him in front of
congrats,
me right
man.
now, but I
He's
think
a hell of a
he,
player. He's a hell of a player.
122
So,
points in 80 games. That's pretty impressive.
That's awesome. Good
so
for you,
Sudbury
man.
obviously has seen something that they really love in this
If
kid playing
he
down
wants
in
to
New
interview,
Jersey.
let me know. I'll do an interview with him on
And
the
you know, we go
podcast,
back
so.
to talking about kids
But
not
appreciate
getting
you being on
drafted
here,
today.
man.
There's a kid that
First
didn't
ever
get
Twitch
drafted last
comment,
year,
actually, which is
and
really
here
cool
he
to
is
see.
in
So
getting
appreciate
selected
you
in the
being
second
on
round.
and
So
hopefully follow on
keep
Twitch
chasing
and
that
if
dream,
not
no
follow
matter
on
where you
YouTube.
play
So
or
thank
if you
you.
get taken or not today.
Kid who
You know,
just got
this is a kid
selected here,
that
37th
is
overall.
a
We got
really good-
Vladimir
really good hockey
Provorov.
player.
You're
The
looking
last
at
name
the
sounds
name. You're
familiar.
saying, is he
It should
related to
because, of
Ivan?
course,
He's his brother.
his father, Ivan Provorov, longtime
Plays for
National
the New
Hockey
Jersey
Leaguer
Rockets
and a
at the
chance there,
U16
you know, to play
level.
in the NHL for many years, and now an opportunity.
Definitely an
I was looking at
impactful player.
Provorov
Had
there,
over 100 points this year.
692 NHL games coming
level,
into
and,
tonight, I think, because he's still
got a lot of time for
active
him
right
in
now.
terms of
So
what he's able to
an
bring.
opportunity to,
And,
once again, the bloodlines,
he'll definitely be
certainly
somebody
playing
who
off, and
impacts the OHL
Vladimir's
level.
played in that New Jersey
Wasn't
area
sure
for the
if
last
somebody
couple
was
of
going to
years.
take
So,
him this
you know,
early. I
familiar
had him a
to the
little
North
bit later on
American
mine
game.
personally, but
You know, I said talk about that New Jersey Rockets club
another
played last year with New Jersey as well. We saw more than a point a game. We've got some numbers in front of us.
Alexander
A point a game in that area. Came over from Russia, I believe, last season. Played some time in Russia the year before.
Should be fun to
late
see.
last
I
season.
think there's
So
a lot to like
now
there
a
with
chance to
Vladimir
get used to
Provorov.
the North American game, get all
And,
established, and I'm
good
sure
savvy
it's a
selection
skilled
there
guy
by
the
the
Sudbury
Sudbury
Wolves are going to
Wolves.
look forward to here.
Yeah, and you know, as a 17-year-old, he's going to be able to step right in. And,
Sudbury now got
hopefully
back-to-back
help
picks.
that Sudbury Wolves team next
See
year.
what other
There's
guys they
some-
have on their
some
radar
bodies like
here.
everyone
Obviously, you
does,
see
but
what I
they'll be
have
able
on
to
the
step
bottom
in
there
next year
for
and
best
contribute
available.
offensively.
When you see a
Should be
player
fun
like
to see
that, it's
where
almost like you
these
have
guys
a
will
little
go.
more information.
Again, if you guys have any
where, as a
questions, feel free to
16-year-old.
leave
It's
them
like,
in the chat.
what's he going to be like as a
We're down at
17? What's he
24
like as an
yet, but
18?
there's
Well, this player,
24
we know what he's
strong.
like as a 17.
Yeah,
really
exactly. So
appreciate
that's
you
the
all
beauty
being
of,
on here, and
some of these kids
hope
coming
there's
into the
more
draft
people
and
that
they're
will be willing to engage in the
as a
content here in
16-year-old. So
coming,
you know closer to what you're going to be getting as a
becoming
as a product
hour
coming
and
into
change.
your
I'll probably have
your
left here on the
associate- your
draft.
team
So,
next year.
And I've got to
thanks
correct
for those that have
It's
tuned
actually
in.
his
Thanks
younger
for those that
brother.
have stayed on as
I
long
said
as you
son,
have.
it's his
You
younger
just
brother.
joined.
Okay.
Feel
And
free to
that's,
do yourself
just
a favor.
to
Please
double check
subscribe
my
and
information there. So younger
you can
brother
share the
from that
content with
standpoint,
other
which I
draft
think the
nerds.
age gap, it's actually,
You know,
but
looking
yeah,
forward
it is
to
his
growing
younger
the
brother
audience a little
that
bit
is
more, and
the choice there. Vladimir is
I appreciate you
the
guys
choice
being
there. So we
able
wanted
to
get
come
that
on
straight.
here
We knew the
and
family connection
engage in
there,
the
but
content with me.
indeed it's his younger brother. So yes, now that I look at the age of Ivan, it makes sense from that standpoint. So, but congratulations, Vladimir, chosen there by the Sudbury Wolves, and now an opportunity to make the move into the Ontario Hockey League.
Yes, exactly. And speaking of family connections, you know, we had the Guelph Storm just pick a
We're
couple
waiting
picks
for
ago,
pick
and
38
Branch
here.
making that selection, and it seems different today without having Big Dave here.
Very
Dave's
shocked
been a
that
part of
goalie
this
still
league
not
and been
gone
part of
yet.
this
It's
draft
very
for
surprising.
45 years or whatever
long
it
as we've
was.
been alive.
There's a
We've
lot
been
of
alive,
good high-end
yeah,
goaltenders
it's
in this
been,
draft. I've talked about them
you know, you talk
already,
about
and
family
just very
Dave
shocked
not
that
being
there
here.
hasn't been anything in
I'm sure he's
terms of,
watching at home and critiquing
some
us
more
and as we're going, but
opportunity
yeah,
for these
just,
guys to
I'm
go.
sure it's a tough day for
very
him not
shocked by
being
that.
here, and yeah, just.
Oh, it's been huge. You know, David Branch, huge for both of us, and you know, our involvement in the Ontario Hockey League over the years, and yeah, not afraid to critique us with a smile on his face, of course, or maybe start with that stern critique and then open up to the big smile on his face.
Yeah, it was a nice pat on the back and kick in the butt sometimes, depending on which one you needed, right?
That's exactly it. He was always, you know, commissioner of the Ontario Hockey League, coach, and broadcast critique.
Yes.
Broadcast criticizer. So that's you know, of course, we're saying this all with a smile on our face, and we say hello to you know, longtime OHL Commissioner David Branch, and certainly, you know, our involvement in this league, you know, we could say would not be without, you know, without for him.
Yeah.
And certainly a lot of people around this league, but you know, we're very excited to be in these new digs here at Cogeco headquarters. I'm calling it Studio 23 now officially, and you know, very excited. You saw, of course, hockey operations has been involved as well, and you know, bringing the OHL priority selection to Cogeco headquarters and working together with our partnership with Cogeco and Your TV and the Ontario Hockey League, longtime partners, and just another example of our partnership, whether it's the games we bring you and playoff games, and you'll see more playoff games tomorrow, but of course with that and Hockey Day in the OHL that happens in February, and here it is producing the OHL priority selection, whether we did it at OHL headquarters and now moving it to Cogeco headquarters this season. As we continue on in round number 2, the Sudbury Wolves had just made a pick. They made another choice, or getting set to make another choice. They are all set to go, so let's go back to the Sudbury Wolves.
With the 15th selection in the second round of the 2025 OHL priority selection, the Sudbury Wolves.
There we go. We get the next pick
Sudbury
here.
Wolves are proud to select from Waterloo, Parker Smith.
So Parker Smith, the choice there
Parker
for
Smith,
the
which
Sudbury
wins.
Wolves, a player out of the Waterloo Wolves organization. So, hey, why not? Waterloo
Another
Wolves,
interesting
Sudbury
player.
Wolves,
I don't know
make
that I
connection.
had him
You
as
know,
early as I
there's a
did
choice
here, but
Parker
we'll
Smith
see what
with the,
happens.
selection here by the Sudbury
See his
Wolves.
growth
Yeah,
here.
from
He's a
one
little
Wolves
bit
to
of a
another,
water
I
bug
guess you
kind
could
of
say, right?
frame, you know,
Parker's
5'9",
Parker's a skilled
$160.
kid.
Should
You know,
see
he
what
was a leader
happens
of
here.
that Waterloo
and
team
what kind of
that
player
had a
comes
really
out
good
of
year
this.
this
So.
year. You know, as an Alliance kid, I've always loved the kids from down the Alliance area because you know, you get the hard-working kids, and that's what
I'll be back
that's what
in
he
2
is.
minutes,
That's what
people.
Parker
I will
is.
be
And,
right
you know,
back.
he doesn't
If you have
take
any
any
questions,
shortcuts
feel
in
free
the
to leave them in
game.
the chat below. Okay.
He's gonna get his goals honestly. He's a complete player that was a big part of that team's success offensively. You know, over a point, I think almost 2 points a game, I think, if I'm correct. So he was did a lot of real good things this year.
So the selection there by the Sudbury Wolves. Up next are the Brampton Steelheads, standing by to make the choice here in round number 2.
With the 16th selection in the second round of the 2025 OHL priority selection, the Brampton Steelheads.
The Brampton Steelheads are proud to select Lucas Johnson, Chicago Reapers 15s.
Second player we've had out of the Chicago Reapers program, and now the choice there by the Brampton Steelheads, Lucas Johnson.
And I believe first goalie taken today.
We had not have a goalie.
It all blends together after a while.
We have not had a goalie yet.
Yeah. No, Lucas is a kid that played on that Reapers team.
As I was complaining about having no goalie, we're back and there's a goalie selected. So Lucas Johnson was selected.
The Steelheads saw something that they liked in him. Whether
I like the pick. I don't know if he wasn't my top ranked goalie, but he was definitely somebody that I would consider to be a top 3 or 4 goalie in this draft.
With goaltenders, they've done a good job there in Brampton with some of their goaltending picks that they've made in the past.
3 or 4 goalies
I
I think that
expect
are
Lucas
really
to come in
high
there
end
and
goalies,
follow in some
and
of
he
those
was the tier
footsteps.
below that.
That should be very interesting to see. And now,
good for him.
when it comes
really,
to Central Scouting, and obviously any team, but let's talk about Central Scouting. Scouting goaltenders.
Where his
it's
growth
different
is
than
as
scouting
well.
forwards
The
and
Chicago
defensemen.
Reapers
How do you
now
approach
got
it?
2 picks.
Can he
which
stop the
is
puck?
pretty unheard of for their program.
At the end of the day, they have to stop the puck, but it's such a
good opportunity
fine
for them.
position.
It's awesome that they're able
years ago when I
to,
started back in Central Scouting, I've always had a guy that's just basically his job is to.
I think it's interesting that Little Caesars has not had a player selected yet.
It's a
very
different
surprising.
position
No
if you
Detroit
haven't
area
played
programs
it.
have had any sort of OHL
evaluate
player
skating,
selected,
whether
which
it's a
is
forward or defense and puck
extremely
skills and
fascinating.
stuff. But goalie coaches,
and being a kid from Southeast Michigan, I'm used to seeing the Coffee Warriors, the Honey Bakes, the Little Caesars, even the West Side of the State, Fox Motors,
being a real good goalie.
Belt Tire, those places usually always had players going into the OHL.
I myself, and I know
very
a lot of
little
OHL
of that
teams
so
as well,
far, which is
whether it's a
surprising.
goalie coach or whether they have a guy that's specifically designed to watch goalies. All teams are in that same area.
So Lucas Johnson, 45 games played last year for the Chicago Reapers this past season.
Right now.
1.87 goals against average, .913 save percentage, 10 shutouts, 34 wins, 10 losses, and what's listed as a tie in his numbers. So pretty impressive numbers and impressing the Brampton Steelheads to make that selection. Up next, the Saginaw Spirit are on the clock.
With the 17th selection in the second round of the 2025 OHL Priority Selection, the Saginaw Spirit.
Saginaw Spirit are proud to select Drew Roscoe from Shattuck St. Mary's.
Shattuck St. Mary's program
They take,
that has
wow.
certainly put many players
Saginaw
in the
Spirit
Ontario
take
Hockey
the
League,
swing
in
and
the
they
National
take
Hockey
Drew
League,
Roscoe.
and now we see this picture of Drew Roscoe.
6'6".
And
He's
that's not a
listed at
typo.
177. I
He
think
is
he's closer to like
6'6",
180, 190.
177 pounds.
Great skater.
The mobility
Super
on this,
good skater.
On this kid, is exceptional
very savvy
for his
pick here by
size.
Saginaw.
He moves as well.
Not in
other
love with their
guys do
first
at,
pick here, but this is a really good,
smaller
solid
guys, and he's got the
pick
reach,
here
and he's
for
got the
them to
puck
take
skills.
Drew Roscoe.
I know
I
in
think
seeing him
he's
this year a couple
got
times
an excellent reach,
down the States,
good defensive player.
A lot of NHL teams at those Shattuck games as well.
He's 6'6", but he's not
They're
gimpy.
really excited about him as well because there's one thing.
Really interesting.
Coaches
That's a
teach
great
lot of things,
selection.
but one thing you can't
Another
teach
guy
is
off
size.
the list
You can't
here. I
teach
think
6'6", and you can't teach
we're down to only
how
10
well
more
he
guys
moves,
off
and
my
he's
top
obviously put the work
25.
in, and this is a kid that
So let me
I know
take him
Saginaw's
off
real
here
excited
and,
to get into their system because he's going to be a kid that's going to be able to step in and contribute right away because he does have the size, he does have the skating ability and the smarts as well. He does a lot of real good things.
10 more out of my
From
top
St.
25
Peters,
that still
Missouri,
have
the
to be
St. Louis
selected.
suburb, we've seen so many players
I would
come out of the
expect
St.
them to
Louis area
all be
over the years
selected here in
because
the
those
next
players
couple rounds.
who
I think
played for the Blues and
we're
have
speeding
stayed
up a
in
little
St.
bit more
Louis
with the
and
picks,
really
so
helped grow
we'll
the minor
see
hockey
where we're going
program, the
from here,
hockey
and,
development program
hopefully
in St.
there's
Louis. And you talk to players
more
now
opportunities for
that have
these
come
kids
into
to
the
get
Ontario
selected,
Hockey League
and,
from the St. Louis area.
yeah, you
and
get
they
a
just
6'6"
rave and they say yes.
defenseman
When I'm talking to so
15,
many players
16 years old,
the
that's
resumes are
a hell of a
huge,
grab.
and some of these
And,
players maybe were very young when these people were
again,
playing in the
good
National
savvy
Hockey League.
pick there
They
by
just have to look at a
Saginaw.
resume. Look at the Stanley Cup rings in some cases too, whether it was in other organizations, and it certainly made things very exciting. Up next, the pick coming up here, and we're getting set to bring you that as the Owen Sound Attacker on the clock.
With the 18th selection in the second
Owen
round of the
Sound selecting
2025 OHL Priority Selection, the Owen Sound Attack.
With the 41st selection of the 2025 OHL Priority Selection, the Owen Sound Attack are proud to select Landon Jackman from the Detroit Little Caesars.
Landon Jackman, the choice there,
They
a player
take
who is
Landon
from Missouri,
Jackman.
now playing in the Detroit area for a Little Caesars.
Another savvy
And,
pick
Landon
here
Jackman
by
chosen
the
there
Owen Sound Attack.
Yeah, and I can tell you that the 5'10" is not
first
really,
Little Caesars kid taking finally. I knew there was at some point we were going to have one.
Shot. He's got a pro release, a pro shot. He's one of those.
Good
He's a
pick.
left shot
Just
that'll
a big kid,
get on the top
super
of the circle
physical.
on the power play on the right side. And I've seen him score numerous goals there. You know, he really,
he's just a beast,
really played
man.
well at the OHL Cup.
He's a little bit. There's some growth still even with him too. You know, I think he could get to 6'5", 6'6".
Big part of that.
Mentally, there's still some immaturity. I think he's very green in terms of his overall maturity.
He was the definitely
obviously
the
physically he's
driving force in
grown
their
quite
offense.
a bit.
You know, a big boy that.
But there's a lot in between the years he's still got to get through. But you know, working with a community organization like Owen Sound and being in that environment, actually, honestly,
certainly a guy putting up 2 points a game with a pretty strong Little Caesars
program
and a strong league.
Those are environments where you go to be. You start as a little boy and you grow to be a man.
As well. Looking at the number here,
it's a really good 21 points development opportunity for him to land.
That's not easy to do no matter what level of hockey you're playing, unless you're playing against Daryl and his buddies.
Exactly. It doesn't matter what level you're playing. If you can put up 10 goals in 5 games,
got a lot of time.
There 21 points. That's and that's just what he is. He's got the knack for the net. He understands how to find those small pockets, those little quiet pockets in the offensive zone. Like I say, he shoots the puck. He shoots the puck almost probably as well, if not better than anyone else in this draft.
That's very interesting to see. And Detroit Little Caesars program.
Again, for those that are still on here, really appreciate you guys. Down to 22.
Sarnia Stinger on the clock with the next pick.
Shocked that we still have 22, to be honest, but it's good to see that people are staying on and watching, and appreciate you guys being on here. And
we've got
if you have any questions or you want to talk about anything else, feel free to leave it in the chat on the side, and I'll address them as they come in.
But there you see, we'll just kind of leave that, and we're not going to run them down.
We're on round 2 now,
and if you joined us a little bit,
we got how many
the players that were
we got
chosen in the opening
2 more
round.
picks left in round 2, and then we
has a
just
pick
got the
in
last
first
round in
There
round
were 3
3.
extras for
Down
compensation
to
picks,
20
but
picks left.
it's always great to see that every team has a pick in round number
Should be
1,
good
no
to
matter
see
what's
that
happened over the last
going
couple of
into
years.
the rest
And
of this
so
year.
that fans
If you're
throughout
sticking
the
along
Ontario
here and you
Hockey
got
League
questions,
know they're going to have someone chosen
appreciate you guys.
in the opening round, and just
Looking
gives you an
forward to
idea.
see
So
what other players
for you
and
as well as
different
what happened
people,
in the opening round of this 2025
your thoughts on different things like that. So,
selection.
if you have any
The
questions, feel
Sarnia
free to
Sting
leave them
are
on
on
the
the
side.
clock,
And,
getting set
more than willing to talk
make
about
their choice here in
what's
the
been going
second
on
round.
so far in the
let's
draft,
get set.
and who I
Sarnia
think the
Sting
early winners are,
just about
things
set
like
to make
that.
that
And,
official announcement. They are on the clock.
looking forward to
I think they
talking
have
to you
submitted
guys.
it. Yes, they have. Let's go to Sarnia for the announcement.
Sarnia is about ready to pick. Let's see who they pick here.
With the 19th selection in the second round of the 2025 OHL Priority Selection, the Sarnia Sting.
Sarnia Sting are pleased to select Sarver Jaworski from the Detroit Little Caesars.
So right back to Little Caesars. One more time as Dylan Sika makes the announcement on behalf of the Sarnia Sting, and this time another player.
Another Little Caesars kid, Sarver Jaworski.
Skilled forward. This kid does some
kid from
some
Iowa,
pretty-
which
some
is
pretty
super
special things with the
fascinating.
puck.
But obviously he's been in
coached
the
by
OHL
David
market
Legwand
now for a
of
couple
that
years.
Little Caesars team, so you know him real well.
Again, you don't
But
see
yeah,
too many people
just a
from Iowa that
dynamic
play
offensive
hockey,
force.
so
You know,
obviously had to
they
move
were a
around
fun
and
team
find
to
his
watch. They
opportunities.
had
He's
depth.
been with a couple of different
But, you know, between
programs,
him and
but
Jackman, they were two guys that really led the way for
interesting
the Little
player.
Caesars team.
I don't mind the pick. I think he could have been had in the 3rd or 4th round, but
a case where moving up and
definitely a
getting chance
talented
to
player,
make that
no question. I
adjustment,
think
go
he's a
play at
guy
a higher
who,
level
with
of hockey,
a proper
that
development
dedication, shown to be
opportunity,
able
will
to do
grow
that.
a lot. And,
It's a big dedication. Not
a lot
only
of
on the
time
kid,
for
but the
a
family
guy like
as well.
Sarver
So whether
Jaworski.
the family moves with him there, or whether he's building
now we
it,
got.
it's never easy to.
We're moving in
never easy
here
pick
now
up and go
to
play for a
another
new team.
opportunity
Yeah,
for
so
London to take some really
dedication
offensively
on
gifted players. And,
Savar's,
I'm shocked Caden
you know,
Bell's still on the board
team
from a
and
defensive
family there,
perspective.
is a big
I thought
thing.
for sure he would
32
be
points in 21 games,
no
16
question,
goals
second round
for
guy.
him out of the Detroit Little Caesars. So 2 players back to back out of Little Caesars.
We'll see what happens
We're
here.
getting
Maybe they
set
take him here.
to make the next announcement here, and it is the London Knights that are standing by with the final choice of round number 2 in this 2025 OHL Priority Selection, presented by Real Canadian Superstore. Let's go to the Knights.
With the 20th selection in the second round of the 2025 OHL Priority Selection, the London Knights.
The London Knights are proud to select from the Ajax Pickering Raiders, Cooper McCaslin.
Rob Simpson
Cooper
making the choice on behalf
McCaslin,
of the London Knights, and What can we tell us about Cooper?
Interesting
Cooper's a
pick
big
there.
right shot defenseman that moves real well. Had a little bit of a tough start to the year with some injuries
I think
and
he,
stuff like
you know,
that. But
is
when
a guy
when
again.
came back,
Now we're getting into the
a lot
range
of
here
scouts, a lot
where
of teams definitely
end of
took
second
notice,
round to fourth and
because
fifth round, they all
he's a
blur
good
together,
sized
right?
kid. He's a right shot defenseman.
You know, I
well,
didn't get super
does
impactful viewings from Cooper
does
McCaslin.
everything real well on that team. And, when he
I
got
don't
back
know that
back
I
into
see
the lineup. He
high-end
he
play
played
out of
in
him.
every
I
situation
don't
for
know.
his
This
team.
is a really
So there you see
not
Cooper, the
very good
choice there
class I've
of
seen
the
so far
London
from
Knights
London.
as we
I am
wrap
actually
up
very
round
shocked
number
by
2
this.
of this 2025
I don't know that
OHL
most of these
Priority
kids are
Selections
really
presented by
getting
Real Canadian
an
Superstore.
impact
We thank you for
team, to
joining
be
us here.
honest.
I'm
I don't
Terry Doyle
know.
alongside
None of them are
Darryl
going to play
Woodley.
next year
We'll
for
take a break
sure.
when we come back more as you're watching right here.
Surprising. Really surprising decisions made by London so far. And, obviously, maybe they're looking at the import draft as something they're going to maybe maximize a little bit more, which I'll do a live stream for the import draft too. Those tend to be pretty quick. I did one last year and did pretty well, but we'll see what happens here. I think there's a lot to like.
Parking
with,
your moving truck is hard. Moving your internet, that's easy.
Different players in
With
this draft, and
super reliable, super
Cooper
fast,
McCaslin is
fiber-powered
a guy who
internet.
maybe might be the guy who I just missed. Interesting though, a lot of weird selections from London so far, and not normally what they do. Usually they tend to swing and get those guys that everybody else expects and wants to have, but don't have the balls to take. And they've not done that so far, which is surprising. So, again, if you're new here, feel free to subscribe to the channel. Really appreciate you guys. We've actually gotten 10 new subscribers today, so
Across the nation,
much
the Canadian
appreciated
Hockey
for those
League is
that have
known
jumped
for
on and
investing in
joined.
moments
And
like this.
appreciate you
Did
all
you know
and
we're also
your
investing
ability
in this?
to engage
Through
in the
CHL
content.
Scholarship Program, clubs award nearly $10 million
I'm going to try and
each
keep
year.
going to the third
CHL,
round here.
developing tomorrow's leaders.
We got a few minutes left, but we'll see what happens. And I think the third round's starting right now. So.
2 rounds in the books at the OHL Priority Selection presented by Real Canadian Superstore. I'm Terry Doyle. Thank you so much for joining us, making us part of your Friday evening here. 2 rounds are done, but now let's step aside and go over to Mark McKelvey.
Thanks so much, Terry. Pleased to be joined by another one of our top picks from tonight's first round of the 2025 OHL Priority Selection. Brenner Layman's taken 4th overall by the Sarnia Sting. Brenner, congratulations.
Thank you. It means a lot. I'm very excited to be with this organization. Great group of guys, and looking forward to it.
Well, we're going to talk about you as a player in a second, but I understand several years ago you made a trip to Sarnia for a tournament, and there just happens to be a picture of you in a Sarnia Sting jersey cutout. Is that
Kitchener
correct?
coming up here again, and then it goes from Kitchener to Windsor to Oshawa.
Too,
a lot of traded picks
special.
here,
We found my mom
which is
that
interesting.
In the camera roll, this year, and we thought that
again,
was
hey,
cool.
I have one Twitch guy. Whoever the one Twitch guy is, appreciate you, man. I didn't think I'd get an audience on Twitch. So
Talk about the journey.
Very fun and exciting that people are on here. And
the smile on your mom's face. It's going to take a long time for that to be
engaging in the content.
Talk about
so,
what this means.
Yeah, no, it means everything.
If you guys have any questions again about the draft, even if it's on recording, feel free to put them in the chat below and put them as comments even. If I don't respond right then and there, I'll probably respond them all morning.
Glad to be here.
Talk about the type
appreciate
of
you guys
are.
being
The
on
one word
here.
that came up
and,
a lot of the times when discussing
we
some of
probably
these top
got
players,
another
specifically you, was
45 minutes here,
physicality. I
hopefully, and
understand
then
you like
we're
to be very
done.
physical.
I love to be a 200-foot
draft's
guy.
gone a little bit longer than I was expecting, but
on the D-zone,
we'll see what happens tomorrow. Tomorrow's gonna be a longer day. I'm not doing a J2
stream
stream
things I
by
can
any
do in the
means.
game, helping my teammates be better.
But maybe provide my analysis through a post or something on Instagram.
As you start to look ahead, I know it's still a long ways away.
Might even do it on
coming up, but what do you want to work on over the course of the
offseason,
heading into
even on YouTube too?
Yeah, no, I think I got working everything.
If you stayed on and watched the whole time, appreciate you.
Playing with men now, so
I'm starting to wind down myself at a full work day, and then I'm doing a 3-hour live stream.
Doing everything to be better.
Trying to lose a little bit, but
for
those that have been on here, really appreciate you guys.
Have been
a lot of great questions, which has been great to see.
This draft, a
lot
of
the fact that
talent.
people
What
have
is
been
it
on
about
here,
this 09 age group?
been
I don't know,
enjoying the content, which is great.
Offense,
and looking forward to growing this audience as much as I can. Really appreciate you guys
here in the OHL.
Sticking around.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
All right, round number 3 is coming up next as the first night of the OHL Priority Selection continues.
Lunch or dinner is served at
Another
Tim's.
commercial here. We're
It's
waiting on
meaty,
this.
cheesy,
For those interested, by the way,
and
I'm also doing next week. I'm going to be doing a
exactly.
preview show
Make a meal
for
of it. Order the
the
new hat
U18
trick
World
flatbread pizza and
Championship.
garlic bread on the Tim's app.
Just talking about the U18 World Championships.
Welcome
my
to
thoughts,
Oxio,
you know,
the place where
what
the
I think
internet
about the
truly
roster,
gets you.
who I think's going to win, my
have to
medalist,
search down every rabbit
players to
hole.
watch out for,
That you
different
want to
things
stream
like
your
that.
shows,
So,
not pesky
that'll be
loading
next
symbols.
week. I already have it listed
Or
on the
scroll
channel
to your
here.
heart's
So,
content, because culture
if you
now
enjoyed
runs
today,
at the speed of your feed.
I'm going to do, obviously it'll be
Our
much
internet
shorter
was
than
made
this,
to flex,
but I'll do
to fit
probably
your online
maybe an
world.
hour and change.
So if you're ready for an internet provider that finally feels like home, swing on by. We'll keep the door open.
So they come through
Oxio.
going
Born to
into
be
next
online.
week, and the tournament for the U18 starts next starts on the 23rd. So
My OHL is a place
look forward
to
to
So
watching
Talk
that
to You
as
has a
well.
number of
If you're a
elements.
prospect
First and
follower, that's
foremost,
going to
we
be something
support the
that
players. We
a lot
provide
of people
mental
are
health and
interested in,
awareness
and
training
we'll see
and
what happens.
suicide prevention training to them. And we have a coach that's in every one of our branches that supports an OHL team. And in years to come, these individuals that are playing in the OHL now will be great mental health champions.
For 50 years, we've been helping Canadians turn dreams into lasting legacies. Our equipment has been at the heart of Canadian communities, powering dreams and the hard work behind them. Kubota.
The 2025 OHL Priority Selection presented by Real Canadian Superstore continues. Terry Doyle, Daryl Woodley, Mark McKelvey slides onto the desk as well, and Mark getting a chance to chat with the players, and we'll talk about his experiences as the night has gone in a moment. But first, we're getting set to start round at number 3, and the Kitchener Rangers have the choice.
With the first selection in the
So round number
third
3 is
round
going to start
of the
here.
2025 OHL
Curious to see who
priority
Kitchener
selection,
selects here.
The Kitchener Rangers.
The Kitchener Rangers select from the Don Mills Flyers, Tommy Cutt.
Back to the blue line as Tommy Cutt the choice here out of
Wow.
the Don Mills Flyers.
Big, tough to play
They select
against
Tommy Cutt.
you know, he's
Background
physical,
for this kid.
plays the game the
Tommy
right way.
Cutt
He
is
was,
from Hong
one of
Kong.
the anchors on that blue line defensively. You know,
Very
the green tape in
surprising.
the first round for his
I like the
offensive
pick though.
abilities,
Very
but
solid
I'll tell you,
player.
Tommy was
You
one
know,
of those defensemen
statistically, he
that's hard to
doesn't
play
seem like
against.
he's
You know,
that
he was out there all the time
outstanding,
against
but being
the other team's
6'3" and
top line.
215 pounds,
penalty kills,
already got
all
some
that kind of
international
stuff.
experience
He's
with
one
Hong
of those
Kong.
kids too
Will
that
continue to
the
represent
beginning
Hong
of the year I
Kong.
watched, I'm like, yeah,
But for him,
he's
this
a
is,
good
I mean, a
player, but as I
historic
watched
moment
him
for
all
Hong
year,
Kong hockey.
his game took off.
This is a
and he
really
became more confident with the
important
puck,
player
which,
for them
you know,
going
is a
forward,
big
and for
part
them to get a
of-
kid who's going to
of
be
the
in the
game. It's not
OHL.
really the biggest part of his game, but
He's going to be
definitely
kind
noticed
of the
he played with
face
more
of
confidence when
Hong
he had
Kong
the puck
hockey.
on his stick. But defensively,
What an awesome
and physically,
selection.
there's not many in
Cool
the
to see a
in his age group that
non-traditional
are better than
country
him.
get
I
somebody
immediately
that's
thought
an
of
elite
Matthew
talent
Andonovski
that
and the way
plays
his game grew with the Rangers
at
over the
this
course
level. I
of
got
his
a lot of
time.
time for
You know, I know we
him,
don't
and
like
I think
making
he's a very
comparisons.
good player.
I just did. Am I in the neighborhood potentially for Rangers
But
fans?
very cool. Wow, that was a really
close.
surprising
You know,
selection.
he's
Wasn't
just- he's
sure
one
if
of
that
those
was going to
guys
come
that got
today or
better and better,
tomorrow.
and defensively, you know, I don't know.
Good
if
for
I-
him. That's
if I
a really
if I
cool
watched
story.
him all year,
And
but I don't know if I saw him
you know,
get beat one-on-one.
those
or have
interested
a
in
guy,
Hong
you
Kong
know,
hockey,
every
that's
once in a while, even the best of the best
very
will
cool.
get beat, but
That's
very
kind of why I
rarely do you
created
see
the
him
channel
get
in the
beat
first
off the
place.
rush or whether it was
Discovering
off
the
the rush or
niches
out of
and
the
the
corner,
unknown
especially. He was tough to play
commodities
down
within
low.
the sport of
Mark,
hockey.
we see
And,
lots of
you know,
games.
that's
It's
a
one of
cool
those guys
selection
doesn't
right
always
there. I
show
think
up on the
that's a
score
really
sheet,
savvy
but we
one by
notice them, that
Kitchener.
big
And
force on the blue line just
you know,
seems
you
to
open
get in the way and
yourself
shut down
out.
things, and I'm sure Rangers fans
you
are
know,
hoping Tommy's just like that.
Open yourself up to a whole new audience by having
the
him in your
OHL Cup
lineup.
final.
That's
Had the
very
pleasure
cool.
to be on the call for that game, and at the end of the night, I think I said his name more than almost any player on that Don Mills Flyers team. And Peter Green was injured, and he logged a ton of minutes throughout the course of that tournament and in that championship game. And that's something that does stand out. We don't see it on the stat sheet, but those players that you noticed all night long contributing in many other areas.
Certainly very exciting. As we continue on, Mark wanted to bring you in here as well to talk about, you've had the chance, you talked to the guys on camera, but you also got a chance to talk to them off
Very
camera
cool,
a little
man.
bit leading
That-
into,
that's
coming
cool.
out of the interviews, down the hall. There's lots of
really
going on
cool
at the
for
event
Hong
here.
Kong there.
What
That's
jumps out to you
unbelievable.
of what's gone on here this evening so far?
Well, it's exactly what you would imagine. Teenagers excited to see their dream come true, essentially, something they've been working towards, and you keep referencing it as that graduation from minor hockey, and they're just so pumped pumped. And then every time we would hear another pick about to be selected, they would immediately go from talking about
Windsor's up
whatever
next
to looking
year.
up to seeing if it was one of their
Should be
teammates or someone they
interesting to see what
know.
their selection's
They might
at.
as well
Again, we
sat
still
in
got a lot
for
of
us
these guys
here
still
and
on the
provide some of
board.
the analysis because I was getting
Cruz
some pretty
Resnick
good
not going
information
is very
from each of the three
surprising.
players in attendance about the guys being selected.
I
But
would think he
they're
would
so
be
excited.
selected
Their
pretty
family,
early.
they're getting a chance to pose now for some
All
photos,
these guys that
wearing
would
that
be.
jersey,
I
wearing the
honestly
gloves, holding
I
a
thought
stick.
maybe we'd have like one or two of these guys by this
The
time.
funny thing about
in
it
the
was
third
when we saw
round.
Caden McGregor getting his pictures done, his mom said, well, there's no way I
seems
could
like
have
we
gotten
got
to
more than
stand
what I
for
was
this many pictures
expecting
at
that
home.
had fallen
So
in the third round.
I don't think you can probably replicate that feeling of going
is
number one
shocking
overall,
as
but
well.
there's just a lot
Seemed
of
like
great
a guy
energy
who
over
was
there.
for sure going to be
With
in the
Caden
first two
McGregor
rounds.
off camera, that he could just sit on the desk and talk about a lot of these
Kingston
guys
Harris
because they
is
play
another guy I'm
against so
shocked
many
to
guys.
go.
They've got teammates, guys who
Jeremy
play against
Freeman,
these
I'm very
guys.
shocked
Certainly
to see him
follow their
slow as well.
teammates and
There's
their
a lot of
opponents
good
as
talent
well.
that's
We're up next
dropping
with the
quite a
Windsor
bit.
Spitfires as we continue round
And I know I
number
say
3.
that every time I watch these draft coverages and these different things, but
With
really
the
mean it.
second
There's some
selection
good players that
in
are
the
not
third
being
round
selected.
of the 2025 OHL priority selection, the Windsor Spitfires.
They're proud to select from Detroit Honey Bake, Ty Bergeron.
Ty Bergeron, the choice, the second
They take
pick
Ty
of round number
Bergeron.
3.
Interesting.
And
So,
Daryl, the Windsor Spitfires.
Ty
selecting here
Bergeron
skill
has a
centerman.
USHL tender.
A big skill center. At 6'1", 100 and almost 180 pounds.
Weird here because now he's got the option to be in the Muskegon in the USHL, or he could play in Windsor.
Hard to play against because
both
of the
are really
size
great
and,
opportunities for
Ty
Ty Bergeron. Ty Bergeron's a really good player. Definitely would have been a top 2 guy.
He was fun to watch this year.
Should I have thought he would have been selected this early? I didn't think he would be. I had him originally.
He was the one that led the way offensively for them.
And Mark, I know it's always exciting to see a player who, and Daryl and I talked about it earlier, not afraid to be a pass first kind of guy. Sometimes in minor hockey, you're the one who wants to score the goals.
This is a really talented player.
A pass first guy, I always find too. You can always teach them to shoot later.
If Windsor's able
some
to pull
players
this
might
kid,
take a
that's
little
a
longer
hell
though
of
to
a
keep
pull.
prodding them to say, come on,
To bring in a
pull
player
the trigger.
like,
We want to see you shoot the puck.
like
But
him, and
what I found
it
interesting
should be
is
fun
looking
to
at
see
his
what he's
stats
able to
from
do
Ty
and
Bergeron
where
was
he's able
pass
to go
first,
going
but he
forward
had
here.
45 goals. So
But
he
I got a
knows
lot of
how
time
to
for
do
Ty
it,
Bergeron.
and I'm
He's a
sure
really
he'll get some
skilled,
encouragement
talented
along
player.
the way. But to have that in you, the unselfishness, I think is probably a pretty strong trait to have.
We've seen Little Caesars, we've seen Honey Baked. I'm sure those Detroit area teams, it's quite a competitive battle. Some of them, maybe one year they play for one, sometimes and then go to another. Some stay with the program, but I'm sure it's quite a competitive league they play against each other.
Oh yeah, it is. You go down there and they play the game a little differently down there too. They get away with a little more of the it's a little more physical actually, believe it or not. So I've seen some pretty good games between them and the Caesars this year, and even you throw the Illinois teams, they all kind of play in that little loop together. And there are some really good hockey players down there and some really competitive games.
Mark, I wanted to ask you as well as we wait for the next choice. You were down in sort of the lounge area. Actually, you might have to hold this question for a second because I see the next pick. This is what happens when you're on the desk here. I start to lob a question up to somebody, and then a team says, "No, you're not allowed to ask that question. We're going to make a pick, and we don't want to wait for you." So the Oshawa Generals are on the clock with the next choice, and the Generals standing by to make that selection.
So the next pick here, I'm going to jump the gun a little bit. I just saw
With
it.
the
His name
third
is Tyler
selection
Hinn.
in the
Plays
third
for
round
the Toronto
of the
Red Wings.
2025
Don't
OHL
have notes
priority
on him.
selection,
I
the
don't
Oshawa
remember
Generals.
him being very impactful.
The Oshawa
in any
Generals
viewing
are
I've
proud to
watched
select
of
from
him.
the Toronto Red Wings, Tyler Hine.
So, interesting.
Toronto Red Wings here. Tyler Hine, did you see
Hine,
a guy,
Hine.
a winger? Is this someone who, Daryl, you see projecting as a winger as his OHL career goes along?
Yeah, definitely going to be a winger. Real strong, up and down. When he's really on his
Big
game,
kid
he was
too,
on the
6'2",
forecheck, causing
150
havoc,
pounds.
throwing his big frame around. It's
lanky,
6'2",
but big
150
kid.
pounds. He's got some growing to do still, but when he plays with energy and he gets in on the forecheck, he was pretty special. And he played with Layman's. He was his winger, so he would a lot of times get in on that forecheck and find his winger, find his other players, and make those plays.
Mark, let's get back to the question I was going to ask you. You were down in the lounge, we're calling it the lounge area kind of thing, where the players were. But I've got to think just the families. I'm sure you saw siblings,
16 more
parents.
picks here,
It's one thing to
and
post
we'll be
photos.
done with
I know
the
a couple
stream,
agents
so
were around,
I think I'll be
some
done at
sponsors, things like
3:30.
that. I'm sure it was quite an event going
If you're
on down
sticking
the
around,
Some
I'm probably not
autographs,
going to do the
which,
Q&A. I didn't
were
do
you
the draft.
were you signing
No,
autographs?
I was not signing autographs. Nobody needs that one.
Feel free to do the questions, obviously. I'll
signing
answer
autographs, and I
them,
can
but
make
it'll
the joke
probably not be
going
on like a
of, hey, we
live
need to
basis
work
like
on that.
this. I'll
We
probably
need to
just
on that. Although I learned
respond
from
to your comment.
Brenner Layman's that he is a complete
Just do
talk-to-text guy.
yourself a favor.
Does
If
not
you do have
text
a
at all. His
question,
fingers,
you were
which
trying
just
to stick
talk-to-text,
around
which
for,
blew me away. It just shows maybe I'm
feel free to leave it.
I'm getting
either
older,
in the
Terry.
chat,
That's what's happening.
I'll
But
respond to
yeah,
you, or
we all are. You're right. But yeah, the stuff
you know,
like
I might
that going
respond
on
to you
down there,
better
the
if
chance
it's
to,
a
like you
video
said, throw on the
underneath
jersey.
the
You know,
or
they
a
got to put
comment
on their
underneath
team
the video.
gloves for the
Sorry.
first time too, and take
It's
some
getting late now,
photos. And
3
I
hours
know
here.
there'll be an opportunity
So,
for the various players to
you
go
just
to
wait for
their
the picks to kind
new
of come
cities
through.
and
I'm
towns
gonna
here
stick
soon
around
and
to
get
the end,
introduced.
but
So it's all just part of
you know,
this
I think as soon
process.
as
But
this
they're
last
just
pick's
so
made,
pumped up.
I'll
They're kind
give
of
my
cloud nine. They're all
analysis,
floating
give
over
my
there.
goodbyes.
I had a
and
chance. Brenner Lehman,
appreciate you guys
talked to him
being
about
on here,
the
but
cutout and the picture. I got a chance to see that. Unfortunately, we didn't get it on air, but
you
I
know,
got a
just
chance
waiting
to see
for
it. And Mom
USC's
was so
picks
proud
here
to show
again.
this as like it's number
Very shocked at
25.
some of the people
Obviously,
that
it was
have
probably ball
gone
after
and
Jordan
some of them
Kyrou
that
when
have
it was
not gone.
made, but now wearing number 25 is
Just
like
kind of
it
weird
was fate.
to
His
see
team
what's
colors
happened
were
here.
black
So,
and gold. It was just
another
like
player here
everything played out, and
selected.
that's where getting a chance to see, certainly the proud parents, and they should be proud. And obviously,
the
with his
Guelph
minor
Storm
hockey
are
coaches, you name it,
picking.
should be very proud. The Guelph Storm are going to be proud to make this next selection here in round number 3.
And they're selecting. I'm going to blow it a little bit here, but they're selecting Charlie
With the
Sullivan
fourth
from the Don Mills
selection in
Flyers
the
again.
third
Another
round
player from
of the
Don Mills.
2025 OHL priority selection, the Guelph Storm.
And as
Guelph
far as
Storm are
Don
proud to
Mills
select
goes, you
Charlie
know, it's like
Sullivan
the
from the
fifth or
Don
sixth
Mills
kid that's
Flyers.
already been selected. Sullivan's
Daryl,
a heck
going back
of
to
a
the blue
player.
line here, the Don Mills Flyers.
I don't know if
we've got a case where Charlie
loved
Sullivan
where
now
he's
with the Guelph
selected
Storm.
here. I think
Yeah,
he could have been had
third
later,
defenseman from
but
Don Mills drafted. They were tough.
you know,
to
obviously
play
the
against.
OHL Cup made a huge
well
difference.
structured,
There's a
played
lot
good
of
defensive
players
game,
here selected
and Charlie
from the
was
final.
one that was one of the guys that ate up a
Very
lot of
curious
minutes
to
for them.
see why
He's
that's
a
the
kid
case,
that from the
but,
beginning of the year was one of their go-to guys, you know, and he
you know,
kept getting
for
better
Don
and
Mills,
better.
this is
to
a
the
really
point where, you know,
very
when Green
great
went
draft
down
for
in
them,
the
honestly. I
in
think
the
they have more
OHL Cup
picks
and
than
towards the
anybody
end of
else
the year,
does
he's one
in
that
the entire
definitely
draft.
stepped up his game, and he relied on a little
I'm
more.
sure that'll happen more tomorrow too.
Offensively,
But
you know, move the puck a little bit
you
more,
know,
and he did that. But
I don't have a ton of
the best
things
part
to
of his
say
game.
about Charlie
He is going to
Sullivan.
be
I
at our
just don't
level,
know that he
a
would be an
defensive guy
impact on
that
each
isn't
other. I
afraid
think
to
he'll
take
be
the puck.
decent.
Certainly will to throw it around. Great shot.
You know, I think
great
we need to
video.
take a bigger swing.
Obviously
Yeah,
lined
that's
up
my opinion.
perfectly as well. And Mark, there's an example, and you saw that Don Mills team at the OHL Cup where sometimes we see teams like, hey, your top 2 defensemen. Maybe you got a third and a fourth that are all right. Don Mills just kept coming with blue liners and blue liners and blue liners.
Yeah, a plethora of talent, right? And they could throw
And
a lot
Ottawa's
at you,
up
and that's why
next
they had a
year to
lot of
select.
success over the course of the season. For Sullivan, though, and I find it funny that you mentioned about him stepping up with offense later on in the season when it was needed, saw him uncork just a cannon of a slap shot. So he's got that tool as well. So talk about a well-rounded defenseman, but knows what he wants to accomplish at first, and that is to shut down the other team, take care of business at the other end, and that physicality, you love to see it.
Daryl, when you see a hit like that delivered in a game, I'm guessing you're going right to your notes.
I am, yeah, and I think, you know, that Don Mills team, they competed hard. I think part of the reason is, too, they play a lot of their home games at Vic Village, and Vic Village is a small little arena.
2060 on here, wow.
So
you know, appreciate you guys being on
They know
here.
how to play the game
Again,
the
if you have
right
any
way,
questions,
and, you know,
feel
all the
free to
ones that
leave them
we've
in the
talked about
chat.
so far from Don Mills have that little bit of bite
Appreciate
to
you
their
guys
game,
that have
so
stayed on.
no surprise.
3 hours
that he
now
went
we're
here.
going, so
The Ottawa
I think we got another
67s are up
20
next
minutes,
and making the choice here in round number 3.
And then, you know, that'll be the end of it. But again, for those that have stayed on, appreciate you guys very
With
much.
the fifth
And,
selection in the
you know,
third round of the 2025
we'll talk more
OHL
about
priority
these guys in a
selection,
minute here, but it looks like Ottawa just made their selection. Their selection
The Ottawa 67s are proud to select Cade Campbell from the Toronto Red Wings.
Boyd making the
Cade
selection
Campbell was
there,
their
and
selection.
Cade Campbell, the choice here. We're going back to the Red Wings.
Yeah,
you know, again, another guy I don't really have a strong opinion on. I'm shocked by the amount of defensemen that have been taken already. There's a lot of defensemen that have gone, which is very surprising.
Boyd in
especially
the
left-handed
Ottawa 67s
defensemen.
here see the progression on this
you know,
kid,
just,
and Cade's game took off.
I don't know if the
he's
depth was really there
he's
defensively this
one
year.
of the
I
better
think there's a
skating
real
defensemen in
weird
the GTHL. He has the
conception
ability to
of
join the
lack
rush
of
and be the first one back to
offensive depth
defend
for
as
whatever
well.
reason in
So
this draft. I don't know why that's the
They were
case,
short up
but
front. He played a little bit of forward as well. I still think
fascinating.
he's a much better
I'm just very
defenseman,
curious
but
on a lot of
he showed
these.
that
There's a lot lot
ability
of
to
perplexing decisions
play up
that
front
he
as
made in
well.
this
But
draft.
you know, he's great with the puck and
So,
not
we'll
afraid
see.
to take chances either.
And that's, I think, just as you said that, perfect timing. I think that video showed there, just jumping up on the rush, joining in, looking to go to the front of the net. And Mark, when we see these players and you know, coming through the U16 program into the OHL, you want them to be able to, you know, willing to be creative, because that comes to then going to the OHL at the next level.
Exactly that, right? And there will be those opportunities. You know, players though that you want to see them responsible all around, but you don't mind when they like taking some chances. And now we're starting to see a lot of D come off the board as well. And I was talking with Brenner there a few moments ago about the fact that there was so much offensive talent in this age group, but there still needs to be defensemen on each team. So teams are starting to identify that right now.
And Daryl, is it almost where, because there's so much offensive talent, sometimes a few of the defensemen may almost get, they were pressured. They had so much offensive firepower going at them that maybe it was hard for them to show when they're playing against, 9 strong forwards, for example.
Yeah, well, because you're focused on, as a scout, you're focused on these high-end forwards that are coming at you all the time and making these defensemen,
Niagara's up
have
next.
to play defense so much. But, it's, if only 3 defensemen taken in the first round, we knew there was going to be a lot of high-end forwards taken. But I knew that come second and third round, that next level of defense and, the next level of the draft was going to be pretty full with defense.
Up next are the Niagara Ice Dogs.
With the 6th selection in the 3rd round of the 2025 OHL Priority Selection, the Niagara Ice Dogs.
Niagara Ice Dogs are proud to select for Domino's Flyers GTHL, Caden Bell.
Right back to the
Niagara Ice Dogs take Caden Bell. There we go, another guy off the board.
Don Mills, defenseman. I see a
great
here.
savvy pick there again by Niagara. Niagara and Flint have both had really great
was
drafts.
A solid defenseman, played the game well,
fun to see.
moved the puck well.
It's good to see it.
You talk about kids stepping up their game.
We're
playoffs and OHL Cup.
See what other guys
ran with the ball. With
really
them being short on the back end.
Updated the bottom here. Now we got 4
goals and 4
5,
in the OHL Cup.
7,
being on the All-Star team.
8 more guys here.
For the
Still my best of an oval. 17 of the 25 taken.
And then as the year went on, he gained even more confidence to make plays.
Caden Bell was my last defenseman out of the top 25, so really savvy pick here. Now they got Ryerson Edgar, and then they get Caden Bell as well.
Mark, I always appreciate the players too. Like we say, here's 4 defensemen from Don Mills.
We're looking at Don Mills Flyers now.
You know what? I'll go play for another team because I can get top 2 minutes. But you know what? You work together, you play the role, and you're rewarded.
Yeah, and it felt like with that Don Mills team, especially coming down the stretch, they were all coming together for that one goal, and it's all about a team game, and that's what's going to be identified on a night like tonight and over the course of tomorrow with rounds 4 through 15 that you're trying to find those kind of players who will fit in with your group and understand that's not always about me, it's about the entire group. And Caden Bell's probably a really good example of that.
6 of the top 50.
Funny, you come on the desk here now, we're watching all these Don Mills defensemen go.
Speaks a lot to
I
their
had a good chance to watch them up close and personal, and
their coach
seeing them get picked all in this same range, there isn't a whole lot separating them. That's just how deep that team was.
Yeah, certainly full marks to the organization there as they were able to put together such a strong season and develop so many good players into the OHL
50 here
priority
with Barry.
selection. We are at pick number 50, and the Barry Colts are standing by.
Barry's going to go ahead and select here, and they are taking
with the 7th selection in the 3rd round of the 2025 OHL Priority Selection, the Barry Colts.
In honor of Darryl Woodley, who scored a grand total of 0 goals
they
this league, with the 50th
Joe
selection of the
Salandra
2025 OHL Priority Selection, the Barry Colts are
another guy
proud to
who,
select
again,
Joseph Salandra.
Played a lot of prep school hockey.
I don't think he liked my comment earlier.
No, they're watching.
I got him.
I guess they're watching.
I think he's a very good player. Definitely somebody who I had a lot of time for. He's no 8-born.
He's a skilled
I was
kid
actually
that,
expecting him to be more
2 points a game playing down in a prep school. He's a good, skilled offensive player.
Interesting.
He's going to be one that's going to have a good chance to step in our league and put up points.
So we're talking, when you're dealing with prep schools in the States, obviously it's a different model compared to the minor hockey programs and things like that. When you see those players,
born,
what are you looking for?
You don't usually see that
we're looking for
in the draft. But again, Vladimir Provorov still selected as no born. I would think that Joe Salandra
you still got to be able to skate,
compete,
have
get an opportunity here to play at
that scouts and teams are looking for.
Dylan Smoskowitz taking the shot here. Daryl,
he's going to find an opportunity here in the next little bit. But
I had a couple
a lot of time for there. Barry again, another savvy pick here.
How many pucks are on the mantle?
Really like their draft so far. I think they've been very impressive. They go in, not having the most picks, but they go and get Sementsov, and then you come in and get Ewan Edgar, and then you come in and your third pick is Joe Salandra. I think they've knocked it out of the park so far.
They tend to do the same thing. So
Really good in finding the offense and finding the guys that score and make impacts. I think they've done an excellent job drafting. I think it's funny. There's clear winners and losers in so far in this year's draft. I think
the Ontario Hockey League. It's a close.
It'll be curious to see what happens
the
here.
OHL.
But I think
Greyhounds
Sioux
are
are
on
going
the
to be
clock,
picking
and
here
we're
now.
waiting for them to be ready to make the announcement of the 51st selection. We picked number 8 in round number 3 of this OHL priority selection. You're watching here across the network, presented by Real Canadian Superstore. We have the Greyhounds on the clock. Saginaw is standing by, and now let's go to the Sioux Greyhounds.
But let's see the pick here.
With the 8th selection in the 3rd round of the 2025 OHL priority selection, the Sioux Greyhounds.
The Sioux Greyhounds are proud to select Trevor Daly Jr.
No way, they did.
For Sioux Greyhounds fans,
it's Trevor Daly Jr.
Of course,
wow.
Played in the Sioux, great skater, and now
hey, that's a hell of a swing.
Selected here by the
they can make it work. I had him at 7.
Great skater.
Are you going to pry him from the national development program? I'm not sure, but
just skilled. He played on the Florida Lions team.
That's interesting.
Was a good team, but he was definitely hands down the guy that drove the team. He made his wingers look really good. Put the puck in spots where
I
they
don't
can be
know
successful. But I saw him play a couple times down in the States.
At the very least, though,
he's exciting to watch. Sioux has got a player there that is electric. He's a great skater. He's got the skill. He's not afraid to challenge you one-on-one, and he does a lot of real good things.
Playing in Florida,
I like it from the Sioux perspective.
Sometimes that skating can be hereditary, and as you said,
the Sioux have had
his father.
so
Trevor
far in the
Daly
draft,
the OHL was a
pretty
player
up and
that
down.
Looked like he'd speed up as he was coasting.
Laus was a solid pickup.
The same way.
Didn't really like the Kaczynski one. I thought that was way off the board. And then you come in and
he's got a great understanding of the game too.
You get Trevor Daly Jr.
I know he had a lot of
2
goals
really
too,
good
but
picks,
if I'm going to categorize him as a type of player, I see him more as a playmaker because he was so good at making his wingers better and giving them pucks in the right spot.
It's a very
Mark, I always think sometimes you can't teach great skating. If you're a great skater, you can improve your skating, but you bring that skill.
12 more picks left in this draft.
And I'm sure when you're going off the bloodlines, like you said, the father's a great skater, so good chance he will be. And the fact that now you see it, now that he is progressing in his hockey career. Big shoes
again,
to fill,
for those that were on here and have been on here the whole time. Really appreciate you guys.
You also get to learn from somebody like that.
3 hours is a long
pretty
time to be on
exciting
here with me.
and selected where his dad
so I really
played from
appreciate you
99
guys
to
being able to
2003.
stay on here.
We'll see what the future has in store for Trevor Daly Jr.
Pay attention to what
very
I'm
popular
saying.
player in
If
his
you
time
have,
in the Sioux, and
not,
now a chance for Daly Jr. to be chosen there by the Sioux Greyhounds. The Saginaw
really appreciate you
Spirit
guys
standing
being
by
on
for
here
the
and
next
supporting the
choice.
channel, and it should be fun to see what happens here.
With the 9th selection in the 3rd round of the 2025 OHL priority selection, the Saginaw Spirit.
The Saginaw Spirit are proud to select Levi Harper from Shattuck St. Mary's.
Saginaw Spirit,
choice here
Levi
by the
Harper.
Saginaw Spirit, Levi Harper.
Another
coming
08
out
born
of
again.
Shattuck St. Mary's, second
Interesting pick here again.
Second player out of that program. This is a kid.
They obviously really like Roscoe enough to select him, and then they go and take
15 or the 15
another kid from a really good program in Shattuck St. Mary.
Yeah, so he's a 2008 born player that wasn't drafted last year, and we talk about it all the time that just because you don't get drafted the one year doesn't mean you don't have it. The dream's done, or you don't have a chance. So he had a great year in Shattuck. Plays the game the Shattuck way: high speed, high skill, always moving, always putting pressure on. So, I'm sure the Saginaw Spirit are very excited to get him where they did in the draft.
Mark, a player out of Florida, and that's one thing we've seen over the years is just the growth of the game. Where before everyone was from that, Ontario and just the surrounding edges. Now we're seeing players who grew up in St. Louis, Texas, Florida.
I'm just shocked to see how many Americans
where Levi coming out of originally out of Florida.
The game's growing, and we know outside
and then the Americans
of Ontario
are
here
left,
now they're coming from all parts to this league, but it means a lot, I think, to the OHL.
Looking at the
that
group
it's not
I
just
have right
becoming the
now,
Ontario
nobody
Hockey
in
League,
this
but it's drawing from all over, and the game develops. There's players coming from everywhere, like you mentioned.
There are some really
and then
good
a player like
Americans
that, though, ends up in Shattuck,
have not gone to either the OHL
from there,
or
you
gone
talked about
to the
them doing it
National
the
Development
Shattuck
Program.
St. Mary's
They're
way.
there. You look at guys
such
like
a prestigious and elite
depending on where they want to go,
here you get a
majority of
player,
them are probably going to want to go USHL.
What you're getting, you know at least what level they're going to be as they come
Jerry
now over to
DiConzolo.
Saginaw.
And Daryl, when you
Sasha
found over the years,
Abelinsky.
as the game has grown,
There's a lot of guys
has
that
it been a
they
bit
maybe
more
are
of a challenge
USHL
to
bound,
get
and
as
that's
many
why you're not
viewings
seeing them here.
when
They probably
players are
told
maybe
scouts
spread
that,
out a little
but
bit more?
you know, I think there are going to be
it's
some
always a
late round
challenge, but that's
swings on some
why
guys as
all
well.
teams have a
You know,
staff.
could be
You know, you've got
really
guys all over
qualified
the
talent.
place, and now with social media and video,
Very
there's
interesting
lots
so
of
far.
ways to
There's
see
been a
these
lot
kids.
of
But yeah,
weird
definitely
activity in this draft.
with the sprawl
I think
that's
it's because of
happened
the
in
changes with
hockey,
the OHL and the
it's definitely not easy.
NCAA
You
and
really
the
got to
CHL as a whole.
plan your season out
It's led to some
accordingly.
really
But
intriguing and
the
interesting
Shattuck teams always
decisions.
come into these big events, so
It's good.
definitely get a chance
It's
to see
fun.
these players
It's made
quite a
it
bit.
actually
5'10",
not as
165
predictable
pounds
as
in the
it used to
latest
be in the draft.
listings
You know,
there.
you
But as we
know,
mentioned,
in
he's a
London or
2008
Saginaw
born.
or
Most of the
these
players
other teams
chosen
big swings,
are
and
2009 born. So
it's a
we've
little
had, I
less
think, our second
predictable right now,
08
which is cool to see, and I
chosen
think
here
that's
this
a lot more
evening.
parity
So
in the league.
going to be an interesting situation now,
So
and
it's fun to see that
opportunity here
they're
for
able to have a
the
little
club there
more
to
flair and
get to know him a little bit more and look to see if they can get him in the program.
different
Now we
things
look to the Ottawa 67s are on the clock, ready to make the next choice.
With the
Ottawa
10th
goes
selection
and
in the
selects
third round of the
Reed Hayes
2025
here.
OHL
I'm going to go ahead
priority
and jump the gun a
selection,
little bit. Reed Hayes,
the Ottawa
09 born
67s.
kid. I don't have much of a book on him either.
The Ottawa
But
67s
you know,
are
this is a
proud to
kid
select
who is
Reed
a
Hayes
Windsor
from Windsor.
Spitfire, and
the Windsor Junior Spitfires here checking in. Reed Hayes, the
I thought
choice
he
from
might
the
have been
Windsor
related to
area,
the Hayes
and you
family.
see
That
a
has
guy who
been,
scored
the
basically 2 points a game,
Travis
Daryl.
and
Yeah, and
Avery and all them, but
he
they're
played some
not
junior. He
related.
played some junior B down in the area as well. So, and
He's an
I
interesting
saw the
player.
games on video, and he was just as impacting in those games as he was for his Spitfires team. But he was, you know, he's a dynamic player,
yeah,
right
let's
shot
see what happens here.
winger
There's a lot
slash center
to,
that just has a knack for that.
lots
net.
of like
knows
here
knows when to jump in,
with some of
when
the
not to
guys that are
jump in
still left. I mean,
into
I'm
the-
very
into the-
shocked
into the,
that there's
empty
still some guys
pockets,
that are
and,
left on my
he's got a
board.
great shot. Just
You
you know, one of those
obviously,
kids
guys
that
like Kingston
it's
Harris,
hard to
Jeremy
teach goal
Freeman,
scoring, and some guys just have
both
a
those
knack for it
guys
and knowing where to go, when to go.
are very shocked
He's one of
that they're
those
still
kids
here.
that's
I
very
think
smart.
you know,
So I'm
obviously maybe they're looking
Ottawa's looking
USHL.
forward to
I don't know.
bringing him
I
on
mean, that's
board.
the only way this
Yeah, I'm
makes
sure
sense.
it's going to be very interesting to see Mark as
Lapalane
he
and probably
comes
same thing.
along, growing through that Windsor program.
The Resnick
And I think it's
and
interesting when we see guys get a chance to
I could
play
assume
the
because the
Junior B or the
goaltenders
provincial
were gonna
Junior A
go
level,
later, that
just
makes
to
sense,
see
but,
them, you know, kind of raise their own bar a
some of these
little
guys
bit and
must have
challenge
clearly
themselves
identified
in
they're
this
going
draft
to
season.
USHL.
And I find that very
That's
interesting.
the only
A
way
lot
I
of
can
times
see
when
them not
prepping
being
going into the
selected.
next season and looking at the various teams' rosters, you do find those new players who've had a little taste of junior hockey, whether that be at the Tier 2 Junior A level or Junior B. We talk about a top pick tonight who's playing in a game, and that's an important conference final playoff game where they're going to take something from that, whether they
Again,
get
if you guys,
2, 3,
I know you
15
guys
shifts in
jump
that
back and
game. I
forth.
think
If you guys have
being
any
part of that is
questions,
pretty
feel free to leave
important
them on the
and pretty
side.
eye-opening, and probably helps for
You
these
know,
players
I'll,
when they do go
I
into
might
that
even
first
answer them
training
before,
camp where they go up
the
against
stream
some older
ends here.
players. That's probably
But
something
I
that
got maybe
really
another
you can't
25, 30
replicate
minutes
until
here
you're
and
out
I'm
there
off.
in that physical environment going
You know,
up
I
against
think
players who've got a
there's
little
only
more
9
maturity
picks
on
left
them.
here in the draft.
So up next are the Sarnia Sting to make
we're
the
getting
selection.
through this a little quicker, which is good.
With the
Sarnia just
11th
went and took their pick
selection
here.
in the third round
They went
of
ahead
the
and got Chase
2025
Stugel.
OHL priority
Their
selection,
pick. He's a defenseman.
the Sarnia Sting.
6'5" and 190 pounds, a big frame guy. Plays for the Elgin Middlesex.
Chase Sewell, the
Canucks.
choice here, originally from Elmer, Ontario,
U16
and
player
playing
as
for
well.
Elgin Middlesex. Spent some time previously in Chatham at the
Interesting
Chatham
player.
organization
That's
around
a
as well.
massive
But
kid.
a player now going to
That's all I
Sarnia
have on him,
Sting.
though. I don't have many notes.
He's
I don't have
all kinds of
any
potential.
opinions on him really that are that strong.
6'5",
So
I'm not exactly sure. He's a tall, lengthy defenseman.
Interesting.
6'5", yeah. See, I'm pretty good. I just off the top of my head.
We got the Flint Firebirds here, who have had a very strong
He's
draft so
got
far.
a
I'm curious to
huge
see who they're going to go
ceiling,
after here
his
now.
game
And
kept getting better
you know,
and
you
better
look and
all year
you
round.
see
You know,
who's
you
available
see
right
the
now.
beginning
You
of the
got
year and you
Kingston
see
Harris
this
still
big
here. You
defenseman
got
back there that
Freeman, I think, is a guy who's
clumsy, a
definitely
little awkward, but I'll tell you, as the
pick
year
here for
progressed,
Flint.
his game came along.
You know,
he
even
grew into his body. His
Tyler
coordination
Lee.
all came
I think
along.
Tyler Lee makes makes a
And
lot
I'll
of
tell you, by
sense.
the end of the year,
Lafayette
he
would be
was
awesome.
he was one of the
Any
top
of these guys
defensemen on
would
that
fit
team.
in
Him and
Flint.
Nutting were the two guys that
If they
really
go and
carried
go
the load back there
goaltender, I
for
think
that
that would be a
Oakland
big
team.
And how
move here,
important to
especially
see
if
that
they
idea
actually
where they're able to
resonate.
grow their game over the season.
Yeah, exactly. Because we look at that,
Should be
because
interesting.
now
I
where's
don't
he
know
going
if
to
they
take his
go.
game next year? As
They
he
haven't
gets a
gone
little
defenseman
stronger
yet,
this
so
summer
they
and he's
went
gained the
from,
confidence and he's done all that stuff through the course of the year.
I mean, I
how
don't
good
think
can
they've
this
gone
kid
both
be?
forwards.
I'm sure that's
Actually,
the
they went
excitement
and got
for Sarnia when they drafted him where they did, and I'm sure they're looking forward to watching him.
They did. They got Lucas Nutting.
We've got the next pick coming in on the clock are the Flint Firebirds.
And so they're going to go ahead here and goalie. They go goalie. Mason
With
Corville
the 12th
is their
pick in the third
round
round
of
of the
here,
2025
and,
OHL
another
priority
kid who he's a
selection,
pretty high end kid. I almost ranked him.
the Flint Firebirds.
I have him in the 40s, so a little bit higher than what
selection of the
the actual Sky community
2025
thinks.
OHL
But
priority selection. The Flint
again,
Firebirds
Flint
are
really
proud to select
savvy drafting
Mason Corville.
from Flint. Really like what they've got going on.
Daryl Mason Corville, the
They've
most
been a
recent
really
selection.
they've been really well rounded.
Yeah, Mason had a real good year,
Mason
but
Corville
really
is a
had
kid who I got a lot of time
coming
for.
out at the OHL Cup. Played
And
for TPH at the OHL Cup this year, and his 2 games that he played, I don't exactly know the stats on him, but he was lights
lots
out.
of like with this
Stood
kid.
on his head, gave his team a chance to win both the games that he played in. But his dad played in the league years ago. Back when I played, Larry Corville played in Oshawa with me actually for half a year. This is a kid that played 3 games and had 940 save
8 more
percentage.
picks left,
That's
and
pretty
then
good.
that'll
at
be
this
the
level.
end of tonight.
He's a kid that definitely at the end of the year
for
really
those
peaked.
that have been on here and have
teams
stayed on here the whole
noticed him. I'm
time,
sure
appreciate you
that's what Flint
guys.
saw in him,
Really,
and probably excited to have him join
appreciate
their
the
roster.
support.
A 6'2" goaltender, and Mark, that's what we're seeing.
What you guys have been able to
sometimes
do
it doesn't
to
the 5'11"
keep this
goalies,
going.
but
He
a
keeps
lot of him's
jumping
looking for
up and
that
down here.
6'2" and up
21,
frame, and
23,
a goaltender that's going to be able
all this
to
stuff. And,
develop and probably
it's
have a little
awesome
bit of
to
time
see
to
that,
develop
people are
into
interested
a
in
Flint
this stuff.
organization that's been able to put some
Great to
goaltenders
see
through
that,
the OHL in the last few
we
years.
can
That's
get
for sure.
people that are
Nathan Day
willing
just
to
signed
talk
his
about this
entry-level
stuff.
contract with the Edmonton Oilers, and some
doing
good
a
goaltenders
refresh
that
real
have been there in
quick.
Michigan. But you talk about the size. You'll probably wait on that and give him every opportunity to develop when they have that size. That TPH team that came into the OHL Cup put together, they come in and came up very close to getting to the semifinal. A tough loss in the quarterfinal, and I thought there was a lot of standouts on that team that probably really put themselves on the radar for this OHL draft. And they were on the radar, but if anything, they really just helped their stock rise.
Mason Corville out of the Wilkes-Barre Scranton program, and looking at some of his numbers, 920, 926 save percentages over the course of the last couple of seasons. One stretch last year, he had a 953 save percentage. Once again, doesn't matter if you're playing elite level hockey and putting up those numbers as goaltender, there's certainly something to look at there. And as Daryl said earlier, can he stop pucks? Check.
He does, yes, and that's one thing that he did. And he played with confidence. He was a goalie that challenged at the OHL Cup, and he was fun to watch. He was a fun goalie to watch at the OHL Cup.
I always look at, and we've all seen the goaltenders over the years. I even go back to like a Patrick Waugh.
Well, still here.
That little swagger, that little
going through their
confidence
picks here,
that
and we'll
just
see what
says,
happens.
You're not
But
getting one by me tonight. And I think, Mark, we've seen that over the years in this league, in the NHL. That goalie just has that little swagger, that it factor.
Interesting
It's like, okay, this is
players that are available here.
How many times have you watching a game and thought, they're not getting anything by this guy at this point, right? There's a few saves, and then it turns into several saves, and then it turns into a dozen saves that all of a sudden this guy is locked in, he's dialed in, and
I think Resnick
get hot.
has got to go here.
Probably just like a shooter who feels like everything's going into the back of the net, but for the netminder, you get to frustrate so many more people by making those saves, and we've seen goaltenders get hot and just ride that confidence. But I think that swagger you talk about too is just something that you have to have in you when you get out there on the ice. Not every goaltender maybe has that same sort of confidence, and you try to build them up, but some netminders, they let one in, it's just in one ear, out the other, they move on, and you love to see that in line.
And Daryl, that's what Mark kind of went where I was going next, is how important when you see maybe a goal goes in early, and you want to see, how is he going to react?
A couple
is
guys,
is that going to be in his head the rest of the night? We're not talking about Mason, we're talking in general as goaltenders.
Who these players are, and who
battles right back
here, but
they got one by him, and the second one.
As far as Guelph's draft so far,
with goalies, you're watching how they bounce back. But we're talking about defensemen and forwards. If a defenseman gets beat for a goal, how does he react? How does he go to the bench?
Charlie
Does his
Sullivan,
head
I
down
thought
on
was
the
a
bench?
questionable pick.
As scouts,
Carter
we're watching all these
Lewandowski
little.
was a
We're not
solid
just
pick.
watching the puck in the play. We're watching away
Poppe
from the
was
play
a
sometimes.
solid
That's why
pick, and,
watching a game live beats watching a game on TV
Or
anytime,
Weiss,
because
this guy
you
got
get the
all
whole
the time to load
aspect
talk
of the
about
game.
him.
You can see
So,
the bench when the player goes off. You can see the goalie.
one more
how does he
pick here, I
react
think,
after
for
the
them. I
goal.
think
It's
this
not
is
just,
their last pick of the
not
day.
just watching the kids celebrate. Well, how does he react? There's all kinds of different aspects that a lot of people don't realize that we're watching. We're watching all the time.
But if you see a game on TV, you get to hear and see Mark or myself or someone like that. So hold on, don't knock watching hockey on TV too much.
So we'll see here what happens, but we're waiting and waiting on this pick here.
Moskowitz, see what he thinks of your opinion. You are watching the 2025 OHL Priority Selection presented by Real Canadian Superstore. Thanks for joining us across the network. I'm Terry Doyle, Daryl Wood, Leah, Mark McKelvey with us here in studio. Thanks for joining us, whether you're watching us on your TV, Rogers TV, Cable 14 in Hamilton, Eastlink, CHL TV, the OHL social media channels, it's great to have you on board for this OHL priority selection. As we're getting close to the 10 o'clock hour Eastern time, we've got a handful of picks to go, 8 more picks to go here in round number 3. Then we will pause for the evening, and we'll be back with you tomorrow, 9 a.m. Eastern time for rounds 4 through 15. Mark and I will be on the desk
So Guelph
taking you through
has
that.
made their
Plenty of
pick.
conversations that we will have various guests
a little bit
joining us
behind on the
throughout the
stream
day
for some
on
reason.
Saturday, and it's going to be always a lot of fun to catch up with a lot of people around the Ontario Hockey League. We might even let Daryl come back on the desk at some point on Saturday as well. We're getting set for the next choice, and the Guelph Storm are on the clock.
With the 13th selection in the 3rd round of the 2025 OHL priority selection, the Guelph Storm.
The Guelph Storm are proud to select Cruz Resnick from the Toronto Red Wings.
Another goaltender
Cruz
chosen here,
Resnick.
Cruz Resnick, and this was
Waiting
a name
for
I
this kid to be
remember,
picked, man. It's
January, had
been
someone whisper
too
in my
long
ear
for
and say,
him.
"Keep an eye on
I
this
think
name."
he's the best goalie in
this is
this
definitely
draft,
a name that's
bar
been
none.
on the radar. Another kid that played up last year, and I think even at the beginning of last year,
he's played a
had
lot.
identified him as
he's been
kid to watch, not
an
realizing that he
underager.
was
He
an
played as a
underage,
goalie
and
last year.
can't watch him, but
Played 2 years in the
he's a
under
kid that's
16s.
got
Played
size,
twice at the brick
athleticism.
tournament.
He's got the mental makeup.
Just a very
goalie
athletic,
that
gifted
is
kid.
very hard to beat.
Got a lot of time for him. I think he's going to be a very good OHL
team
goalie.
success this year, in the playoffs.
And really good opportunity for him
They
to
shut
go off,
down
I think.
that
With a Jack
high-powered
White
junior
kids,
Canadians team.
with
And he was one of the big reasons
some
he
of their
played 4
young
to 5
talent. I
games in
think
that
there's a lot to
series,
like there.
lost in the Silver Stick final.
But having a
to Huron
big,
Perth,
solid
he was a
goalie
big
for
reason
Guelph
for that.
is something they
he's a
probably
goalie
haven't seen
that,
since Nico Dawes.
they really counted on a lot, and he made a lot of big saves
for them.
at the right time.
Good for them to get a
Mark, we're
goalie
getting a
like
chance to see
that.
Cruz in action here, and I think it's a case where, when a
Cruz to
goalie
go,
steps up in some of those big games, Silver Stick, deep in
equally
Silver Stick,
deserving,
playoff games, things
of
like
being
that, it's
selected
certainly going
as
to go a
early
long
as
way
he
in
has.
his
So,
development.
Absolutely.
give him a lot of credit.
Teammate of
He's
Brenner
a very good
Lehman's, and
goaltender,
we
and
were
so he's
standing
very
out in the green
fundamentally
room
sound.
getting ready to come on in, and he mentioned to me, I'm surprised he hasn't gone yet. And this was a netminder that a
Now
lot of
we're
people had pegged to be one of the
down
top goalies
to
selected.
the
What I find
lucky
pretty interesting
7
too
guys
is
that are
the Guelph
still
Storm.
left
They got a lot of
on my
talented young
board here,
netminders
and
already
got
going
7
there. In
picks
Zach
left,
Jovanovski
so
and Colin
didn't end
Ellsworth.
up getting
Now you had a
all
netminder that
7
some could have argued could have been the
Um,
top goalie
that'd be
selected
interesting to
in
say the
this
least.
draft.
I
Clearly
think
George Burnett's got a game
Kubelka,
plan, and that your
goalies
success
fall,
usually
Kubelka
starts with the
could go.
goaltender out.
You
And that's
look
what they're
at
building
Kingston
with a
Harris,
netminder who
Freeman,
has had a really
Gabriel
good run
Kaiwa.
and had a great season with the Red
All
Wings.
I think
guys
it's the
that are
case
really
too for
high end
Guelph because
players.
they have
Rafaelin's
some
a
good
good
young
all-around
defensemen,
guy.
good young goaltenders already in the system.
Lee, I think he's got some
Someone
chucking
like
line
Chris doesn't have to
upside,
be
but he's
rushed
got
in
some
either,
great
because that's
speed.
something that's going to be the worst thing.
Lachlan
As a
Larmont
16-year-old, I
doesn't
can
have
think
to
of a
be
few
full
goalies
on,
over the
guys.
years where a goalie coach
Surprised
might
he
even
hasn't
tell
been
the OHL
selected.
team,
There's a
put him on
Brady
another
Tkachuk
team
light
in his
style
16-year-old
player.
year and leave him alone. Just leave him alone, let him develop, and then
Just
come into the OHL.
interesting.
Especially
A
a
lot
team
of-
that maybe is going to be lower in the standings.
lot of
Don't
interesting
face
picks
40
here,
shots tonight in the OHL. That can certainly make
going
things
into the rest
a little
of
bit of a
this year.
challenge
Now
from
we
that
go-
standpoint. The
No one's
Oilers
challenged
Attack
about to
are
make their
standing by with the
selection.
next pick.
With the 14th selection in the 3rd round of the 2025 OHL priority selection, the Owen Sound Attack.
With the 57th selection of the 2025 OHL priority selection, the Owen Sound Attack are proud to select Nicholas Sikora of the Sioux City Musketeers.
Daryl, an
Nick
interesting
Sikora.
story here. This would be the oldest player that has been chosen tonight so far.
Yeah, 2007 birth, playing in the USHL.
Yeah, why? That's an odd one. Nick Sikora is a draft-eligible player. Somebody who
he's a mature
I
player.
don't
He's gonna be able
know.
to
I
step
mean,
in
obviously
right
he's going to
away,
report. I don't know
and
why
help
you
that
draft
team
him
next year. So
otherwise,
that's the
but
advantage of drafting a kid that
fascinating.
is
That's
in his
a really
17th year to
odd
be able to
pick.
step in.
Nobody would have
whether it's
mocked
a
that.
second, third role, wherever.
Very odd.
They
Unless
have
you
him
had some
pegged in.
inside knowledge,
He put up
no way
half decent
anybody
numbers,
would have
pretty
known
good
about
numbers
that.
in the
That's
USHL. I believe he was
very
40 points
interesting.
in 60 games or something like that. 32 and 42. Oh, that's close.
But they're not done, so
Yeah,
from that
that's right. Yeah. So, no, he's a skilled player that.
So we got
I think
6
he's
more
gonna be able
picks
to
left
step in
here.
and help
Obviously,
his
a few of
team
these
next
guys
year.
are not going to
You're
make
right. Actually,
the,
your numbers were right. We were
the
looking at
end
a list
here.
here. Over 2 teams. You played a little bit of time in Omaha, a little bit of
there's
time in
some
Sioux
really
City.
value
Added up to
that's
41.
still
You're
here
right.
on
It's
the
close.
board.
I should never question
Some of
you.
the best available. I'm
Absolutely
shocked
not.
that
And here's a player who's
I'm
already
very
ranked
shocked about Kingston
77th
Harris
by
in the
North North American among
Can't
North
believe
American
those guys are
skaters
still on the
by
board.
NHL Central
It makes
Scouting.
no
So he's on
sense
their
to me
radar as
whatsoever
well.
that they're
So
still on the
a good
board, but
opportunity
you know,
here.
really
And,
interesting to say the
certainly,
least.
Mark, when you get a player that you know
You know,
even
should be
more
fun to
about
watch
as a
them,
17-year-old and
you know,
pushing into their 18-year-old
put
year,
their revenge
you
on
know what
the
you're getting here.
OHL.
And Dale had
If
been
it's
on the
not
record
for
noting
reasons
that
that
a
aren't
lot of
their
teams were
own.
going to be looking to the U.S. and seeing what was still out there
Should
for
be
those
fascinating to
08s.
see
Instead,
their
here they go
growth
with an
and their
07.
development
There's
now,
opportunity
knowing
there with
that,
that young Owen Sound
you know,
team as
I
they
think
continue to start
I wasn't
to
the only
build
one to
something
think
good
Kingston
young
Harris was going to be
players,
a
a good
first
young
round pick.
core,
I
and
think
you've
a
got
lot of people
maybe
had
the best
him as
goaltender
a
in
first
junior
round pick on
hockey
the
in Tyler
radar,
George,
but
and some would
clearly
argue coming back next year as well, who's going to
not
be
the
able
case
to
for
take
a
a
lot
little
of people.
pressure off those younger guys if they do make some mistakes. So I think this is a pretty interesting pick. As you know, I'm going to have a pretty good view, and hopefully Sikora's in the lineup to have a peek at that, to go with that young group. But you're right, you've got a lot more to go off of, and clearly a player, if he's on the Central Scouting watch list, then clearly there's something there.
Fans of the Bayshore would be excited to see him in the lineup. The Brantford Bulldogs have the next two choices here in round number 3. Let's go to Brantford right now to get the first of back-to-back choices.
Ahead. Let's see here.
With the 15th selection in the third round of the 2025 OHL Priority Selection, the Brantford Bulldogs.
The Brantford Bulldogs are very proud to select Gavin Christie from the Niagara North Stars Hockey Club.
Interesting.
So Gavin
Okay.
Christie, the choice here, the Niagara North Stars out of Beamsville, and that
Not a lot of
Niagara
notes
region,
for
and
me on
player
Gavin
now
Christie.
that fans in Brantford can get a chance to check out.
Pretty meat and potatoes kind of guy.
That is,
doesn't really have
hockey.
a ton of upside in my opinion. I think he's a decent player. I think he's a great player, but I think he's a decent player.
Minutes for them. And to be honest with you, the kid that I didn't have at the beginning of the year, I wouldn't have thought that he would be
could be a really good,
pick.
interesting
But again, that's
development
why we play all
opportunity.
year, and that's why we watch all year. This kid's
interesting
game
pick there
kept
by
getting better and better and better. I still think he's got a lot more to go.
Sorry, not Hamilton,
He's got
the
composure
Brantford
with the
Bulldogs.
puck. He's got a little nasty streak.
And then
to
they got their
him.
back-to-back selection here. So
You know, he does a lot of good things. And I think as he gets stronger, his skating's going to get a little better. He's going to get a little quicker off the mark.
Really appreciate you guys that have been on here and
does
stayed
a
on.
lot of good things. His
Can't
dad
believe that it's
played, I
8:20,
believe,
which is
in
pretty awesome.
Sound,
Ryan.
Right, yeah. So he's got some OHL
I think he got 6 more
bloodlines
picks
as
left.
well. So, but just a player that
5 more picks
really impressed me as the season.
Again, for those that are
Certainly
prospect
exciting, the
watchers that are
bloodline.
interested
We
in
see
running
that. We
more,
said Brantford has back-to-back picks. So
I don't do
they
4
have
live streams
they
all
had the
the
choice
time.
a moment ago. They
I
have
try to
the
do
next
4 live
choice
streams all the
as
time,
we
but,
continue on. They have pick 58.
Really
now
appreciate you
they have
guys
pick
staying
59.
on, and any questions, leave them in the comments. And for those that have stayed on, I appreciate you guys. And
With
hopefully
the
you appreciate me
16th
for
selection
putting
in the
feet on
third
as long
round
as I
of the
have.
2025 OHL Priority Selection, the Brantford Bulldogs.
We are standing by for.
Tell me one. Go ahead.
Ooh, something happened.
With the 59th pick, the Brantford Bulldogs are extremely proud to select Jeremy Freeman from the Toronto Titans Hockey Club.
Back to the Toronto Titans. Stuart Hyman making the selection there, and there is the pick, Jeremy Freeman.
Goal scorer, 30 goals in 32 games in the GTHL is pretty impressive. He played on a good team. Played with DeLille. He had some good teammates to play with as well. But at the end of the day, you still got to be able to put the biscuit in the basket, and that's definitely one thing that he could do. He's got a low center of gravity. He's got a little bit of I want to call it.
It's good to see that Jeremy
fire
Freeman
hydrant
finally got
builder, bulldog
selected.
type build where he was hard to knock
Good
off the
set.
puck, and he could shoot the puck, and everywhere in the offensive zone,
good savvy selection.
he was always a threat.
I mean, they might show the clip
goals.
here.
It's the name of the game. Can you score goals?
It's
And
unbelievable
sometimes
hands.
as long as you're doing that, you can work
Tremendous
around
hands.
some of the other stuff and teach the other things. Because if you can
sticking
score
it
goals
on
at any
a
level,
boost.
any elite level of
Unbelievable
hockey,
talent.
it's certainly going to pay
fun
off.
to
Brantford with
see,
back-to-back picks. The London Knights are
he can
standing
do,
by
that's
to
a
make their
solid
next choice.
pick
We'll get
there.
to them when they are
Especially
ready.
ahead of
Indeed, let's
London.
go now
It's
to
a
the
fun pick.
London Knights.
With the 17th selection in the third round of the 2025 OHL Priority Selection, the London Knights.
The London Knights are proud to select Owen Midiotis from the Elgin Middlesex Canucks.
The Knights staying close to home, Daryl, with this with selection here with Owen, now a member of the London Knights organization.
Yeah, we've had a couple defensemen
Owen
go there
Miniotis,
in Elgin Middlesex.
don't have any
This is the
notes on him either.
First forward, and Owen is he's definitely a line driver for that team. You know, the old saying, he's definitely the straw that stirs the drink there in Elgin. Offensively, he scored a lot of goals, but he also made a lot of nice passes. He had the ability to beat you in a number of ways. So definitely looking, I'm sure London has seen them a lot there in their own backyard, and I'm sure Rob Simpson and Mark Hunter and his group are excited to add them to the roster.
And Mark, anytime you say when Daryl says the guy stirs the drink, it's like, I better keep an eye on this guy.
Absolutely, that's a guy that has stood out many times, make things happen, and kind of can really grab the bull by the horns. And I like that you mentioned as well that it's an Elgin Middlesex player taken by the London Knights. I think there's got to be something to that for some of these teams when you have that familiarity, especially as we start to get a little bit deeper into the draft. That familiarity is probably something that's really important to know. We've seen this guy an awful lot. We know what he is. He could fit in here.
And I'm sure, Daryl, it's also knowing the intangibles, knowing that it's a family, it's a hardworking family, it's people they know, because obviously it's one thing to see the player on the ice, but knowing and finding out about their character and everything else off the ice is a big factor as well.
Yeah, that's
26 strong. Appreciate you guys staying on.
People don't realize.
Can't believe there's 26 of you on here.
Behind the scenes with the draft and with doing the work.
Every time I say that, there's those people that drop off.
In-person interviews, they want to interview the parent, they want to interview the player. But a lot of times when I was in Barrie, I wanted to see the parents too. I wanted to get to know the parents. I don't know what kind of player I'm getting, what kind of values has he been brought up with, and that's as big a part as any. And I'm sure Mark and them and the staff there probably know Owen, and seeing them and seeing being around them a lot would probably know them very well.
Up next are the Peterborough Petes to make their selection here in round number 3.
Let's see what they make.
With the 18th selection in the third round of the 2025 OHL Priority Selection, the Peterborough Petes.
Peterborough Petes are proud to select from Shattuck St. Mary, Jerry DiConzolo.
Right back to Shattuck. We've seen a few players come out of this program, and now a player hails from the New York area playing for Shattuck. And some
a lot of time for this kid. I think he's going to probably likely go to the USHL.
Look at those numbers. There's not many kids in this draft.
Shocked that he didn't make the National Development Program.
He was a kid not the
I think
biggest
a
kid in
first-round
stature by any
quality
means,
kid,
5'8",
no
150
questions
pounds.
asked.
But he would
shocked
not
that he's
afraid
this
to
low,
give you
but
a
you know
little
what?
jab here and there.
Excellent
so he
pick
could play
by
the game
Peterborough
anyway.
here.
You want to open it up, play
If you can get him to
type of game.
convert and come
He has no
to,
problem with that, obviously, with those numbers.
come to
but, man,
Peterborough,
he's,
I mean, that's
he's
a massive,
and,
massive swing.
I
You
want to
get
say
there.
dirty, but he's
You combine him with a guy like Cade
doesn't mind
McGregor
giving
and
the
their
jab
class
here
they
and
got.
there, but, yeah, real good.
The OA class
and
they
that's
got
a guy,
there.
Mark, we see over the years that could turn into a fan favorite very quickly. Could chip in offensively or certainly make an impact offensively, but not afraid. Those players that you love to have on your team, but you hate when they come to town.
And
that's exactly what I was thinking.
I love the pick there.
How
Jerry
many times fans will
DiConzolo, I
say,
got an
can't
immense
stand
amount
that
of
guy on
time
the other
for.
team, and you say, but
Should he
was
find himself in the
your team's
OHL?
jersey, you would love him because that's what you want.
This
You
is
want
an
those guys
excellent
that
pick.
can
I
toe
just
the
don't know
line
if he
and get
will.
under the skin, but to have that kind of offensive ability as well. And you're
But that
saying
being said,
he's
if he
afraid
does
to back
find himself in
down.
the OHL,
Talk about a
this
great
is a
combination.
very,
Sometimes
very,
you have those
very
guys who are
solid
more
pick.
depth
Something I
players, so
didn't
to speak, that, like you said, chip in a goal here or there. Here's a guy, though, who puts up points and can still
now we're
battle
down
the
to
other
3.
team and finds a good way to balance both of those
picks
things
left.
in this game.
And that game, too, where you go to the front of the net.
Trudging
And,
along.
annoy the
2
goaltender,
picks
annoy
left,
the
sorry.
defenseman, get under the skin.
Trudging
not
along
afraid
with 2 picks
as
here.
you
We're
said,
going to
a
be
little
just
jab
shy
maybe
of
after
4
the
hours,
whistle.
I
You kind
think.
of make that one little poke kind of thing.
But,
just to
for
maybe
those that
get a
have been on
goalie
here,
off his game. And that's
appreciate you
something
guys
we see
staying
as
on.
the game within the game type of situation where, as it
hopefully
plays
we'll,
out, next thing you know, goalie's off the
going
game, or the
here
team
and
takes a
we'll have
retaliation
some,
penalty, and
some dialogue
before you know
maybe
it,
after
changes
if
the
you guys
course, the
interested.
outcome
If
of the
not,
game. And once
I'll
again, we
probably
talked
close
earlier
up
about lighting a
and,
fire under a guy.
thank
It's
you all
harder
for
to
joining
have to
and
try and light a
make
fire
sure
than
to
maybe try to
subscribe
light
before
somebody
you go
in.
to bed.
Yeah, exactly. Compete is such a big thing in our league. How hard you work and how hard you play the game. All teams value it a lot. So it's when you can get a kid that competes and what you're going to get out of them night in, night out, shift in, shift out. That's huge for all
20 OHL teams.
We're standing by. The London Knights are on the clock with the 62nd overall pick. We are in round number 3. We have 2 picks remaining here in the third round. We will pause for the evening shortly after that, and then we'll be back with you tomorrow, 9 o'clock Eastern time, for rounds 4 through 15 of this 2025 OHL Priority Selection. You're watching it live here, presented by Real Canadian Superstore. We appreciate you joining us here. It's a great day, and it's a great evening for the Ontario Hockey League. As we said, it's kind of like graduation from minor hockey into the Ontario Hockey League for so many players. But Daryl, the message we always say as well is whether you pick the first round, the 15th round, or not chosen, there's still hard work to be done.
Oh, there is. Yeah, and just because you were a first-round pick doesn't mean you've got the easy road. It doesn't mean you got the easy road. There's going to be kids that were drafted later than you that are going to be pushing because they want it as much as you do to play on the London Knights, the Peterborough Petes. They want to be on that roster. There's a reason why they've played the game at a high level for so long. That's their dream. Their dream is to make that next step, and the next step is playing for an OHL hockey team. So it doesn't matter. We've had, in my years in Barrie, we had numerous kids that were, 11th, 15th, 12th, these kind of rounds. Like Tanner Pearson was probably one of the later picks that we had. He ended up having a pretty good NHL career. He was a 14th round pick in the Ontario Hockey League. So there's stories that we could tell till we're blue in the face about these kids that were drafted late and made an impact, whether it's not just in our league, but went on and had great NHL careers.
Again,
That'll be for
making
tomorrow
sure
as well.
we get
Yes,
to the 4
right.
hour
Sorry,
mark.
I shouldn't have brought it up. Okay.
No, we don't want to give away all those stories. We'll have some of those tomorrow as well. But it's always great to see, and then you can't help but cheer for the just because of what we see on the page, they become a little bit of an underdog. Yep. Maybe they shouldn't be called that, but that's just what happens. And it's always great to sort of see those stories and see the perseverance, and it shows the hard work and the dedication. In some cases, too, we see players that, the OHL Priority Selection, they were, one size. And then maybe the growth spurt came in the summer or, in the next year, and before you know it, and then just they find their frame and the skating comes together, and maybe that one intangible that, Mark, we've seen it too, where, maybe it's they got their shot. It's a defenseman. Finally got that shot down pat, able to get it through, and next thing you know, their game really grows.
Exactly that. A lot of young players come into the league, and the shot's a great example from a defenseman that maybe they just don't have it from the blue line yet. But as they get stronger, they get a little bit older, they figure it out, they add that weapon to their game. So it's all about just improving day to day is probably the biggest message, right? And even for the players that are selected here in these first few rounds, nothing is just given to you. You've got to still go out and earn it. Everybody's got to find a little something to keep them motivated. For those players that are maybe picked a little later tomorrow, maybe that's their motivation. But for the guys selected tonight and some of those taken in the first round who know they're going to have big opportunities going into their various OHL teams, do you want to just be a part of that team, or do you want to be an impact player on that team? And like we said, it's all about what you can kind of bottle for that motivation to help you get to the next level.
London is still on the clock. We're waiting for their choice. But guys, that's the one thing we're also seeing out of the under-18 priority selection is so many players that have come through that have come into the OHL, played regular. I got a chance to see Nick Serzicha a lot, goalie coming out of that. We've seen various players, and I'm sure, that's another thing where that program has allowed players to develop at a different pace, but still contribute, go on to sign pro contracts, go on to, have success in the Ontario Hockey League.
Yeah, and I keep going back to the 15 and 16, 17-year-old years are so big for these kids because those are the biggest developmental years, both physically and with their game. So the big point is, if you don't get drafted, if you get drafted, where you play next year, make sure you play. Make sure you continue to develop your game, whether it's on the ice, in the weight room, getting stronger, whether it's playing for, a U18 program as well and being the guy on that team, getting some power play time. Really think about where your next steps are in your hockey career.
The London Knights have taken a timeout here in round number 3, so we're waiting for their choice. And let's take a quick recap of round number 2, if we can bring that up.
Leave it to London.
We looked at round 1. There's what happened in round number 2. So in case you joined us a little bit late, stepped away, there's certainly some very interesting names that you see the logos beside them, and fans throughout the Ontario Hockey League are going to be very excited to see these names. For some fans, these are just names. But I know, Mark, we even see this as well, where we hear a name tonight or we hear a name tomorrow, and then all of a sudden 2 years from now we're calling games and like, I remember that name.
And yeah, they'll come to you at some point. It's like that light bulb going off. And in that second round, there's so much high-end talent right there, and just shows the plethora of talent that was in this 09 age group. Lucas Nutting, for example, I think was at 31 or 32 to Flint, was a player that, you know, I just loved watching at Elgin Middlesex and watch what he could do, and ends up at number 30. Well, again, it's just a number going beside his name. He's going to get a lot of opportunities. So, and to see some of the players with so many bloodlines tonight, I know you guys were talking about all evening long in those first few rounds, the players who their brother or their father were in this league. It's pretty cool to see, because if you've covered this league for a long time and you get to watch that cycle, that's something I'm kind of waiting on, Terry. I know you've had the pleasure, though, father play, then son play. It's just really cool to see how this league continues just to go.
Get used to feeling old, though, when that happens. That's the only issue.
You said that now in the third round. We're getting old.
Yes, and you really start to feel old when that happens. London Knights have come out of the timeout. They've made their choice. They've submitted.
London Knights finally made their pick here.
Let's turn it back over to the Knights.
With the 19th selection in the third round,
Their pick is
the 2025
Legali.
OHL priority selection,
He's,
the London Knights.
You know, really high-end player, played for the Vaughan
London
Kings.
Knights are proud to select Elon Legalic from the Vaughan Kings.
Back to the Vaughan Kings here, Daryl, and the choice made by the London Knights.
You know, he's somebody who, again, I thought might have been QMJHL eligible, but you know, came over to the Ontario area in the last few years.
He was one that you loved
good
watching.
player. I like. This is probably my favorite pick of the ones from London.
Energy. And every
Still not
time he was on the
amazing.
ice, he was a
I
quick
think it's a
player
pick
that
that
would
though
put
it makes a
pressure
lot.
on.
It's more of a London
that
pick
Vaughan
than the
team
rest
was
of
good.
them. That's for
They
sure.
ended up winning the first
I
round
got
of
a lot of
playoffs
time
against
for
Marty,
Elion
so it was a
Legalic,
team that was
and
real fun to watch, and he was
it should be fun to
definitely
watch
the
his
guy.
growth in
And
this
certainly
game. And
being that
finally
go-to
down
guy
to
at
the
that level
very
of
last
hockey,
pick.
market's so competitive,
Again,
and
for
when you're
those
able
that
to be
have stayed
relied
on,
upon to
thank
be such a
you so
contributor,
much.
it's got a big factor that scouts are going to keep a close eye on.
Can't believe that 20 people
so,
stayed
right?
on.
You
I'm
go
sure
into a game,
19
and
of
even
you
if you're
are
just a
falling
casual
asleep.
viewer of U16,
If
for
not,
example, you
comment
go in
below.
and someone says, who should you keep an
And,
eye on? Typically, there's
you
one
know,
or two players
appreciate
on
you
each
guys being
team.
on here
If
as
that's the
long as
player
you
you're
have,
watching,
and,
you watch them closely, and if they can continue to
hopefully you're like
perform
me
the way
and
that
you
he
can
did,
relax the rest of the night
you
and
know that there's a reason why they're
get
getting
some
that
rest.
kind of praise.
And
So the London
you know,
Knights
if you're a
making
real
that
nerd,
choice.
you'll
We've got
probably
one more to go.
wake
The
up
Flint
and
Firebirds will wrap
want
up
more
round number
draft
3
from the
of this
OHL
OHL
from
priority
rounds 4
selection,
through
and the
15.
pick they're just
I'm not going to
about,
be talking, thankfully,
ready. I
but
think they're just getting their
I'll be following on my
picks
phone
submitted to
and
the
won't
Ontario
be,
Hockey League, and once they do that, they have to. We told you earlier, we
around
have
the
to
house.
submit the pick
But
to the
again, for
Ontario
those that
Hockey
have
League. Has to
joined,
be
thank you
approved.
so much.
Once that
Really
happens, the
appreciate you.
team makes
Please
the official
subscribe if you're not
announcement.
already.
Similar style to what
You
the
have to
National
subscribe.
Hockey
I
League does
appreciate
as
you.
well
And
with
if you
their
stay on
draft.
as long
And
as
now
you
the Flint
have, we're
Firebirds,
not
they've
best
made the
friends.
submission.
So
they are going to announce it right now.
Flint has made their final selection, and it
With
is
the 20th selection
Braden
in the third
Lapalainen.
round of the 2025 OHL priority selection, the Flint Firebirds.
With the 63rd selection of the 2025 OHL priority selection, the Flint Firebirds are proud to select Braden Lapalainen.
Braden Lapalainen, the choice here, listed as a winger out of the
Braden
Sun County
Lapalainen,
Panthers, another
that's the
Sun
last
County
pick
player
there.
chosen
Flint knocked
here.
it out of
And
the park.
Daryl, the Flint Firebirds and their fans
I hate
looking
to
to
say
have
it from
Braden maybe in the
Southeast
lineup for the next
Michigan
couple of years.
kid, but
They're
they were
exciting players.
terrific
Kid
this
has
year.
nose
This year,
for
I
the
mean,
net. Like
I'm
I said
excited to
earlier,
watch
that
the rest
Sun
of their
County team
draft. I think this is like
had
a
handful of
franchise-changing
real
draft for
talented
them.
forwards. They pushed the pace all game
Nailed
long,
all their
and-
picks.
and,
Love what they were able
Braden
to do
might
in
have
terms
been,
of where they
might have been the
scouted and
most
what they had
pure
done.
goal scorer of them all.
Excellent job by
he didn't
Flint.
miss
That
very
was
often,
an
and,
interesting
you know,
way to end this year.
OHL
You
Cup
know,
in
obviously
one
we
of the
look
last
here. We got
games,
Kingston Harris,
round
Cooper
robin, maybe
Pyra,
the quarterfinal. He
Tyler
was injured.
Lee,
He broke his collarbone.
Lachlan
He was really
Larmond,
missed. I
and the
think if he's
goalie
in
Ian
that game in the
Kobelka, who are
quarterfinals
still
where
left for
they lost, I
tomorrow.
think he's got a chance.
All of
or
those
that team
guys
has
they
a
would
chance to
expect to
win.
be
So
in
he
the
was
fourth or
really
fifth
missed
round at
come
the
that
very
the
least,
last
I
game
would
of the
think.
OHL Cup.
A little bit of highlight
Otherwise,
action there. You see him
somebody would have
certainly
committed
was
murder
working out of the
and never
corners or going to the
scored
front of the
if all
net.
those
Some
five
great
were gone.
opportunities for him. So 63 picks are in the books
but,
here at this
again,
2025
appreciate you guys so
OHL
much.
priority
Appreciate
selection.
you.
Round 3 is done.
You know,
we're going to step aside,
appreciate the
take a
time
quick
you guys
break.
have
When we
spent
come
on
back,
here.
we will put a
I'm
wrap
gonna go
on
ahead
this
and
evening's proceedings as
stop sharing here. So go ahead and closing this out on my end. And then I will go ahead and just remove the screen here. I'll go back to myself. Again, thanks so much for those that have joined on here. Really appreciate you guys and being able to stay on here for as long as you have. I'm going to give you guys a couple minutes. If you guys have any other other questions. If I don't get anything though, really appreciate you guys being on here. Really appreciate the time spent, and yeah. So If there's no other questions, or if you're watching on recording, appreciate you guys doing this. Hopefully you fast forwarded through most of this. And I'll see everybody at another video at some point in time. Hopefully you guys tune in next week to my U18 coverage and my preview show, and I'll probably give my synopsis on my winners and losers in a post on social media, on Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Thanks. Have a good one. Appreciate you guys being on here. Bye.